Guess what? I won the lottery, but when winning the lottery, I actually lost money. I lost over $1,000 because I won the lottery of being able to get the freaking Steam machine. Look at that. Dude, I got a Steam machine. What? I have now had the Steam machine for about a month. And depending who you ask, this might be a complete loss. I just threw my money in the freaking toilet.
Yes, the Steam machine is small, but I also don't really care because it sucks. The performance is very weak, the hardware is already outdated, making it a hideously expensive indie gaming machine.
Or this might be the greatest thing to ever land on PC gaming, ever. I will be creating a new Steam machine to see if it deserves all the shit that it's been getting. Which is why, in order to watch this video, you're gonna need to sign a contract, or at least a verbal contract, because I'm about to start some shit with other creators. Maybe even Lord Gaben himself about the Steam machine, because this video will include goofiness. What the fuck is happening? Bro, this shit is crazy. Dude, wait, look at the sky. What's wrong with the sky?
Spider-Man's in the Matrix. Well, we can play him very low. Let's give them, you know, the leniency here, you know. Look at that.
Didn't even 60. No.
Oh, my bank account. This looks like a PlayStation 3 game now.
We will make mistakes.
Here's a cooler. It's really cute though. Hey. Oh no, it is running hot now. It is much, much louder than the Steam machine. The thing about it is like you have literally absolutely nowhere to put cables in this thing. Like it's okay, but that's a lot of pressure. Do you see this?
At the same time, it will be very, very educational. Guaranteed, free of charge.
So basically what you want to do is install it like that and then close it up. Look how close it is. You maybe could have got a slightly bigger one.
Actually, battle that stuff with agreeing with people. Never mind. I'm right. I'm the only opinion that matters here. Now, Valve is doing something really cool here. They're basically making a PC that is a console. And the amount of glaze that has been going on with the Steam machine is crazy. Well, I don't think these creators are wrong or anything because Valve has made a very, very cool product here. I had it up and running in a matter of minutes.
You gotta turn it on. Ooh.
Do you like to keep the screen reader on? No.
Ugh. Cool. It still defaults the name to Steam Deck. GameCube. I just don't think it's all that, even though I do like it. I think that the game maybe could look like better, but right now we're playing at medium to low settings. A decent amount of scaling at 4K. I don't think the game looks bad by any means. $1,000. Holy shit, that is a lot of money. I know this is kind of old news now, but it really hits different when you're the one buying it.
I only have 500 gigs of storage in 2026, and that's what you get. You can install this many games.
It's more than Switch 2.
Because some creators and reviewers out there, they aren't the ones buying it. They don't feel the impact of it nearly as much. But I feel like it's about time that we try it. In some clips in here, you're gonna see my buddy Cameron also join me.
This guy sucks.
And blows. Now, when I was a Steam machine.
Back in my day when I was a Steam machine.
So it's not just me, the one who purchased it, but also somebody else who doesn't own one and doesn't feel that price impact.
Yeah, you can't buy this shit. Yeah, so to put in context how shitty the lottery system is, I actually managed to get a Steam controller. I got this, and he wanted to get a Steam controller. I got both of these before he even got a notification.
For the Steam controller, yeah.
So even buying the Steam machine is damn near impossible. And I feel like we're gonna have to do something about that. Well, at least they can help us with the price.
Authentic. What is this guy talking about? We need to talk about air and how I managed to sit myself right on the crack of this table. Not only does air give us this ability to live, air also gives the ability for our computers to survive. And some fans blow, while other fans like to suck. And we have all experienced a computer with severe COPD. And as my cat walks across this table, you can see why a lot of my computers have suffered from this. This Mix 11 Pro makes short work of that stuff. Going up to 130,000 RPM, it's got 4 nozzles, 4 brushes, and it runs on battery with up to 80 minutes of dusting or 700 minutes of being a fan. And then there's the Apex V8 vacuum. And while I wish I could just suck all the fur off the cats, just beat it at the source. You don't know what this is.
Can't really do that. It's not very nice. So I think it's a decent compromise to be able to clean it up with this. It's really lightweight, portable, and this will be able to get it all because you can get anywhere with these nozzles. Super easy to empty.
I made a mess.
And can run up to 40 minutes on its eco mode. So the Mix 11 Pro blower and the Apex V8 vacuum, I mean, these are gonna keep your life freaking clean. Plus the E2 Ultra Precision Screwdriver is a banger, putting together all your PC parts. All this, and these guys are super freaking reasonable, especially with the code. I'm gonna put a code here. It's gonna be by Spooky My Cat. All the links to Fantic stuff will be in the description to make a project like this freaking possible because PC components, as you know, are really freaking expensive nowadays. Don't look at my game library, dude. I got some weird stuff on there.
Yeah, I caught this guy playing New Women, Chapter 2.
Very family-friendly games out here.
And honestly, why he's showing my Steam library is just how easy it is to get into a game once you have the Steam machine. It is so smooth. You can even control your monitor or your TV's volume using your controller.
It's kind of cool as you press like this, and then you go up and down, you can change the monitor. See that?
This is actually cool.
Yeah, so this is on the controller. I actually interacted with it. And down the side menu, your TV volume's right here, so you can mute it.
And that's not even mentioning that you can turn on the freaking Steam machine or your TV too, using just your controller from the couch. Now, out of the box, this only works on the Steam controller, which does blow because not every bundle of the Steam machine even includes it.
All right, let's play the benchmark game. This game you don't have fun, you just use it for benchmarking. That's the rules.
But how do you feel about SteamOS? Like it just pulled up a launcher.
It's still going straight to the game.
You should be able to just press A though.
How do I feel about SteamOS?
Yeah.
I'm in a toxic relationship with it, okay? I love it from distance.
Now, Valve, especially when first advertising the Steam machine, they mentioned 4K gaming quite a bit.
Enabling 4K gaming at 60 frames per second with FSR.
And even on the website today, they mentioned 4K gaming, but with FSR 4.1. So let's give all this 4K stuff a bit of a test.
Wow.
Oh. 20.
It's cinematic. Well, it's not even quite cinematic to be honest.
Well, Switch gamers play like this, Nick. It's fine. Yeah, this is miserable.
Okay, so that is Steam machine at 4K. Now, to be honest, we all knew the specs of it. We all saw what we're working with.
Valve also admits the Steam machine is not powerful. When you first boot it up, it defaults the resolution of the console to 1080p. Your games will load in 1080p, even though on their website they do advertise some 4K. Also, when I first got it, you could not adjust the refresh rate of your monitor when in game mode. And that menu was capped at 60 FPS on a 120 Hz monitor. You can do anything about it. You could toggle the allow tearing thing, which should allow it, but that just didn't even work. Now, in a later patch, Valve did end up fixing this. You can now turn up to 120 Hz like the monitor should be, but this was a pretty shitty bug.
PlayStation has pissed her. Let's give it FSR.
720p to 4K right now.
It's running like a PlayStation right now, 40 FPS. Base PS5.
I don't think the game looks bad. What do you think?
My aim's bad. There we go.
Ass controller aim.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Why is her ass out?
Where the pants at?
Yeah, it's being consistent. At least it's 47 to 50.
That's one thing I have noticed when playing on is like the frame times are really good. Like the game feels smooth typically. It's just not very fast.
So Valve's not wrong. It does definitely rely on upscaling. We all knew that from the start, let's be honest. The problem is the good version of FSR 4.1 that they advertise, well, it isn't even enabled by default. You have to go in and go to the Proton Experimental. Proton is what translates Windows games to be able to run on Linux. And you have to do this on an individual per game basis to enable the good quality upscaling.
Okay, you wanna try a different game?
Yeah, let's do Spike Giga. No, I actually own this game on the PlayStation 5.
Okay. Does it run better on that? Dude, wait, look at the sky. What's wrong with the sky?
Spider-Man's in the Matrix.
What the hell is happening? Gonna try upscaling a bunch?
It's our best bet.
So this will be upscaling from 1080p up to 4K, yeah.
Oh, goodness.
What the hell is happening? This is bad.
Now, why is this happening? Well, the Steam machine only has access to 8 gigabytes of video memory. And when they advertise 4K, it doesn't exactly work. In this case, we're even upscaling and it still gets confused. We're actually getting worse performance once we turned it on. And don't worry, things are about to get so much worse. But first, we turned it down to 720p upscaled to 4K with only medium settings in the game. I think this is worse than a PS5.
You're 40.
It made the buildings in the distance look worse.
There's issues. Like you can see it when he's swinging. Like Spider-Man looks pixelated.
Yeah, I'm not saying crispier as in like frame rate. I'm saying like graphics-wise, it looks crispier than a 5. Well, we can play them very low. Let's give them, you know, the leniency here, you know. Look at that.
Didn't even hit 60. No.
It's at 46. Oh, my bank account. This looks like a PlayStation 3 game now.
With the slight misflick of the controller, the Steam machine did this.
Maybe try high settings. We get a 1440p. Is it crashing? Oh my god, it might be crashing. Did that just like completely, whoa, went black. Oh my god. What is happening? Yeah, you can't interact with anything. It reset itself. That's crazy.
It shit the bed. Well,
At least it fixed itself, I guess. I didn't touch the power button.
I may have, when I hit high, I probably tried to go over and hit very high.
We have a graphical error now.
Come on.
Dave, get off your yacht and fix this.
Oh, yeah, we're very high.
It should change it instantly. Oh, it's frozen. Oh god. Did it just die?
All right, guys, we're gonna call overtime real quick. I'm gonna.
Yeah, he has the honors. Let's hold it down until it just kills itself, I guess.
Yeah, we were pushing the settings and even a little bit accidentally, but holy shit, it destroyed itself. Now loading up, we switched to 1440p high settings instead, and yeah, the performance is a little bit more reasonable.
40 at 1440p? This isn't even a really intensive game.
The issue we're having here is we're not using frame gen.
Oh yeah, it would double our performance. And it's real performance too.
Like, I feel like for that price, we could build something better.
I feel like we could.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Hey!
Ferb, I think I know what we're gonna do today.
This is a sign of quality.
So I want to fix all these things. I want a Steam machine that is cheaper. It is more powerful. It is more capable. I want the upgradability to be leaps and bounds above the Steam machine. I/O that actually makes sense. A system that you can buy right now, unlike the Steam machine, which is like a lottery system, get on the waitlist. And finally, as a cherry on top, I want to compare directly the performance of a Steam machine versus a Steam machine killer. For this, we're gonna be comparing the 2 terabyte Steam machine, which is $1350. What we're gonna be doing is matching the things like the RAM capacity, 16 gigabytes, and the storage. So to have the same RAM and the same storage, what you're gonna see is it's a lot better. But you can judge it for yourself.
So for the Steam machine, we got this, the 7600X. Just a week ago, this was listed as a, what, $130 CPU. What the f? This is amazing for $130 bucks. That's insane. Even at 160.
Always upgrade the NVMe drive. You can add another one to this board, which you can't do on the Steam GPU plugs in. But those builds are
Using this to install freaking Linux. It's just this image file here. Select that. It will destroy all data. And with this, I need to change the boot order. Oh, it says welcome to SteamOS.
Now, some of the requirements for SteamOS is that you need to be all AMD at the moment. So that's why in particular we're using AMD GPU. A lot of other builds out there have been using NVIDIA ones, and that doesn't really match up. We got to be using SteamOS if we want to kill the Steam machine. Feels sacrilegious to put friggin' Windows on it.
I have a mouse cursor. Does it work? Oh, it works. We're in the USB drive right now. In the bottom right, it says wired connection activated. So it seems like out of the box, this does have drivers for the internet. So that's pretty damn good. That's not always a guarantee, even on Windows. And then we can go ahead and wipe device and install SteamOS. So permanently destroy all your data. This cannot be undone. Choose proceed if you wish to wipe this device. Oh my God. Okay, this is just the setup.
And with that, Valve has made SteamOS honestly really easy.
Steam Killer R7600 because of 5.46 gigahertz. That sounds right. There's 16 gigs of RAM. That's tough. 9060 XT. Video driver 25.99. I don't know. We have as much VRAM as we have actual system memory. Technically, it says we have more. So that's pretty funny. The GPU drivers worked right out of the box. It's super easy to navigate. The Wi-Fi, internet, and Bluetooth worked out of the box. That's sick. I don't really have any complaints. Basically, you could just load it up, and as long as you have an AMD GPU, you could just start playing games. Like, you probably get a similar experience using something like Bazite, and that you could still use an NVIDIA GPU in that case, but we're covering SteamOS today, boys. So this is my creation, the Steam Machine Killer. Yes, it is larger. The Steam Machine is only about 3.5 liters if you were to take it in volume, whereas this machine is 16 liters, 5 times larger. At the same time, for what we're fitting in this little box here, well, little's a bit of an overstatement here. I do think you're getting a lot in that box. My machine is louder than the original Steam Machine by quite a bit. Basically, if you're to have the Steam Machine running a game, it is almost undetectable, especially if you're sitting further away from it. Whereas my Steam Machine Killer, its loud fan setup was 50 decibels. And this is because I did end up adding fans to it. This originally wasn't in the build when I put it in there, but it is accounted for in the budget, and they really do help with the cooling. This thing was just straight hotboxing before. And you can do some fan tuning. Like, I found having an exhaust out the top and an intake in the front seemed to be the best because of how the fins are positioned on the cooler. Then I mentioned I also changed out the cooler. There's still some room between this and the power supply on this 67mm cooler. That's something I was worried about. And when you go into the BIOS to change the fans, set them to go off the motherboard temperature, then you can choose between standard or quiet fans. And with all that, it sounds like this.
Might have been it quiet for.
I would say it is still noticeable volume, but it's not terrible. And the noise makes more sense when you see the power draw. We're at like 300 watts, whereas the Steam Machine is at like 180. But don't worry, it's worth it. Now I've been testing the Steam Machine Killer. What the hell are you doing? Welcome back, Cameron. Woo! So as you can tell, it is sitting over here. You guys can't see it. It's kind of bigger.
Way bigger.
Do you remember it being loud?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you ever figure out why?
It was just every single fan in there was like, ugh. But the first thing that you're gonna notice with Steam Machine Killer,
The murder?
you can try to turn it on with the controller.
Look at that.
Yep, 70.
We're at 4K high.
Yeah, and just a little bit upscaling. 11 gigs of VRAM.
Steam Machine has what, 8?
Yeah,
And then how many gig does this one? Does it have 16 too?
16. Yeah.
This is pretty good.
All I do is I buy games to benchmark them. Working on this, the better looking upscaler. This is because we're not on an RDNA 3 GPU, we're on RDNA 4 one, which actually has a better version of FSR 4. This is getting confusing, but things are a little different. I had to download a program called Proton Plus and download this. Oh, and then it just shows up here, so you just catch you at which even though nowadays for my testing is probably about 50%.
Consoles do performance? You can't be a samurai.
It's weird. You know, on Windows, sometimes like in Steam, it kind of hangs, like it's saying stop game, even though the game's already stopped, and it's
Yeah.
kind of sitting in limbo. And on SteamOS, game closes, you can relaunch it immediately when the game closes. Weird thing too, on SteamOS in general with the Steam Machine Killer, you cannot do ray tracing in this game.
Well, this is a killer, so you can, right?
No, you can't.
Oh.
Yeah, you can check the settings. You can't run it. I don't know why.
I mean, I think, my personal opinion, I know this is slaughter games at 1080p, but I want to see 4K 60 because that's what the Steam Machine said before they ganked it right before it came out. Yeah, pretty good. He definitely just messed. Seems like he's a trade worker.
Also, can you hear that? What do you think about the noise while it's actually running the game?
Sounds like my desktop, personally.
I mean, it's not quiet,
Yeah, it's not quiet.
but it's not that loud either. With that goofiness that we just did, I think we should talk about the actual raw performance numbers. The Steam Machine versus the Steam Machine Killer. Do we really kill it? And with the Steam Machine on Proton Experimental, how I got these running with the FPS and stuff, let me know how you guys think that this stuff looks. And the version of Proton is right under the FPS numbers there as much as I can show per game. And really just across the board, we just see dominance. We talked about the 8 gigabytes of VRAM before on the Steam Machine, but even in games where the Steam Machine does not have VRAM issues, I still saw a lot of the time like 50% faster performance. Like in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which does use ray tracing by default, 1080p, 1440p. We're seeing massive performance leaps. The Steam Machine Killer is actually playable at like 60 FPS at 1440p, around in there, whereas the Steam Machine is more like 38. We're saying Cyberpunk, the Steam Machine, even at 1080p, is barely scraping by at 60 FPS, and the Steam Machine Killer can get 96. Or at 1440p, the Steam Machine Killer is now getting 63 FPS, whereas the freaking Steam Machine can only muster like 41. And in some games I did test what they were like at different settings. So at medium settings here in Expedition 33, things look kind of okay for the Steam Machine. This would be the way that I would choose to play the game. At 1440p, for example, if you do some upscaling, so from balanced upscaling using FSR 4, which I still think looks quite good, you can get 66 FPS on average, whereas on the Steam Machine Killer, those same settings, you can get 109. But if you go up to epic settings, which is like maxed out in this game, yeah, now the Steam Machine drops to 43 FPS, whereas the Steam Machine Killer is sitting at 72. We hop over to a game where VRAM is a major concern, but I turned the settings down to medium because, well, we saw the Steam Machine crashing in this game without doing that. Okay. And even in Linux, I was able to show the per process VRAM usage. On the Steam Machine, it's completely like maxed out. 7.4 used total on VRAM, then the process, the game, is 7.3. Whereas on the Steam Machine Killer, in total, it's using 9.4 gigabytes. And then the per process is 7.3. If the base Steam Machine had more VRAM, especially as we go up in resolution, it would probably do better. And then there's also just the base RAM on the system. And there's two numbers there. One on the Steam Machine says 1.1 or 1.3 gigabytes, and then the Steam Machine Killer says 2.6. That's the swap memory. So that's how much data is being written off to the SSD. As you can see, 16 gigabytes of system memory isn't even the best on SteamOS. That's not terrible. At 1440p, the Killer is getting 67 FPS. Oh god, that number. And then the Steam Machine is getting 44. So pretty freaking reasonable. And if you do some upscaling, then the Steam Machine Killer is still pretty far ahead. Then in a game like Last of Us Part 2, at 1440p, medium settings, so we're not pushing the settings anywhere that crazy, the Steam Machine Killer is getting 89 FPS, whereas the Steam Machine is getting 60. Then Last of Us Part 2, this is the game where we saw some real goofiness as the FPS got really low. Basically with the VRAM, if the VRAM is getting absolutely strained, you have to restart the game in order to get it to kind of run properly. And that doesn't even guarantee that the longer you play, that you're not gonna have more issues as things and more things start to load up into the video memory. Whereas the Steam Machine Killer is chilling with 16 gigabytes of VRAM, literally double the Steam Machine. It is just chilling in most games. You can basically just turn on whatever settings you want. It's not the fastest GPU on the planet. The 96 XT isn't magic, but it has a lot more memory to work with. Bro, I had to leave that on the screen for you guys. This also does manifest in a game like Oblivion Remastered. Literally 1440p native. The freaking Steam Machine Killer is getting 49 FPS. This is an Unreal Engine 5 game, so it's really intensive, obviously. And the Steam Machine is getting 28 FPS, 75% faster. And the thing that starts to get really crazy is you go up to something like 4K, even with upscaling from 1080p up to 4K, so huge upscale. It's getting 56 FPS on the Steam Machine Killer, whereas the Steam Machine can only get 14. It's just falling apart because of that VRAM problem. It's almost playable on the Steam Machine Killer, but 4K on the Steam Machine is just not great. You have to go down to like low settings. Now let's hop over to Resident Evil 9 Requiem. This game is really well optimized, but it does also have problems with VRAM. At 1440p, the Steam Machine can only get 50 FPS, whereas the Steam Machine Killer can get 85. That is a 70% increase. And at 4K with upscaling, which still looks really good with FSR 4 and the Steam Machine Killer, they're both using FSR 4 though. This was one game that I noticed it defaulted to using FSR 4 no matter what Proton version you're using. So that was a kind of cool thing to look at. But with upscaling at 4K, you can get 69 FPS nice on the Steam Machine Killer, and on the Steam Machine, you only get 39. That is a 77% increase. Now you might think, especially with the limited VRAM capacity, that competitive games, say like Marvel Rivals, would run better on the Steam Machine compared to other things. Well, Marvel Rivals is still an Unreal Engine 5 game, and when I ran this, maybe also with CPU issues in this game too, because the CPU in the Steam Machine is not like that crazy or anything. It can only get 63 FPS at 1080p medium. Like that is not really looking that great. But Steam Machine Killer could get over 104 FPS on average. I do want to mention though is with these machines, the 1% low, so how much the game is stuttering, really is not that bad. Especially because we're running on Linux right now. I think that's pretty cool. But the 1% low, the game's running pretty stable. And really, it just goes on, especially with games that hit the VRAM extra hard on the Steam Machine. Games like Spider-Man 2, Silent Hill 2 will also have issues, even though that's still a really intensive game. The Steam Machine Killer also struggled in this game. And this is one of those games that wouldn't launch with the default version of Proton. I did have to turn it back. I rolled it back to 10.0.4 version. I did have this on an external SSD. I don't know if that exactly matters. On the experimental one, it does work. And when you want to turn on settings like ray tracing, just don't expect to be ray tracing on the Steam Machine at all, because ray tracing just uses more VRAM, especially with upgraded architecture. It's a newer GPU on the Steam Machine Killer, the 9060 XT, and having more VRAM. The friggin' ray tracing does a lot better, even though I probably still wouldn't turn it on a lot of the time. And with all that, Cameron did share his thoughts about the Steam Machine Killer versus the Steam Machine. Now, I guess the real question is though, this is like a $1,300 machine. Steam Machine's a $1,300 machine. Which would you rather buy?
If let's say we go back to the wise days of 2018, I would prefer doing that over this little box guy.
I stripped it down.
Ooh, kinky. I would prefer the actual computer over this. Let's say our God and our King, I knew every insight before I got into computers. Then you have multiple parts, so if you upgrade, you can sell parts.
That's more effort, more learning, less convenient.
This is nice, but this isn't nice for $1,300.
Now, did we complete our goal? Our goal of making a Steam Machine, but not a Steam Machine. Making it cheaper, making it more powerful, more capable, having great upgradability, I/O that actually makes sense for a PC. I think we accomplished those. For most things, it's still using SteamOS. For the most part, it has all the exact same capabilities as the Steam Machine, except for a couple things, which is HDMI CEC, so it can't tell your TV to turn on with it. There are apparently some adapters out there that might be able to fix something like this. I haven't tried that kind of stuff. And you also can't turn on the PC, the Steam Machine Killer, with the controller, like from fully shut off. You can if it's asleep, you can wake it up with the controller, but you can't fully turn it off. And you do make some compromises. It's a bit louder in the Steam Machine, it's not as finely engineered. It's a lot larger in the Steam Machine as well. So if you really are after something small and super quiet, and you're willing to trade off massive hits on performance, and I guess having some more easier convenience aspects to the Steam Machine, then it could make more sense. Me personally, I would be going with this cheaper, more powerful Steam Machine Killer. I would personally, even though, yeah, this case isn't very traditional in the way that it's built. I actually like this case a lot, and I would have built in this if this was like my PC. And I did want to just comment on SteamOS as an operating system. So it's a little bit iffy right now because it doesn't really support everything out there. You have to have an AMD GPU. But overall, I think SteamOS it's pretty good. It's relatively fluid to use. It has some weird aspects to it that are also some safety features as well. But it's immutable, so you can't install programs at the system level. So technically you can install programs there, but every time you get a system update, it's going to wipe all the system level config files. So you have to install programs in a certain way with flat packs and stuff. I'm not going to get into all the nerdy shit, but it's a little bit less tinkerable, but it also puts safeguards on it that your system isn't going to just destroy itself. Which I think it's a pretty good thing, especially for someone who just wants to play games on their PC. And that's really what SteamOS does. Like, you can just install this and you're right into your game library. It is so smooth and so easy, especially compared to something like Windows. And you do run into bugs. It isn't exactly the easiest thing all the time. And you do run into issues too with anti-cheat. So that's just Linux problems. So I do want to ask though, should Valve have subsidized the Steam Machine? Because at the price point of over $1,000, the Steam Machine, it's hard to justify. You know, it's pretty niche, and I think that's at this point, Valve's kind of okay with it being niche because I bet they can't even make that many. So they almost don't want too many people to want to buy it. But I think it's also sad reality that's the case. Like, they just launched another console, and it's not going to make this massive wave. If Valve had subsidized the Steam Machine, if this device, we're thinking Fantasyland where they would be able to make as many as they would need to. If this was like $700, this console would be pretty solid. And it seems like behind the scenes, that's the price that they're actually trying to target. Or if you're after just a console experience, then why don't you just buy a PlayStation at that point? The thing that Valve argued though with the Steam Machine, if they subsidize it, then it would undercut a lot of other PCs out there. And I think that's kind of a fair assessment. And I know throughout this video, I've been kind of clowning on it quite a bit. I do like the Steam Machine. It's just, would I buy it myself if I didn't make freaking YouTube videos? I don't think so. I will be leaving all the parts that we use for the Steam Machine Killer below. Yeah, GPU prices might go up again, and if you would want to build something like this, I'd probably build it now. I'm just being honest. I do want to thank Power Color for sending out a GPU. I didn't end up using the original one because, well, it was a little bit more expensive. And huge shout out to Fantic for making a video like this even possible. Like, obviously, go check out the vacuum and the blower. They're very, very nice tools to have on hand, especially with all the gamer gunk that's out there. But as well, check out the E2 Ultra screwdriver. I like that one a lot. I use it all the freaking time. I even use the S2 Pro screwdriver as well, like throughout this entire video, you've seen it. So let me know what you think about the Steam Machine Killer. Would you build something like this, or is it just too big? Did I prove all those YouTubers wrong? Anyways, I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Hope you all have a good one, and peace. Right, Tommy? You like handle? Can you lift it up?
Your new king. The heavens, the earth, and the netherworld shall have one ultimate ruler.
Whenever the universe faces a severe threat, Lord Vishnu has taken an avatar in order to protect it.
My firstborn, Ram.
I would gladly sacrifice my life for the welfare of the world. It is my duty to uphold my father's word, Mother Kaikai.
For you, 14 years of exile.
On the day of our wedding, we made vows to one another. Our fates are now forever intertwined, and whatever lies before us, I shall accept.
Princess of Janasthan, Surpanakha.
I promise Ram will pay for what he did to you, Surpanakha. Not only will Ram's death be agonizing, so will his humiliation.
If Ravan is the ruler of all three realms, then all three realms shall witness his death. I will bring back my Sita. Of Ram begins.
The story begins on just another ordinary day, and our Prota, whose name is Now, asks someone if the money for the month was enough, and the person on the other end says yes. After getting ready, he rushes out of the house and lets them know over the phone that he is already on his way to work. Now arrives at his destination and rings the doorbell of one of the neighborhood houses. An elderly woman answers and asks who it is, immediately spotting the Eitoku pharmaceutical business card. He introduces himself with a big smile, saying he is from the company's sales department. The woman gets furious right away and complains about being bothered by yet another salesman. She complains that they are always trying to push products on her and says she will only buy if he helps her with her groceries. Now accepts the deal right away and asks with great enthusiasm what she needs. Surprised by his goodwill, the lady replies that she just needs a little milk. Without wasting any time, the young man runs off, shouting that he will take care of it right now. The homemaker stands frozen at the door, completely amazed by his quick reaction. She yells after him to get the cheapest one, and Now promptly replies that he will. Shortly after, a carton of milk is already sitting on her kitchen table. She comments that he is a very straightforward and honest young man, and Now laughs, saying he hears that all the time. The lady confesses that she does not trust supplements and asks if he also takes the products he sells. With a curious tone, she asks if those pills actually work. Now gets visibly embarrassed, and she remarks that he is too honest for his own good. The scene shifts to the main building of the pharmaceutical company where he works. Now's boss reprimands him in the office, saying that nobody closes deals by being nice, and the young man apologizes. The boss claims he is not cut out for sales and suggests he should simply resign. Now lowers his head, feeling an overwhelming weight and sadness from those harsh words. He remembers his father hospitalized in critical condition, surrounded by his crying family. The medical monitors beeped non-stop, showing his father's weak vital signs. Now and his brother were suffering deeply from the tough situation their family was in. It was at that moment that he promised himself he would step up in his father's place to support everyone. He begs his boss to let him keep working, promising to visit 1,000 houses a day if needed. The boss sighs and decides to send the young man to handle a customer complaint in his place. Relieved and excited for the new chance, Nao accepts the task right on the spot. He runs out of the office all hyped up to fulfill his mission. Another employee questions the boss's decision, since that customer is dangerous and violent. The boss looks out the window and says he did it on purpose just to see if the young man has any talent. Now arrives at the customer's house, rings the doorbell, and bows deeply while apologizing profusely.
He begins to introduce himself as an employee of the company, but the resident glares at him with pure hatred. The man attacks Now with a knife to the chest, screaming in anger about that terrible health supplement. Now spits blood, while the attacker shouts that his wife's condition did not improve at all. The young man falls wounded onto the entryway floor, noticing several empty medicine packages scattered across the house. He looks inside and realizes with horror that the man's wife has already passed away a while ago. Now's business card drops to the floor, stained with blood amid the tragic scene. Meanwhile, that elderly woman from earlier talks on the phone, saying she knows those products do not work. She continues, saying Now works so hard that it makes her want to buy just to help him out. The woman says she will praise him when he returns, unaware that the young man is already gone on the stairs. A system screen appears out of nowhere in the air, confirming Now's passing and calculating his achievements. The system announces that his life rank is only 1 star and begins distributing exclusive weapons. He receives a pair of shoes called 1000 Visit Shoes as a life completion bonus. Now wakes up, startled and in a cold sweat from that whole bizarre situation. He gets up extremely confused, looking around without being able to understand where he is. His eyes go wide with shock at what he sees ahead. The glowing panel announces that the matching of 10 players was successfully completed. He realizes he is in the middle of a colorful amusement park with other people. Now touches his chest as he remembers he had just been stabbed by a customer. The young man notices his clothes are intact and the terrible wound has vanished from his body. A muscular man in a bandana asks if he died too, and Now replies that he probably did. The guy explains that everyone there passed away and they are in the afterlife, leaving the girl beside him surprised. Now grieves deeply and can hardly believe he was taken out by one of his own customers. He starts worrying intensely about his mother, thinking about the immense sorrow she will feel. Suddenly, a new person's legs begin to materialize right in front of him. The man in the bandana notices the skinny newcomer and wonders if it is a girl. A blonde guy with long hair fully appears in the middle of that bluish glow. The young blonde looks around terrified and asks softly where he is. The brute complains that another useless guy showed up, while Now tries to be friendly. The blonde trembles so much from fear that Now does not quite know how to react. Now tries to calm him down and explains that this strange place seems to be the afterlife. Always very polite, Now bows to hand over his card and introduces himself as Tsurugi, while the blonde says his name is Tateshi. Now notices the hand of his new companion and compliments the very cool lighter he is holding. He asks if the guy smokes while looking at the handsome gold lighter with carved wings. Tateshi gets quite bashful at the question and hesitates before answering. New blue screens pop up in the air, announcing that everyone has arrived and the tutorial quest is about to begin. Now gets confused and remarks that this transition makes the afterlife feel a lot like a video game. The screen outlines that they need to defeat the Park King within 1 hour to be able to return to the living world. The alert stresses that if all 10 people in the group are defeated, it will be complete failure. Now realizes he has a shot at coming back to life, but gets terrified by the actual danger of being eliminated. Looking at the dark scenery of the park, he feels he has entered a true survival game. Out of nowhere, a giant plush bunny drops down from above carrying a huge colorful hammer. Now goes into total panic upon seeing the creature plummeting right toward them. In this moment of peril, the young man's new shoes start emitting a mysterious blue flame. He grabs Tateshi and manages to dodge the devastating blow that blows up the ground right behind them. The other survivors scream and stand in shock from the violent impact of the monster. Frightened, the players look at the size of the weapon and question what kind of rabbit that is. The giant bunny with a star design on its face glares at the humans in a threatening way. Now sets his friend down on the floor, tells them to run immediately, and celebrates dodging the attack. He realizes that the extraordinary speed he used came directly from his new shoes. The young man recalls that the system panel had classified that item as his exclusive weapon. Now screams in desperation to his companion, warning that the monster is charging at them again. Tateshi figures out that if the shoes are a weapon, Now needs to use them to attack the enemy. Determined, Now builds momentum and leaps high up, believing he can take down the opponent. He lands a kick right on top of the bunny's head, but deals only 1 point of damage. The young man realizes with dread that his strongest hit barely tickled the giant monster. Without losing time, the creature counterattacks with an extremely violent hammer swing. Now is struck head-on in midair by the crushing impact and spits blood from the force of the hit. The young man's body is launched against the floor of the amusement park in a brutal manner. He lies stretched out on the ground, completely defenseless and heavily injured after the fall. The giant bunny slowly approaches and raises its enormous hammer right above the fallen young man. Lying on the floor, Now cries out in despair, thinking it is all over, and a tiny flame sparks right in front of him. Tateshi lights his special lighter, producing a surprisingly large and bright blaze. The rabbit monster is engulfed in intense flames and starts screaming in pain amidst the fire. Now looks up in terror as he hears the giant creature's agonized shrieks. The massive bunny burns completely and turns into ashes right before Tateshi, who stays totally calm. The blonde young man observes the lighter in his hand, appearing surprised by the result of his attack. Right after, a system message alerts that Tateshi earned his first experience point. Now and the other survivors who watch the whole thing are left completely speechless from sheer surprise. With great simplicity, the blonde guy looks at the group and asks if he went a bit overboard. The buff guy runs up to him excited and asks where he got that fantastic lighter. Tateshi explains it must be his life bonus, and that the weapon simply appeared when he wished for one. Now finally understands that his new companion's lighter was also his exclusive weapon. He just does not get why their attack power is so different as more bunnies start showing up. Suddenly the man in the bandana shouts a warning that more monsters are heading their way. The man and the girl show off their new weapons with excitement and say they can fight now too. Now tries to warn them that the power of each weapon is different and that rushing in blindly is very dangerous. However, the two defeat the new enemies with just a single simple strike and gain experience. Now feels upset and wonders why only his attack dealt practically no damage. He notices that the buff guy's screwdriver is 3 stars and the girl's frying pan is 2 stars. Tateshi's fancy gold lighter, which caused all that destruction, is a 5-star. Now looks sadly at his 1-star shoe and tries to make sense of the difference between the weapons. He breaks into a cold sweat as he deduces the grim reality behind everyone's stats. The others notice his weapon is only 1 star and comment that he is super weak. Now gives an awkward smile as he realizes he was ranked as the worst survivor there. He remembers his modest past life and how everything was always a struggle for him to achieve. The young man accepts that even his passing and his afterlife bonuses were bottom tier. The system confirms once again that those simple 1-star shoes are his exclusive weapon. Now concludes, completely disheartened, that his own life was like a low-rarity gacha pull. Tateshi tries to comfort his companion, suggesting that low power might mean something else is high. The blonde points out that a glowing gear icon is sitting right in the corner of the young man's field of vision. He explains that all he has to do is tap that icon to view all his stats. Now touches the virtual button and watches a blue holographic screen pop up right before his eyes. The screen displays character information, showing very unbalanced level 1 stats. He almost falls backward upon seeing that his attack power is literally just 1 point. However, the young man notices that his speed and jump are maxed out, indicating high agility. The man in the bandana suggests they share their stats and shows that his rank is 3 stars. Now looks at his companion's screen and becomes thoroughly discouraged again by the comparison. The girl reveals her 2-star stats and complains that they are pretty lame and disappointing. Curious, the man in the bandana turns to Now and asks what 1-star stats look like. Now hides his face out of sheer shame, while Tateshi tries to comfort his friend kindly. The muscular man notices the young man's embarrassment and gets the picture without needing an answer. Out of nowhere, another giant bunny creeps up behind the muscular man, who reacts quickly to the ambush. With great agility, the man spins his body and strikes the monster hard, sending it flying away. The panel alerts that he leveled up to level 2, and he feels super pleased with the quick progress. A new message reveals he received 500,000 yen as a reward, leaving him astonished. To everyone's shock, a literal rain of cash bills begins falling from the sky. Now watches the floating fortune drop without being able to believe what he is seeing. Super hyped by the situation, the girl stretches her arms out and screams with joy at the sight of the money, but she tries to snatch her companion's bills and ends up getting a painful electric shock. The system displays a clear warning warning that stealing someone else's rewards is strictly forbidden. The girl is shocked to find out that they earn actual yen when they level up. Toyota reveals he was run over while fleeing loan sharks, and that this cash can be used in the real world. He remembers getting hit by a truck during his escape, while the tutorial timer keeps ticking down. The Brood explains that returning to life broke would make zero sense for him. Hearing that revelation, the young woman admits she also really wants to make bank. With that, the group of survivors begins grinding monsters relentlessly to level up. Now takes on the role of decoy to help the others without getting in the way, but things start getting dicey. He looks back and catches the silhouette of a rabbit watching him from the top of an attraction. The monster rushes forward to strike, but the young man manages to dodge with a nimble jump. Another giant bunny pops up out of nowhere right behind him, opening its massive mouth to bite him. He freezes completely in fear, realizing that getting hit is unavoidable. Now screams in panic, and Tateshi charges toward him, promising to save him right away. To everyone's surprise, Now desperately begs Tateshi not to defeat the monster. Toyota and the girl complain that the blonde guy is already strong and should leave the experience points for those who need them more. Cornered and feeling super guilty over their complaints, Tateshi hesitates, not knowing what to say. Now ends up getting hit hard by the rabbit for hesitating right when he was about to be saved. After the fight, the group continues walking through the huge, quiet amusement park. Toyota asks if they have already cleared all the enemies in the area, while the girl criticizes him for being too slow. Now walks with a bandage on his forehead, and Tateshi accompanies him with a bummed out look. The young blonde apologizes for not helping him sooner, but Now insists the fault lies in his own weakness. Tateshi disagrees, and points out that Now was the first to stand up and fight bravely when everyone else panicked. He recalls the courageous leap the young man made right at the start to try and defeat the monster. Moved, the young blonde confesses that he considers Now the strongest person in that whole group. Now gets quite surprised and self-conscious upon hearing that genuine compliment from his companion. Blushing with embarrassment, he smiles shyly and asks if he really thinks that way about his actions. While chatting, the other survivors wonder when they will manage to clear the tutorial once and for all. With only half an hour left on the clock, they are startled by a strange sound echoing from afar. The two go on high alert and feel a chill as the atmosphere in the area suddenly changes. Out of nowhere, a massive, brightly lit parade emerges in the middle of the park with tons of fireworks. Dozens of plush bunnies are scattered all over the glowing float of that weird attraction. The young man observes that bizarre scene from a distance and wonders if it is some kind of victory parade. The players watch the floats passing by and are dazzled by the beauty of the lights. Atop the highest float stands a colossal rabbit wearing a shiny king's crown. Toyota looks up and immediately concludes that the giant rabbit with the crown has to be the stage boss. The girl gets super pumped, thinking about the insane amount of experience the monster will give whoever takes it down. The two look at each other in silence, consumed by greed to score valuable coins and rewards. Without hesitation, Toyota charges forward to try and kill the boss, while the young woman screams that she is coming too. The brute thinks that taking down the boss will guarantee a level up and way more cash than before. The massive creature raises its star staff, which begins charging terrifying blue lightning bolts. A colossal beam of electrical energy shoots down from above, hitting the area with extreme violence. Now and Tateshi watch the impact of that power with expressions of pure horror and disbelief. One of the survivors who rushed ahead is completely vaporized into ashes by the brutal discharge. Another unlucky guy screams in agony as his body burns under the relentless force of the electricity. The system alerts that the group now has only 9 members left due to the first loss of a companion. Now screams at the top of his lungs for the rest to run away immediately. The Rabbit King brings its massive staff down toward the ground to unleash another fatal attack. Once again lightning quick, the young man rushes forward and grabs Tateshi to pull him out of harm's way. The violent shockwave sends both of them flying, making the young man let out a groan of pain as he hits the ground. He tries to get up to say he is fine, but freezes in horror when he looks at his friend in his arms. Now holds Tateshi in terror, while in the background several charred bodies of the other players lie lifeless. The system screen updates, showing that now only 6 out of 10 survivors remain. Another player in a black cap screams in terror as more devastating lightning strikes fall around them. Now orders Tateshi not to go over there, but the blonde guy asks worriedly what he plans to do. With a brave smile, Now states that he is heading over there to save the other survivors. Tateshi watches him in shock, unable to comprehend such courage at a moment like that. He charges quickly toward the girl, even though he secretly admits he was just pretending to be tough. He thinks with regret that he should have just accepted his place as a weak player. The young woman cries hysterically while clutching her frying pan, as Now sprints to reach her before the monster does. The colossal Rabbit King once again charges its terrifying and deadly electric attack. The girl watches the blinding light coming closer and screams in panic, thinking she is going to die. But Now leaps with everything he has to try to shove her out of the way of the fatal beam. He realizes that his own body moves on its own to help others, driven by his feelings. He remembers the terrible accident that left his father in a coma at the hospital for so long. He also recalls the humiliations at work and how he had always led a life deemed insignificant. Tateshi watches him from afar, touched by the determination and kindness shown by his companion. Now reaches out his arm in desperation, thinking about how heartbreaking his whole life journey had been. With tears in his eyes, he lets out a choked scream of pure frustration and despair. The massive lightning bolt strikes the area with a deafening roar, making the girl scream in terror. Tateshi mourns as he watches the scene, knowing that willpower alone is not enough to win here. The terrible Rabbit King continues to charge its staff with relentless electrical discharges. The creature aims its powerful blue staff straight at the fleeing girl. Desperate and crying heavily, she runs for her life, knowing she has no way to escape on her own. Now refuses to give up and shouts with determination that the fight is not over yet. The young man courageously places himself right in front of the giant boss and its entire monster army. He screams in rage at the giant rabbit that he hasn't lost yet and that he will prove the value of his life. Now runs at full speed to draw the creature's attention and serve as a target. He reveals he figured out a secret about the monster's terrible and destructive attack. He notices that the beam only travels in a straight line, so he can dodge it by switching directions. The young man begins counting the seconds in his head while dodging with agility. He reaches the 3rd second and focuses all his attention on the opponent's behavior. He realizes that after firing, the boss needs a 3-second cooldown, creating the perfect window to strike. Tateshi and the girl watch the whole thing in awe, praising the young man's brains and guts. However, the blonde guy's expression quickly changes, tensing up over a crucial detail. Now's status screen pops up once more, showing his frail combat stats. He knows full well that his stats are too low to take down the enemy alone. He secretly laments that he lacks the attack power needed to deliver the finishing blow. The young man turns around and locks his eyes on his only 2 surviving teammates. He understands that the only way for everyone to make it out alive is by teaming up in battle. He desperately begs for their help so they can fight the boss together. Now offers to carry them at high speed right up to the Rabbit King so they can land their hits. He warns that everyone will die if they stay still, and promises he will use his speed to protect them. The girl screams in tears that he is just a weak 1-star who cannot defeat anyone. Now is left completely speechless and stunned upon hearing those harsh words from her. She complains that her own life was only 2 stars, and that she had already accepted her bad luck. She recalls her rough childhood with terrible parents and the toxic relationship with her ex. The young woman falls to her knees, sobbing heavily, venting all her built-up frustration. She yells that she refuses to trust her life to someone even unluckier than her, just to avoid suffering more. Facing the girl's refusal, Tateshi looks at his 5-star lighter and makes a decision. He stands up firmly and states that he will make up for Now's bad luck with the power of his 5-star weapon. The blonde entrusts the lead of the attack to the young man, while a strange contract-sealed message appears on the screen. From a distance, the brightly lit carousel ride houses the Rabbit King and its minions. Now carries Tateshi on his back, getting ready to execute the attack plan. The young man warns that he will charge right after the enemy's next blast, and the blonde confirms he understands. The colossal Rabbit King charges its staff once more with destructive lightning. Now focuses and supports his companion's weight on his back, setting his stance to dash. As soon as the monster fires the lightning, Now sprints at top speed, carrying his friend along. Tateshi shouts a warning about enemies in the path, but now assures him it is all good. He uses his agility to kick the bunnies along the route, dealing only 1 point of damage. He takes advantage of the situation to use the monster's own heads as platforms to leap from. He realizes that his low attack power is actually ideal for not killing them and using them as footholds. He takes a massive leap and reaches the top of the attraction, coming face to face with the boss. Tateshi readies himself and sparks the gold lighter right toward the massive creature. An enormous burst of fire consumes the Rabbit King in a devastating blast. The blonde young man holds his lighter up in victory as the dust and fire begin to settle. The system panel confirms that Tateshi defeated the boss and earned 100 experience points. The screen alerts that the quest was completed and that they will return to the real world in 3 minutes. Now stares at the notification in shock, unable to believe they actually won the quest. Suddenly, he notices that the wound on his body has fully healed and is amazed. He deduces that clearing the quest heals all injuries and happily thinks of his other companions. But when he looks at the ground, he sees only the charred, lifeless bodies of Toyota and the other guy. The young man is deeply shaken as he realizes the tragic fate of his squad mates. To his relief, the surviving girl comes running toward him, shouting his name. She mentions they were the only survivors and eagerly asks about the results of Nao's gacha pull. The young man gets totally confused by the term, not understanding what she is referring to. A new blue system screen floats into view, displaying an exclusive gacha machine. Without hesitating much, the young man taps the virtual button to roll his pull. As the gacha spins, he still wonders if the people who died were also saved. The system reveals he pulled another pair of the 1-star shoes and triggers a limit break. The young man feels totally frustrated upon realizing he drew a duplicate item from the pull. However, the panel displays that the limit break dramatically boosted all his stats. His eyes light up in surprise as he notices the massive bonus his stats received. He sees that his strength rose to 6, and his agility stats reached an incredible 15 points. The young woman claps excitedly and remarks that the limit break made his stats skyrocket. She happily reveals she won 1 million yen, leaving the young man jaw-dropped in astonishment. She hugs the young man out of nowhere, saying in a sweet tone that this is definitely destiny. The young woman asks if he wants to date her when they go back, leaving Nao pretty confused. The young man notices that the girl's attitude and vibe completely did a 180. He awkwardly tries to change the subject while glancing at the charred body of their companion nearby. Suddenly, he feels a chill and widens his eyes as he notices something very wrong happening. In a split second, the girl is struck head-on by a powerful burst of fire. She screams in agony as her body is reduced to ashes right in front of Nao. Tateshi appears right behind him with his lighter lit, saying they only have 3 minutes to chat. Nao asks in horror why he did that, while the blonde calmly taps away at his panel. He formally introduces himself as Tateshi Yume while changing his default outfit into a special skin. The guy explains with a smile that he equipped a custom game skin, though he admits now is probably not the time. He reveals to the shocked Prota that he is actually no newbie player in this world. He explains he entered that low-level zone to recruit promising new talents and ended up finding Nao. The blonde wraps his arm around the young man from behind possessively and asks if he has any questions about what happened. Trembling in terror, Nao asks him point blank why he just cold-bloodedly wiped out the girl. With a cryptic and creepy smile, Tateshi whispers in his ear that it was merely a selection process. He justifies it by saying that girl had higher stars than Nao, but was completely useless. He explains that, unlike system data, you cannot judge someone's true capability based on rarity alone. Nao feels disgusted by the blonde's coldness, while Tateshi compliments him, saying he showed the power and wisdom to guide the squad. Tateshi leans in close, staring at him with a piercing and unsettlingly calm gaze. Outraged, Nao asks why he would do such a thing, while the blonde raises his arm with total indifference. Without warning, Tateshi shoves the Prota hard backward, sending him tumbling down. The blonde calmly sits on the royal throne while Nao angrily asks the reason behind all of this. He fires back, saying he has zero patience for babysitting weak, useless players. With a smug grin, he shows off his precious 5-star gold lighter. Nao glares at him with immense rage and outrage, still unable to believe such cruelty. But the blonde chuckles and says the whole thing was just a bad joke and poor taste. He explains that provoking him and taking down the girl was just meant to make him mad and push his combat limits. The system screen glows, alerting that they will return to the real world in under 3 minutes. The blonde admits he hopes to fight Nao with actual intent to kill during these remaining minutes. He challenges Nao to test out the real performance of his new limit-broken shoes. He even promises to become the young man's mentor if they manage to make it back to the real world alive. With a stern and firm look, Nao rejects the abusive offer without thinking twice. The blonde gives a sinister smile and replies that he has never failed to get whatever he wanted. He proudly states that it is because he is an elite 5-star player. The tutorial timer hits exactly 3 minutes, kicking off the final survival test. The opponent challenges the young man to try and survive his attacks for the rest of the time. A colossal fire serpent is summoned and lunges fiercely toward Nao. He repeats mockingly that if the young man survives, he will have the honor of becoming his disciple. Nao ignores the provocation and locks his attention completely on the floating screen's timer. The time starts counting down fast to 2 minutes and 59 seconds. He spots the rapid approach of the flame serpent and prepares to dodge the strike. With absolute focus, the young man calculates the exact instant to move to avoid getting hit. Out of nowhere, the massive fire creature opens its jaws right in front of him. Nao's shoe emits a bright blue flame as he pushes off the ground with a powerful leap. He moves with scary agility, leaving only a blue trail behind. He notices the attack is slower than the boss's lightning bolts and feels his body is amazingly light. The young man realizes that his shoe's limit break really did make his stats go through the roof. He is amazed upon noticing the true potential and ridiculous speed of that gear upgrade. The blonde remarks that the young man is moving way better than when he was alive. He explains that the serpents move at the boss's speed and that Nao simply got much faster. The blonde drops annoying taunts about the fight and Nao seriously calls out his behavior. With a dark glare, the blonde claims with disdain that useless players have no right to refuse anything. Nao keeps his composure, focusing purely on dodging every single threat around him. The opponent charges fiercely across the arena, launching more waves of fire at the young man. He says sadistically that Nao better manage to dodge absolutely every single attack. Nao pulls off insane acrobatic flips in midair to escape the fiery blazes. But as he touches down, the young man realizes with dread that the number of serpents has increased. The flame creatures start chasing him down and seem to be getting faster and faster. Nao uses all his agility to zigzag and throw off the fire monsters. He sprints toward a wall to try and use the wall bounce momentum to dodge. One of the serpents crashes violently against the structure, missing the young man by a hair. He keeps his eyes wide open, calculating every millisecond with surgical precision. The young man leaps right into the middle of the fiery vortex to break out of the serpent's trap. However, he notices with horror that the opponent is already waiting to strike him on his way down. Yume watches him from the ground with a cruel smile, while Nao desperately tries to find an exit. Nao finds himself trapped in Tateshi's giant hand, feeling the immense pressure of his power. He tries to withstand the terrible fury of the flames threatening to completely consume him. The young man gets extremely annoyed and asks if his opponent is messing with him. He angrily questions if that is really how a 5-star player is supposed to act. With a swift kick, he kicks away the blonde's taunts about becoming his master. He screams at the top of his lungs that Tateshi is nothing more than a coward who preys on rookie players. The opponent just gives a smug smirk and gives a thumbs up, throwing around gaming slang. Annoyed and exhausted, Nao tells him to talk normally, and the blonde laughingly explains it is just gamer lingo. He mockingly teaches that combat weapons can also double as great defensive shields. Nao angrily complains that he should have mentioned that defense mechanic way earlier. Tateshi says that if he died there, he would be useless, and Nao fires back that he would never accept a killer as a master. The blonde fixes the young man with a sharp glare, showing he has no intent to go easy in this fight. Nao curses his opponent internally, knowing the guy intends to force this bizarre scenario no matter what. The villain coldly warns that if he refuses, he will die right there, just like the other weak players. Nao tense up as he realizes this guy's behavior is identical to that of a dangerous final boss. Tateshi readies his gold old lighter and mockingly asks how he plans to dodge all the attacks now. A massive rain of fiery blazes begins crashing down from the sky toward the young man. The ground explodes in a massive wave of heat and destructive flames from the force of the impact. Giant glowing wings of fire spread around Tateshi, lighting up the entire scene. His golden eyes glow intensely, reflecting the ruthless cruelty of his actions. A massive burst of golden energy sweeps across the amusement park entirely. The shockwave is so powerful that it destroys the metal structures of nearby rides. Floating with his majestic fire wings, the villain watches the destruction while now tries to hold his ground. The Prota screams in rage that it is impossible to block everything with 1-star stats. With a cynical smile, the blonde says game over for now, throwing out a common gaming abbreviation for defeat. In the final second left on the timer, now charges forward with everything he has to try to land a hit on the enemy. The young man niches his teeth and launches himself at his opponent, determined to give it his all until the very end. Suddenly, the timer hits 0, and now wakes up in his office landing a punch right on his boss's shocked face. The young man stares at the boss lying on the floor, completely clueless as to what he just did. Everyone in the room stares at him in terror, whispering about the sudden assault on the manager. Desperate, the boss begs for forgiveness on his knees, apologizing for sending him out while knowing about the dangerous customer. Now stands frozen in shock upon hearing the boss talk about a knife attack. He finds out that the unhinged customer actually tried to stab him and ended up arrested by the police. The manager cries and begs on his knees for the young man not to tell the board the truth about what happened. Now starts processing recent events with intense seriousness in his eyes. He questions whether that entire terrifying near-death experience was just a vivid dream. However, the system's floating gear icon glows right before his eyes, proving otherwise. The young man points into the air, but the confused manager says he is just a cog in the corporate machine. Now taps the virtual button and confirms that all that afterlife madness is very real. The panel reveals he is a rookie and displays the remaining time for his next mandatory daily quest. He worries if he will have to face those lethal challenges every single day from now on. The image of the colossal rabbit king on its dark throne flashes through his mind. Suddenly, he notices a new alert flashing in the bottom corner of the holographic panel. A list of player names pops up beside a friend request sent by Yume Tateshi. Now recognizes the squad's names and wonders if, because he cleared the tutorial, they were resurrected too. He tries clicking the contacts to establish a line, but gets no response from the system. The young man decides to use his cell phone to look up information about his squad mates on the internet. He goes into shock reading a news report revealing that Erika Kawasaki was violently taken out by her ex. Other news articles confirm the passing of Taro Toyota in a hit and run and Saburo Suzuki in a car crash. Heart in hand, Nayo realizes that every single member of his group passed away over the last week. Nayo looks at the list of names of those who died in the real world, except for one single person who is still alive. A coworker bursts into the room in a panic, shouting that a huge emergency just happened. The employee explains that they received a massive order and want to buy out the entire warehouse stock. The manager yells, asking who the buyer is, since those lousy supplements are basically just placebos. The employee reveals the buyer's name is Tateshi, and he demanded Nao be the salesman in charge. Nao remembers handing his business card to Tateshi and deeply regrets it. The Prota decides on the spot that there is no way he is meeting up with this dangerous buyer. He wants no part in dealing with a guy who hunts rookies and gets a kick out of watching others suffer. The young man recalls his childhood, when people said his name carried the character for honesty, but he shakes his head, realizing things are not as simple as they seem. Facing Tateshi's friend request, Nao admits he cannot ignore what he saw in the tutorial. He knows Tateshi is a ruthless killer who tortures people and loves tormenting his victims. Despite all that absurd cruelty, there is an extremely problematic catch about him. The truth is, Tateshi is the strongest player, and now has less than 18 hours before the next quest. The Prota thinks of his own family in the hospital, and knows he cannot afford to die again. He remembers Tateshi saying he never fails to get what he wants, because he is a 5-star player. Nao knows that accepting the invite means falling right into the villain's trap. Going there means putting himself completely at the mercy of an extremely dangerous psychopath. The manager grabs Nao by the arms, begging him to go make the sale and become the company's top salesman. Meanwhile, under the full moon, Tateshi waits calmly in his luxury high-rise apartment overlooking the city skyline. He watches the system panel showing that the friend request sent to Nao is still pending. On the other side, the Prota keeps staring at that blue screen demanding an immediate response. The night silently progresses over the big city while the buildings keep their lights on. Nao walks down the dark streets, looking super tense and worried about the direction things are taking. He breaks into a cold sweat thinking about what the best call would be to ensure his survival. The young man recalls Tateshi's mockingly harsh words, stating that weaklings have no right to choose. Nao grips a door handle, trying to convince himself that everything will work out in the end. He takes a deep breath and turns the handle firmly to face whatever comes next. The young man opens the door and steps into the lit room, leaving the dark hallway behind. With a serious and determined look on his face, he prepares to tackle the situation head-on. Suddenly, a little girl with long hair breaks into a huge smile and lets out a joyful shout. She runs toward him, clutching a plush bunny, and welcomes her big brother back. Nao's heart melts on the spot, and he flashes a gentle, loving smile at his sister. He says he is back and notices Natsu's hair grew, but she replies she let it grow to sell it for extra cash. The young man tells her not to worry about finances, as he and mom would handle that, but remembers that was a few hours ago. The scene flashes back to the office a few hours earlier, when Nao picked up Tateshi's call in place of his boss. On the other end of the line, Tateshi says he wants a sample of the product brought to his place right now. To everyone's shock in the room, the Prota firmly tells the client not to buy the supplement. The villain gets pretty surprised and asks what he meant by that unexpected answer. Without offering further explanations, Nao hangs up the phone on Tateshi once and for all. He announces that his shift is over and decides to completely turn down the psychopath's invite. Knowing he might not survive the next mandatory quest, the young man made this call so he would have zero regrets. He visited his family to say goodbye and left all his important papers and insurance policies safely stored for them. Catching a nice aroma coming from the kitchen, he happily remarks that it smells like his favorite curry. Usually, their meal is pretty basic, just onions and the usual simple recipe. However, the little girl excitedly reveals that today's menu is special, and they will have high-grade beef curry to celebrate. Fancy Beef finally joins the onions in the pot to create the best possible feast for the family. Nao is surprised and asks if it isn't overkill to throw a party just because he decided to come home, but his little sister says with a cheeky face that the company's #1 salesman must be making tons of money. Hearing that, the young man is left speechlessly stunned, realizing the size of the misunderstanding he created at home. Nao tenses up and asks who she heard that rumor from about him being the top salesman. Right at that moment, Tateshi pops out from behind a beaded curtain with a cynical smile. The villain watches from afar as Nao interacts with his little sister inside the house. Tateshi mockingly says he already feels right at home and calls the Prota his best friend. The young man freezes completely in hatred and shock upon seeing the killer inside his home. Nao loses his cool and charges forward furiously, grabbing Tateshi's collar to confront him. Seeing that violent reaction, little Natsu gets confused and calls out for her big brother. Nao angrily whispers for him not to involve his family, but Tateshi reminds him that weaklings have no right to choose. The young man fires back that is only in the game and threatens to take him out right there before the next daily quest. The villain finds the threat amusing, but quickly cuts the Prota's mood short with a serious warning. He whispers that saying that out loud in front of other players instantly gives away that he is just a naive rookie. Tateshi explains that they can now only die for real inside the survival game's world itself. That happens because any death occurring in the real world gets patched by the system as if it were just a glitch. The blonde warns that if Nao really wants to protect his family from any real danger, he needs to channel all his strength purely into trying to eliminate him when they are inside the game. Otherwise, the villain leaves a terrifying threat hanging in the air regarding what could happen to the people around him. He sadistically asks if Nao wants to test how the system would react if he hurt his dear family. Natsu grows curious about all that closeness and asks what the two were whispering about so much. Nao quickly pulls back from the villain to hide the tension situation and tries to smooth things over. The Proto fakes a cheerful smile and lies, saying it is just confidential work business. The little girl makes a suspicious pout, but accepts her big brother's silly excuse. On the living room TV, the news reports that a dangerous fugitive on the run is still at large in the area. Meanwhile, Nao's mom washes the dishes in the kitchen while listening to news about the suspect's unknown whereabouts. Mom talks nervously about the killer, and Tateshi, helpful, jokingly suggests they stay at his place to stay safe. Mom finds it funny and praises the young man's good humor, leaving Nao with a super annoyed look on his face. She insists on finishing the dishes herself and suggests the two young men go relax together at a local bathhouse. The blonde loves the idea and enthusiastically invites Nao to go take a dip together. The Proto is fuming mad at his rival's nerve, but has no way to turn down the situation. Tateshi remarks that taking a bath together is the ultimate negotiation tactic and asks if Nao doesn't want that too. He notices the villain is enjoying his discomfort and swears to himself that things won't be easy for that 5-star. So, Nao fakes friendliness and accepts the invite, asking sarcastically if they are going to scrub each other's backs. To the Proto's total surprise and dismay, the blonde responds with complete sincerity that yes, he wants to do exactly that. The blonde drags the young man out while Mom notices in surprise that her sweet son is dropping cuss words. Soon the two arrive at the neighborhood's traditional public bathhouse under the starry sky. They walk past the door marked for the men's section and prepare to enter the hot water. The two settle into the large thermal tub beneath the beautiful painting of Mount Fuji on the wall. Out of patience for beat around the bush talk, Nao gets straight to the point and asks what the villain actually wants from him. Tateshi says his wish already came true, since he just wanted to see what kind of life a mere 1-star rookie who managed to survive leads. He adds dismissively that, for a weakling with such a sweet family, whoever picked him for the game must have terrible taste, but he quickly changes his mind and says he would make the same pick, leaving the young man super intrigued and suspicious of the weird compliment. Suddenly the villain touches on a sensitive topic and asks if Nao still remembers that 2-star girl he burned down. The panel shows Erika Kawasaki's tragic backstory, suffering at the hands of terrible parents and a lousy boyfriend. The villain explains that she blamed the world for her misfortunes and thus used evil methods without hesitation just to try to survive. However, he fixes his piercing gaze on the Proto and claims Nao lacks the capability to act that selfishly. He brings up the hardships Nao faced having to work young to pay off his sick father's debts without ever complaining about his family. Tateshi points out that the young man's love for his family stops him from doing crazy stuff, forcing him to always play the good guy. The villain concludes that someone so nice with such a rough life is the absolute definition of an unlucky 1-star player. He questions if the young man is really going to risk his neck in the next quest and sarcastically suggests he become an apprentice killer. In a sudden move, the blonde gets even closer in the tub and gives a light slap on his companion's shoulder. Nao's mind travels back to the tragic day his father was violently struck by a drunk driver without a license. Nao remembers his father throwing himself in front of the car, using his own body to shield him and his little sister from the crash. The young man recalls the panic of holding his sister in his arms, while people around shouted for an ambulance. Worst of all was watching the drunk driver step out of the car, cussing out Nao's father and blaming the victim for the accident. But the man lost his nerve instantly upon seeing the look of pure murderous rage on young Nao's face. Without thinking twice, Nao flew at the driver with a devastating flying kick of pure hatred. The kick connected flush with the guy's face, letting out all the rage and pain of that tragic moment. Nao remained standing, staring down at the knocked out driver on the ground, while the other passenger in the car shook in terror. The young man's hatred was so overwhelming that he couldn't stop and wanted to finish those guys off for good. He ripped open the car door brutally to grab the other passenger, who screamed desperately for his life. Nao delivered another violent blow to the man to make sure he paid for what happened too. The young man kept beating the culprits without showing an ounce of mercy or hesitation. His rage was completely out of control, and the beatdown would only stop when nothing was left. He was covered in blood, looking like a literal monster consumed by the desire for revenge. Suddenly, his little sister's voice calling out for their dad in the middle of the chaos snapped Nao back to reality. The young man halted the attack instantly upon realizing what he was doing in front of his own family. He backed away from the car and collapsed exhausted, realizing he had almost turned into a cruel killer that day. Thanks to his sister's cries and presence, Nao managed to stop before it was too late and before he ruined his life. That painful memory still haunts the Proto's mind, even after all this time. Nao explains his father took on debts to help his employees during the crisis and that he himself avoided becoming a killer thanks to his sister. He stands up determined and says he prefers to keep doing what is right, even if it is the harder path. The Proto firmly warns that he will complete the daily quest on his own, without Tateshi's help. The villain watches Nao walk away and laughingly comments that his negotiation tactic at the bathhouse totally flopped. He admits to himself that he thought the young man would be stronger if he got mad, but he was mistaken. Tateshi remembers using his destructive powers in the tutorial while the Proto tried to take him on. He gives a faint smile, remembering the massive gap in power that exists between the two players. The villain compares that flying kick full of hatred from Nao's past to the weak skills he has now. He shakes his head laughing and enjoys the hot water while planning his next moves in the game. He playfully laments that he isn't at his own place, so he could act freely as he would like. Later, outside, Nao's mom friendly asks if Tateshi wants to spend the night at their place. Nao steps in right away and says his friend needs to leave because he has work commitments early the next morning. Tateshi says goodbye to Natsu in a super affectionate and charming way, waving at the little girl. However, little Natsu stares at the villain with a look of pure boredom and absolute suspicion. The blonde feels awkward upon realizing he was completely ignored by the girl's cuteness. He asks what he did to make the girl hate him, and Nao replies bluntly that he just gives off total creep vibes. As the two walk away chatting, Mom insists keep watching the guys from the doorway. Tateshi keeps that cryptic smile that hides his true sadistic intentions. His eyes glow with a dangerous intensity, showing he hasn't given up on Nao just yet. The Proto waves back, wishing him a good night while continuing to walk beside his worst enemy. Natsu squeezes her plush bunny against her chest and grumbles angrily, still annoyed by Tateshi's presence. Time passes, and the day dawns sunny and peaceful in Nao's family neighborhood. Nao's mom remarks with relief that the troublesome client who tried to attack him was finally caught by the police. She says he should get proper treatment, while Nao laughs nervously, remembering he almost got stabbed for real. He gazes at the invisible system panel and notices the deadline for the next mandatory quest is running out. With only 1 minute left before midnight, the virtual clock alerts to the imminent start of the challenge. The system updates the timer to the exact moment he will be transported to the game world. The villain had warned that they would hardly play together again due to the massive level gap between them. He revealed they were only in the tutorial together because he used a rare and expensive item that wouldn't be worth spending again. This means the new allies Nao will have to fight alongside in the next quest will be complete strangers. Nao will have to deal with the despair of ordinary people who will do anything to run away or survive death. Either way, all participants will be survivors who also manage to clear the terrible tutorial. He reflects that daily quests should be easy, as long as no completely insane player shows up. Nao's mom says she is happy he made it out alive from that situation and reminds him that life has ups and downs. She encourages him, saying he has always been a very honest boy and that he must keep moving forward with confidence. Nao gets quite touched by his mom's affection and cracks a nice smile of gratitude. The very next second, the timer hits 0 and he is instantly transported to a colorful dance floor. To Nao's absolute dismay, Tateshi pops up out of nowhere right behind him with a huge grin on his face. The Proto gets startled and tries to swing a punch at the blonde, but the villain dodges the hit with total ease. Nao shouts furiously because he already knew he would do that, but Tateshi mocks him, saying expensive items are like cheap candy to him. The villain warns that this time he won't lift a single finger to help and will wait for everyone else to be eliminated. He looks at the Proto with disdain and tells Nao to do whatever he wants in the arena. Suddenly, a beam of yellow light cuts through the air at high speed toward the Proto. A bald man with long hair appears swinging a dangerous knife attack, but Nao manages to dodge in the nick of time. The two quickly back away and prepare for the next move on that colorful dance floor. The criminal demands Nao stop dodging because he needs to gain experience points and steal his escape money. Now wipes a small bloody cut on his cheek and takes a good look at the attacker's face. The young man recognizes the man immediately and realizes he is the famous fugitive from the police who appeared on the TV news. He confirms the identity of the dangerous criminal while dodging another lethal knife slash. With a serious and focused look, now realizes he will have to fight with everything he has if he wants to survive this lunatic. The Proto looks around and is shocked to see several bodies of other players lying down, covered in blood. Tateshi praises the killer's quickness in taking down the others for experience, leaving the criminal pretty confused. The blonde cracks a weird smile and says he will turn the killer into his new disciple too. The criminal feels a chill down his spine and gets completely terrified by Tateshi's creepy presence. He can't understand what is happening, but his gut screams loud and clear that this blonde guy is extremely dangerous. Tateshi's aura is so terrifying that the killer realizes he doesn't stand a chance fighting him toe to toe. Tateshi says his other disciple is way too nice and wants the killer to be the perfect rival to make him grow. The panel reveals that the quest objective is to defeat the Disco King and that the group will fail if everyone is eliminated. The blonde finds the situation hilarious and tells the team to hurry up and take down the stage boss once and for all. The eccentric Disco King appears in the center of the floor doing dramatic and flashy dance poses. The fugitive killer gets confused by the monster's name, while Now approaches him with a locked-in look. The criminal ignores the game boss and decides to go after Now to try to get his experience at all costs. He charges with knife in hand, screaming that all the experience points in the stage belong solely to him. However, Nao dodges with mastery and lands a devastating counterkick that sends his rival airborne. The criminal spits spit and groans in pain, feeling the tremendous impact of the Proto's kick. Nao holds his opponent in midair with total ease and earns his first system experience points. With a dark and intimidating glare, Nao asks if he was the one who ended the lives of all the other players in the arena. The killer realizes Nao is also extremely dangerous and panics upon seeing his life is on the line. Desperate, he tries to lie, saying he didn't kill anyone and blames the stage monsters for the deaths. Nao doesn't flinch at the blatant lie and lands another powerful kick that slams the criminal into the ground. The Proto seizes the opening and executes a swift spin to keep up his relentless combo. At the same time, he takes the opportunity to defeat the boss's minions, stacking up even more experience points. He levels up and earns a sweet cash reward, telling the rival that he is the only one around holding a knife. The criminal realizes his lie was exposed and gnashes his teeth in pure frustration and pain. From afar, Tateshi watches the fight laughing and wonders if Nao has already realized what is about to happen. Nao keeps up his fight, clearing the dance floor and taking down more opponents with his accurate kicks. The villain notices that those minions Nao takes down so easily are the same level as the monster that beat him up before. The Proto suddenly halts his combat upon noticing a strange glow from a giant musical note above him. With a deafening boom, the colossal Disco King makes its grand entrance onto the battle arena. Nao reacts fast and readies himself to dodge any charge from the powerful giant boss. The monster executes a lethal spin choreography that creates devastating energy waves across the floor. After accumulating another 100 experience points, the system displays the panel confirming Nao leveled up to level 3. Upon defeating the boss, the system confirms Nao leveled up to level 4 and even scored an exclusive gacha ticket as a reward. He uses the ticket and gains another pair of shoes, automatically triggering a limit break to fuse the items. With this fusion, Nao's attack, defense, agility, and jump stats receive a massive system boost. The young man glows brightly as his 1,000-step shoes reach a tier of strength much higher than before. Tateshi explains that the survival rate of a 1-star rookie is under 1%, and whoever beats those odds has limitless growth. Nao just listens to the villain's words in silence, with a focused and very serious look. The Proto begins walking coldly toward the injured killer, who screams, begging him to wait a minute. The criminal cries, begging for his life, saying he has a family to care for, but Nao shows zero mercy. The young man gnashes his teeth and coldly replies that that is just a huge, ironic coincidence. He steps on the killer's head and relentlessly states that he also has a beloved family to protect. He harshly reminds him that all the innocent people that Monster killed in the arena also had families. The criminal widens his eyes in pure panic, realizing the Proto is about to end him without hesitation. Suddenly, Tateshi shows up behind Nao and mockingly asks if he didn't want to play the good guy. The blonde warns that little Natsu would cry if she found out her brother turned into a killer, making the criminal agree desperately. The killer begs the master to save him, but Tateshi shows an expression of pure disgust for his minion. The villain says he disowned the killer because he doesn't need a weak follower who gets beaten so easily by others. Even humiliated, the criminal remains trapped under Nao's firm foot, crying in pain and pure desperation. Tateshi asks what excuse he will use to kill him, but Nao reveals he sent a friend request to his rival. The killer gets completely confused, not understanding why that furious young man sent a friend request. The system panel pops up in front of the killer's eyes with the request sent by the Proto. Nao explains that if they are system friends, they can share locations and form a party in the game. He sets the condition that the villain must turn himself into the police in the real world or always play in his party, under threat of death. And he adds that if he rejects the friend request now, he will be eliminated right there on the dance floor. Seeing no other way out, the killer tearfully accepts the request, begging for his life to be spared. Tateshi watches the scene and claps his hands with his flames glowing in a very satisfied and cheerful way. Suddenly, Nao's eyes go wide as he hears a desperate scream from the criminal, who starts getting burned alive. The killer is completely swallowed by Tateshi's destructive golden flames, agonizing on the floor. Tateshi mocks Nao's attempt to play warden to keep his pacifist justice and make his sister happy. Holding his gold lighter, the villain says Nao's plan was great, except for the fact that he was standing right there. The criminal's body lies completely charred on the dance floor, giving off smoke. Nao calls out his rival's name with an expression of pure rage and resentment over what just happened. But to everyone's surprise, the Proto simply thanks the villain in a calm and serious tone. Tateshi widens his eyes in surprise to hear Nao say he was ready to take the blame for letting him live, but the villain took that burden off him. He adds with a slight smile that he still doesn't approve of rookie hunting, but that now he no longer has the right to judge his rival. Tateshi pulls a face of extreme disgust and revulsion at the young man's attitude, leaving the Proto pretty confused. The blonde kicks Nao to push him away and complains, saying he is way stronger when he is angry, so he needs to stop thanking him. He insists the Proto accept his friend request and suggests it is high time he visited Player City. Nao gets quite intrigued hearing about this mysterious place for the first time. The villain just smirks and starts tapping on his floating holographic panel. He warns mysteriously that this survival game is way more complex than it looks at first glance. Right after, the system displays the notice confirming the temporary return of the survivors to the real world. Back at the real train station, Tateshi explains that it is possible to access Player City from any subway station. He shows a blue system card and says all it takes is using the infinite free pass located in the item menu. The blonde swipes the card at the turnstile, making a sound, and tells him he is heading in first. The Proto watches his friend pass through the turnstile with a very surprised and attentive look. To Nao's amazement, Tateshi instantly vanishes in a flash of blue pixels as soon as he steps through the turnstile. The young man's jaw drops, witnessing that magical transformation happen right in the middle of a public train station. He looks closely at the regular people around and notices that absolutely no one seems to have noticed Tateshi's sudden disappearance. The normal passengers keep walking peacefully, going about their daily routines as if nothing had happened. Nao takes a deep breath and approaches the station turnstile with a focused look, determined to test the mysterious pass. He gets thoughtful and realizes the system not only covers up deaths, but also patches all these weird occurrences for normal people. Nao reaches out his hand and presses the virtual panel button to check his rewards menu. He notices the infinite free subway pass and also an impressive balance of 1,500,000 yen in cash. Nao almost trips backward in shock upon seeing that pile of cash and remembers those are rewards for leveling up. He swallows hard and wonders if he can actually withdraw all that money in the real world using the system menu. To test it out, the young man decides to run a withdrawal simulation and selects the amount of 1,000 yen on the screen. A real 1,000 yen man bill materializes before his eyes in a glow of light, leaving the young man wide-mouthed, but he quickly gets suspicious and starts inspecting the money carefully, fearing it might be counterfeit or illegal. He inserts the bill into a vending machine, and it accepts the cash normally, dispensing a bottle of green tea. He takes a nice sip of the tea super happily, confirming that system money is 100% real and legit. Tateshi completely loses patience with the young man's foolishness and lands a kick right on Nao's butt. The free pass card displays Nao's official info, including his age of passing at 20 years old. Tateshi tells him to go through the turnstile first, but Nao gets thoughtful reading the term World of the Dead written on the card. The moment he steps through the gate with the card, the young man is enveloped in a bright and powerful blue energy. He shuts his eyes tight to protect himself from the intense glare of that dimensional subway portal. Opening his eyes slowly, he comes face to face with a completely different and breathtaking scenery. Before him stands the massive Player City, an incredible place where only those who survive death twice can enter. This place is also well known among veteran players by the name Butterfly Street. Nao notices the afterlife looks a lot like a futuristic city filled with a blend of advanced tech and pure magic. He starts walking down the station stairs calmly, admiring every detail of that fantastic new world. The young man spots a street vendor with his traditional cart parked right under a large red archway. The vendor offers a famous butterfly candy, announcing with a big smile that it costs 3,000 yen a piece. Nao almost faints hearing the ridiculous price, shocked by the inflation of that World of the Dead. But he gazes at the pretty floating candy shaped like a glowing butterfly fairy and gets a huge urge to try it. He drools with craving, thinking he could never sample something like that in the real world. Plus now his pockets are full of cash. The young man buys the glowing candy and tries to convince himself that it is just a fair reward for all his hard work. However, the shopkeeper cracks a devious side smile while secretly manipulating his holographic panel. In the Merchant Guild chat, the scammer celebrates tricking the rookie and plans to take him to a bar to wipe out all his cash. He laughs to himself, thinking what else he can push on the young man, until a hand reaches out from the shadows and grabs him firm. Tateshi grabs the scammer hard and sarcastically says, charging 3,000 yen for something that costs 10 yen to make is an outrageous ripoff. The blonde smiles, saying he is actually thankful, since his disciple was poor his whole life, and loses his mind seeing a million yen in his wallet. While Nao walks along innocently enjoying the candy, Tateshi demands the merchant make up for his mistake by helping them. Later, they end up at a charming bar and order exotic drinks that glow magically on the table. Nao is completely amazed as he watches the drink's liquid transform into tiny floating butterflies of light. The terrified bartender says they offer an open bar for just 2,000 yen, and the proto cheers that he can drink as much as he wants. Tateshi agrees, laughing, and mocks the bar's quality, while the scammer bartender sweats in pure terror serving the two customers. The blonde proposes a friendly toast to celebrate their reconciliation and seal the start of a great friendship. Nao gladly accepts the toast and clinks his glass with Tateshi's with a much calmer and relaxed look. Nao asks if opening shop there without a legal license is allowed, and Tateshi fires back, laughing that would be like trying to file taxes on game rewards. The proto agrees and asks if there are part-time jobs that only function inside that spirit world. Tateshi confirms yes, and reveals jobs range from clearing quests for others to acting as a mercenary or high-end bodyguard. Many players make fortunes acting as hired mercenaries to protect wealthier rookies during quests. He reveals that a ticket to enter the tutorial costs 10 million yen, which leaves Nao shocked as it is 5 times his annual salary. The blonde adds that to make serious bank and get filthy rich in this world, the only path is focusing on ranking up. The tier system shows earnings skyrocket insanely at each level, especially for those who reach elite rank. Tateshi reveals the top players can participate in the final quest, whose reward can grant absolutely any wish. Upon hearing that incredible revelation, the proto gets completely lost in thought about what he would wish for if he won the game. He remembers his dad lying in the hospital bed and wonders if that ultimate wish could cure him once and for all. But he quickly considers that as his rank goes up, game enemies and monsters will definitely get way more powerful and dangerous. Either way, picturing his smiling little sister gives the proto all the motivation he needs to keep fighting. He breaks into a cold sweat, thinking that if he ends up dying in this dangerous game, there will be no one left to protect his beloved family. Nao looks at his balance of almost 1,500,000 yen and wonders if it is really worth risking so much to rank up. He says he will think about it, but Tateshi warns with a cynical smile that the young man actually has no choice at all. The villain tells the proto to reach gold rank no matter what, even if it costs him his own life. Nao forces a friendly smile on the outside, but inside he is boiling with pure rage and frustration at his rival's nerve. He tells Tateshi to learn how to talk without using violence, warning that if he can't even do that, the life of a 5-star player like him won't be worth a single thing in the end. Tateshi ignores the lecture and calls the bartender, ordering him to prep a quick round of drinking games. The proto decides to play along and reaches out his arm to grab his drink glass. The bartender serves the shots with a trembling hand, getting super worried about the direction of the situation. He knows those top shelf shots are crazy expensive and aren't included in the venue's open bar deal. The bartender realizes this is the perfect chance to pull off a huge scam and strip all of Nao's cash. He notices the young man is so annoyed with the villain that he threw all maturity out the window to drink it all down. Nao grabs his glass firmly, determined not to let himself be intimidated by Tateshi's taunts. He says he will play as long as the villain covers the whole tab, not caring about the place's outrageous prices. Hearing that bold reply from Nao, both the blonde and the bartender are caught totally off guard. The young man gives a clever smile and warns them not to try pulling any extortion scam on him tonight. Tateshi stares at the proto with a look of admiration, loving to see his new disciple's cleverness. The blonde bursts out laughing and admits he was outsmarted by the proto's clever trick. He confesses he planned to use the merchants to steal Nao's cash, but the young man pretended to fall for the scam just to score free booze. The blonde proudly praises Nao's sharp wit, stating he is a disciple worthy of respect. Nao gives a side smirk and replies sarcastically that he learned it all thanks to his scammer master. The two laugh together in a relaxed way, leaving the poor bartender shaking in panic, unable to understand that insane duo. Nao downs his last sip and announces he is heading home first, asking if the villain will finally let him leave in peace. However, the blonde's response comes short and instant, making it clear there is zero chance of that. Tateshi begins dissolving into blue pixels and warns that next time, Nao will have to look for him on his own. The proto watches his rival vanish until his real phone in his pocket starts ringing persistently. He gets super intrigued and confused, wondering about the true meaning of Tateshi's cryptic warning. Suddenly, a terrible gut feeling crosses his mind, and the young man breaks into a cold sweat of pure dread. Nao's heart races as he considers that his family might be in real life-threatening danger. He pulls the phone out of his pocket quickly and sees the incoming call is from his dear mother. With shaking hands and a pale face from anxiety, the young man answers the call immediately to find out what happened. He screams in desperation over the phone, begging his mom to answer quick and say everything is fine at home. On the other end of the line, mom answers yawning in her pajamas, calmly asking what happened for him to call at that hour. Hearing his mom's calm voice and seeing everything is peaceful, Nao lets out a huge sigh of relief. He seriously warns her not to open the door for Tateshi under any circumstances and to call him right away if the blonde shows up. Nao tries to hide his concern, stammering that it is nothing major while pulling up his system map. He checks his rival's location on the friend list and confirms Tateshi is in a completely different part of the city. The young man admits to himself that he was just acting tough, but that in reality, he is terrified of Tateshi's cruelty. Either way, he reinforces the plea for his mom to alert him immediately if the villain pops up at their house. Heart now settled, he hangs up the call and puts his cell phone back in his pocket. The bartender remarks that Nao has terrible luck for becoming the target of a monster like that, admitting that even for a scammer, the blonde is way too insane. He asks if the young man is looking for work and warns that operating without a guild is dangerous, offering to introduce him to a contact as an apology for the scam. Nao tenses up hearing about mob-style beatings and realizes that spirit world functions like a literal mafia underworld. He hesitates, thinking he might get mixed up with super dangerous people, when suddenly a magical light sparks beside him at the table. A mysterious young girl wearing an eye patch places her hand on his shoulder and asks if he is looking for a warrior guild. She introduces herself herself in a super relaxed way and invites the Prota to join her guild named Sotengoe. She says she is heading out to hunt monsters in a special cherry blossom event and reveals even 2-star rookies can take part in the fight. She winks charmingly and playfully asks if the young man wants to spend the night with her on this quest. Both the Prota and the bartender are left completely speechless and blushing at the girl's bold proposal. The bartender whispers to Now, telling him he really shouldn't join this weird girl's guild under any circumstances. The young man sighs in frustration, thinking he really has a magnetic pull for attracting weirdos into his life. He decides to give it a shot and accesses the special spring quest titled Return of the Vengeful Cherry Blossom Hunt. The stage objective is to gather glowing cherry blossom petals and safely escape through designated extraction points on the map. And so, the Prota finds himself in the middle of an incredibly beautiful forest packed with pink cherry blossom trees. He starts working in silence, collecting petals, almost as if he were at a regular part-time job. A few hours earlier at the bar, the eye patch girl asked point blank why the manager told Now not to work with her. She revealed with a smile that it is probably because anyone who joins her guild ends up getting beaten up by rivals. Hearing that bizarre revelation drop so casually, Now and the bartender are left completely lost for words. She explained that the mercenary group from the influential Kyoto Guild, which the bar manager himself belongs to, is the one doing that. The Kyoto Guild basically functions as a massive, dangerous Yakuza crime syndicate in the spirit world. Low-ranking members get brutally beaten if they don't pay a monthly protection fee to the faction bosses. Their violence is extreme, and they don't hesitate to hurt anyone who refuses to follow the gang's strict rules. She vented that they corner quest profits and that it pisses her off deeply, which is why she decided to act independently. Now notices her eye patch and silently wonders if those Yakuza thugs were the ones who caused that injury. He reflects on Tateshi being so strong and wonders why the villain lets this criminal underworld keep existing. He recalls Tateshi's selfish philosophy that the weak have no right to voice opinions or change things. In fact, the blonde seemed to be precisely the type of sadistic person who would fuel this general chaos and violence. Now lets out a long sigh and accepts he shouldn't look for more trouble than he already has in his life. But he remembers Natsu's sweet smile and knows he couldn't face her if he left that eye patch girl to fend for herself. Overcome with courage and resolve, the Prota looks at the young girl and announces once and for all that he will take the job. Back to the present, Nayo is dazzled, admiring the pretty pink trees glowing under the forest light. The magical scenery with mountains in the background makes it look like he is in a true spring dream. She says many people hold picnics at the extraction points, and now remarks surprised that this doesn't look like a lethal game at all. The girl points to a picnic blanket laid out on the grass and explains those areas are the stage's escape points. The checkered mat glows with the virtual escape indicator, confirming a safe exit for players. She catches one of the petals falling gently from the tree and continues explaining the rest of the game plan. Now reaches out his hand and grabs a glowing petal, watching the system counterlog another item collected. She tells the young man to check the event's item exchange menu, while he cute complains about her calling him kid. The event panel shows that the grand prize for 10,000 petals is a pet monster named Massager Slime. Now gets completely confused and wonders what on earth that weird system term means. The young eye patch girl cracks a proud, excited smile to explain the new feature to the Prota. She explains Yomimon are underworld pet monsters, and now cuts her off, saying he just needs to focus on the petals. She shows that there is also an option to redeem a janitor slime, leaving the Prota super interested in their market value. She reveals that each of these pets is worth 20 million yen, which leaves the young man completely shocked and hyped up. The young girl explains the price is sky high because buyer demand is huge and market supply is low. Driven by that multi-million value, Nayo uses all his door-to-door salesman agility to scoop up petals at light speed. The young man gets yen symbols flashing in his eyes from pure greed and happiness over the easy profit. However, he tries to grab one more regular petal falling from the tree and notices it doesn't give off the system glow. He realizes frustrated that it was just a normal petal reflecting the forest sunlight. He picks up another from the ground and confirms, annoyed that that one too is just a regular pink leaf. The young man keeps analyzing the leaves falling around him and discovers that absolutely all of them are normal. He realizes with horror the scale of the problem and notes that finding 10,000 glowing petals in a month is like hunting 4-leaf clovers. She complains angrily that the event demands a quota of over 300 petals a day and that the prize is only rare because the quest is awful. She says almost everyone gives up on the big prize and trades their points for dango skewers, which explains the slime's multi-million value. However, Now keeps a serious and steady gaze, remembering he spent his whole life knowing he has zero luck. He recalls his childhood when little Natsu really wanted a 4-leaf clover as a birthday gift. Back then, young Now knew full well that relying on luck or chance was never a realistic option for him. Because of that, the most efficient and guaranteed method he learned early on to get what he wanted was hard work. With that focused and relentless mindset, he grips the first real glowing petal with total firmness and resolve. Now manages to snatch another glowing petal falling from the tree and earns more system points. Hyped over the easy gain, he starts doing a total sweep of the area, grabbing everything he sees ahead. Now celebrates his success big time and excitedly asks how Kagamina-sensei is doing. He walks over to the eye patch girl, who is sitting peacefully drawing on her digital tablet. She calls the young man kid and warns she is swamped with work so she can't move to help him. She shows off a sketch of a cute kitty and tells him to collect the petals solo, promising to pay way above market rate. Facing the artist's lazy excuse, Now just stares at her with a completely deadpan look. The young man grumbles that she shouldn't have drunk so much if she was that busy, but is interrupted by a mysterious voice. 3 members of the Kyoto Guild pop up out of nowhere and sarcastically ask for Kagamina-sensei's autograph. The girl with pigtails points at them and suggests that if they don't want trouble, they should pay a tribute to the guild. Seeing the gold pendant around the trio's necks, Now recognizes instantly that they belong to the dreaded Kyoto Guild. The girl in the trio asks if Now is her boyfriend and mocks that no one would date such a pathetic woman. Now gets pretty bothered by the group's nerve and breaks into a cold sweat over that annoying situation. The Prota remembers immediately the violent reputation of the guild and how they usually brutally beat their victims. He also recalls Tateshi's terrifying presence and how merciless that spirit world can be. The 3 troublemakers keep standing in front of him with arrogant smiles and flashy poses, but analyzing his opponents closer, Now starts thinking they look incredibly weak and harmless. Right after, he checks himself, thinking he shouldn't drop his guard because they might be hiding true power. Now gets their attention and says that just because they are kids doesn't mean they can act so rude. The blonde guy laughs and replies he is 22. The masked guy says he is 23, and the girl claims to be a 25-year-old baby. Finding out they are all older than him, Now gets extremely annoyed by so much immaturity. Kano says this whole thing is just a game and starts prepping for direct hand-to-hand combat. Umaki firmly grips the chain of his 2-star scythe, showing he is ready to attack. Memori holds a drink can, and Kano warns that if they have any problem, they can settle it right there. The trio assumes a battle stance and challenges Now to put them in their place through a quick fight. Worried about the situation, Now calls out for Kagamina-sensei to try and warn her about the imminent danger. He warns that the situation is dangerous and asks her to take a step back, but the artist remains totally locked onto her tablet. Desperate seeing the girl simply floated far away, he screams asking if she was even listening. The cherry blossom forest stays calm under the blue sky, but the tension between the fighters keeps rising. Suddenly, a loud impact sound echoes from the top of the pink trees, grabbing everyone's attention. A monster shaped like a horned log crashes violently into the middle of the cherry leaves. Memori points forward and orders Umaki and Kano to protect her at all costs from any threat. With that, Umaki's spiked weapon is launched at high speed straight toward Now. With total ease, the Prota raises his leg and kicks the weapon's chain far out of his way. Kano takes advantage of the opening and charges in fast, swinging a powerful punch with his glowing brass knuckles. Now dodges the punch with great agility and notices their attacks are way too simple and super slow. He decides that for now, he will just use his raised leg to block his opponent's next move. However, the second Now raises his leg, Umaki seizes the chance to trap his ankle using the metal chain. Successfully entangling the chain, Umaki yanks hard and celebrates, celebrates, saying he snagged him. Kano readies another devastating blow and shouts hyped up, believing their victory is already locked in. At that moment, Nao activates his shoe's special power, making a strong blue energy flare up intensely. He uses the momentum to pull off an awesome aerial sweep kick, completely throwing off both attackers. Umaki lets out a panic scream as he totally loses his balance and gets dragged by his own chain. Both opponents are left completely defenseless in midair, while the Proto dictates the pace of the clash. With a quick movement, Nao makes both knuckleheads collide violently against each other in midair. Mimori falls into complete despair, watching her two squadmates drop defeated to the ground all at once. She is shocked by the young man's strength and wonders what kind of skill he used to make them vanish from sight. Kagamina-sensei remarks that they actually work well together, but warns that power wouldn't be enough against Tateshi. Not knowing what to do, Mimori starts pouring her drink straight into Kano's mouth to try to wake him up. The blonde guy lets out a groan of pain and starts regaining consciousness slowly after the brutal hit. Seeing Kano heal fast, Nao realizes the drink can the girl was using was actually a healing weapon. Kano snaps up with a sudden shout, fully recovered and startling his companions with his restored energy. The guy inspects his own hands in shock, barely able to believe he survived that brutal fight without a single scratch. Still super confused by the situation, Kano stares at the Proto and asks why he didn't finish him off right there. Nao says he isn't sadistic like Tateshi, and that all they need to do is apologize to the artist and promise to never start trouble again. Kano glares at the Proto in silence, completely lost for words and sweating cold at the young man's merciful attitude. The blonde starts explaining himself and reveals they only acted that violently to keep people away from Kagamina-sensei. He vents that they did that to protect them, because if others got close to her, they would end up getting brutally beaten by the guild. Nao says he knows the Kyoto guild is full of thugs, but argues nothing justifies harassing someone and gouging their eye out. While the guys talk seriously, the artist stays completely oblivious to her surroundings, focused on finishing her tablet illustration. Kano panics and quickly clarifies that they were not the ones responsible for hurting Kagamina-sensei's eye. The Proto is pretty surprised by the revelation and lets out a mutter of doubt, trying to get what really went down. Suddenly, a booming noise and violent quakes start shaking the whole floor of the cherry blossom forest. A big red system warning pops up in the air, alerting to the immediate start of an emergency quest in the area. Nao looks around startled as he sees the red holographic danger barrier rise fast on all sides. The virtual panel glows intensely, indicating that the extreme survival quest will start in just a few minutes. Kano screams in panic, realizing time is running out and they need to move super fast so they don't die there. He warns everyone to run immediately to the escape point, while the troublemaker trio starts beating a retreat. Nao runs to Kagamina-sensei, warning that the situation is awful, but gets outraged seeing she refuses to stop drawing. At the escape point, Mimori and Umaki manage to escape using the portal, leaving Kano a bit behind in the evacuation rush. Suddenly, a loud rumble echoes nearby, and Kano turns around startled, realizing something super bad just happened. He shoves Mimori toward the portal to guarantee the girl's safe exit, while a massive root starts bursting from the dirt. The young girl with pigtails lets out a surprised scream as she is sent back through the portal before even grasping the situation. The ground splits open completely around Kano under the fury of giant roots that start sprouting violently from the earth. A huge quake launches the blonde into the eye, air while the terrain turns into a true landscape of total destruction. He tries to stay focused even while falling and frantically looks for another active escape point in the area. However, a monstrous creature shaped like a giant tree pops up right behind him, opening a massive mouth full of sharp teeth. The two-star monster closes its wooden jaws with extreme force in an attempt to devour the blonde in one bite. Luckily, Nao shows up right in time and manages to rescue Kano from the lethal strike, leaving the blonde confused and super relieved to be alive. The Proto orders Kano to carry the artist on his back, while the blonde asks worriedly what he plans to do. Nao keeps a firm and resolute look, showing he won't run away without first taking care of that threatening creature. He charges with everything toward the giant monster, set on defeating the enemy to clear a path for their escape. Nao lands a powerful kick on one of the branches and notices his physical hits deal real damage to the creature's structure. The big problem is that it is an extremely tough two-star monster, way more dangerous than the common ones. The young man realizes he won't be able to take down that giant tree with just one strike and needs to swap strategies fast. To make matters worse, more tree-shaped monsters start sprouting from the earth around Nao in large numbers. Nao slides back along the grass and analyzes the enemy horde completely blocking all safe escape routes. Facing the imminent danger of being swarmed by wooden creatures, he readies himself to use all his boot speed. The Proto takes a deep breath and sets his stance to run at top speed, triggering his special skill's blue glow. Meanwhile, Kano keeps sprinting through the forest carrying Kagamina-sensei on his shoulders as fast as he can. The blonde runs huffing from exhaustion, while the eye patch girl keeps drawing peacefully, not giving a single care about the chaos. Nao catches up to the two on the run, but Kano complains annoyed, saying the young man shouldn't have brought a monster army behind him. The young man shouts back that he tried to take them down but it didn't work, and asks the exact distance to the next escape point. Kano shouts back that the spot is still way too far, and Nao asks frantically if there isn't any closer exit around. The two keep running for dear life while killer roots charge relentlessly right behind their heels. Kano starts to reply, but is cut short as wooden tendrils grab both young men with massive force, choking them. Completely trapped by the creature's dry branches, they groan in pain while Kagamina-sensei just watches it all sitting on a branch. The beautiful view of the cherry blossom castle in the distance glows under the blue sky, hiding the lethal danger dwelling in that place. Nao recalls when he thought this place would just be a pleasant stroll to admire spring's pink flowers, but hard reality hits, revealing that Pretty Field hides a literal sea of blood and fallen players' bodies. Nao spits blood while being brutally choked by the tree branches, realizing that Pretty Place is actually a death game. In the last second, Kagamina-sensei decides to act and raises her left hand to release an extremely powerful skill. A colossal dragon with blue wings emerges majestic in the forest skies, blocking out the sun with its imposing presence. The mythical creature spews a devastating stream of blazing fire, instantly incinerating the tree-shaped monster. With the branches destroyed, Nao and Kano fall free to the ground, completely shocked by the appearance of the powerful guardian dragon. As the emergency trees are totally incinerated by the flames, several glowing petal items pop up as rewards. Kagamina-sensei touches down gently with several petals floating around her and apologizes for taking so long to finish her draft. She explains that emergency quest monsters drop awesome rewards, and now asks Kano if she really is part of the Kyoto guild. Still recovering on the ground, the Proto praises her impressive strength and asks why she wears an eye patch. The artist turns slowly with a confused look, seeming to not expect such a sudden question from the young man. She says she only wears it because she thinks it looks stylish, leaving Nao so disappointed he asks if he can quit the job. At the end of the day, calm returns to the bright modern streets of the big player city. The group gathers in a secluded city alley in the spirit realm to talk more peacefully about their future. Kagamina-sensei suggests the troublemaker trio join her Soten Goei guild so they can stop taking orders and getting beaten up. Mimori turns down the offer spooked, explaining that leaving the influential Thousand Lanterns Guild is an extremely dangerous thing to do. She also explains that, by system rules, at least 18 or 5 guildless players are required to found an official faction. The system panel confirms that the guild creation process demands meeting several strict requirements to succeed. Mimori points out that the artist is completely on her own, which makes Nao start sweating cold out of nervousness over the lack of members. The Proto shouts outraged, asking if that was a lie too, but she defends herself, saying the whole concept is already in her mind. However, the eye patch girl switches tones and assumes a much more serious and locked-in posture to continue explaining. She reveals that all top executives of the powerful Thousand Lanterns Guild are bronze rank or higher fighters. She explains she needs to rank up to be able to fight them on equal footing, but that joining a guild is step 1. The virtual stats screen shows that belonging to an active guild is a mandatory requirement to enter the bronze rank quest. Kagamina-sensei explains with a confident smile that is precisely why the enemy guild sabotages her to keep her from getting members. Bluntly, Nao advises the girl to give up once and for all on that absurd idea of founding her own guild in the afterlife. Mimori vents relents sadly, saying the enemy guild's harassment will continue regardless, even if they get beaten. Hearing that, Now remembers a cold phrase Tateshi used to say about the weak having no right to voice opinions on anything. The sadistic villain always looked down on normal people, treating anyone weaker as mere trash. Although Now has zero intention of acting like a hero of justice, he feels deep hatred when accepting the villain's cruel logic. Driven by an urge, he gazes at the trio and asks if they would accept joining the Sotengoe guild if he promised to protect them. The unexpected offer leaves Momori and Kano completely in shock, eyes glowing with so much surprise and hope. Umaki also widens his eyes behind his black mask, unable to believe what he just heard from the Prota. Kagamina-sensei rests her hand on her chin and lets out a surprised expression, seeing the young man step up so heroically. Awkward under the stares fixed on him, Now scratches his head and asks confused if he said something really weird to them. The next day, in the real world, the bright lights of Dotonbori's bustling avenue in Osaka illuminate the city night. Now waits in a suit standing in the middle of a crowded pedestrian bridge and starts grumbling to himself about the group's delay. He recalls the trio crying frantically the day before, begging him to stand by them when they officially quit the guild. Now sighs, annoyed, thinking he only agreed to wait in that crowded spot because they seemed truly desperate for help. He analyzes the Thousand Lanterns Guild's power structure and remembers those three idiots are at the absolute bottom of the faction. The young man walks near the canal and reflects that being in the real world under police watch, enemies would avoid causing trouble. Over the comm screen, Kagamina-sensei announces super excited that she will help him on the quest, but the young man politely asks her to focus on her draft. He decides to move forward alone and checks their current location via the temporary friend system they set up yesterday. The virtual map projects the exact location of the trio on a nearby bridge, showing they are all gathered at the same point. Locking his eyes onto the exact spot shown on the hologram, the Prota feels a terrible chill spread across his entire body. He sprints to the bridge railing and looks down, praying silently that it isn't what he is picturing. However, the worst happens as he sees the bodies of Kano, Umaki, and Mimori lying motionless over a massive pool of blood floating in the dark water. Now stands completely frozen in deep shock, witnessing that brutal murder scene right before his eyes. Suddenly, a police officer approaches, running toward him suspiciously and shouts, calling the Prota's attention on the bridge. The young man turns around, startled by the sudden approach, and stammers an explanation, but is violently cut short. The officer pulls out a revolver and points the gun straight at Nao's forehead, revealing himself to be a disguised killer with a dark gaze. Out of nowhere, a second police officer appears behind him, firing a shot into the fake officer's head and screaming not to mess with his slave. The fake officer is hit clean in the forehead by the violent shot, letting out a scream of surprise before stumbling. Panic spreads instantly across the busy avenue, with pedestrians screaming in terror that the police just shot someone. The shooter grabs his wounded buddy by the collar, who complains about the attack, but hears that all of this would be forgotten anyway. To everyone's surprise, the shot cop stands back up bleeding and laughingly warns they can't die for real in the real world. Right after, the wounded officer collapses to the stone ground, leaving Now completely shocked and covered in blood splatters. The Prota is horrified to see that the Thousand Lanterns Guild doesn't hesitate to shoot and kill in the middle of a crowded avenue. Waste of zero time, Now turns and starts sprinting, triggering his shoe's power, making strong blue energy swirl around him. He spots a water energy attack heading his way and readies himself to dodge using all his agility. The young man manages to dodge the luminous blast by a hair, feeling the heavy pressure of the shot graze past his face. The rookie leader Hari Kiriri watches the dodge and arrogantly comments that, as expected from Tateshi's disciple, he knows how to defend himself. Kiriri smirks with disdain and warns he will tell the Prota something super interesting before finishing him off for good. He explains that if they die at the same time and are in the same rank, the matchmaker almost always throws them in the same game. The villain points the gun and reveals their plan is to murder the young man in reality to then punish him in the afterlife. Now listens to everything in absolute silence, keeping an extremely serious and focused look in the face of that terrible threat. Kiriri promises to forgive him if he apologizes and joins the enemy guild, but demands an absurd entry fee of 50 million yen. At that moment, a system message pops up in the sky, starting the event to survive for 1 hour against the district's water god. The enemy leader points his pistol and shouts furiously that if the Prota won't apologize, then he had better just die at once. Now leaps toward the villain, delivering a powerful kick charged with blue energy, but the opponent blocks the hit using his arm. The impact of the kick against the block creates a shockwave that sends heavy white smoke billowing across the bridge. The young man slides back along the floor and quickly catches his balance, realizing his opponent's strength is way higher than expected. He gnashes his teeth, frustrated, upon noticing that the heavy blow he landed was blocked without dealing any real damage to his opponent. Now is impressed to see that the enemy leader managed to dodge and block an attack so easily using just one arm. Kiruri sets his stance with gun in hand, while the three defeated youths watch everything lying on the ground right behind the villain. With an extremely dark look, the leader deduces that the Prota really has zero intention of apologizing to them. The young man gazes at his opponent with determination, prepping for the start of the survival clash about to begin. The massive water creature rises imposing in the sky, confirming the start of the 1 hour event to survive the water god. Pedestrians run in terror down the avenue, screaming for everyone to use nearby buildings as cover against the attacks. The colossal water dragon fires a devastating torrent that charges forward, swallowing everything and quickly flooding the city streets. Several players are swept away by the violent force of the current, letting out screams of despair while trying to grab onto something. Some survivors run laughing and comment that today's daily quest seems to be just a simple game of dodge and agility. Another guy notices the water doesn't destroy physical structures and suggests they just hide inside buildings to wait out the clock. However, a giant water dragon suddenly surges from a puddle and attacks the guy who was trying to hide under cover. The player falls into complete despair as he sees the mythical water jaws snap shut toward him without giving a second to react. Multiple people end up trapped inside floating magical water bubbles, suffocating and screaming in pain without being able to break free. A guy holding a baseball bat backs away spooked as he sees the ground get covered in water puddles that start glowing intensely. He is completely horrified to see that every water puddle on the street begins transforming into new, smaller dragon monsters. Desperate, he brandishes his improvised weapon and complains that they will have to endure that living hell of attacks for a whole hour. While running to dodge the aquatic monsters, Now looks to the side and notices a super weird movement happening down the avenue. The Prota is outraged by what he sees in the distance and lets out a murmur of disbelief at those players' sheer nerve. He wonders if they really have time to be fighting and trying to kill each other right in the middle of such a tough survival quest. Kiriri clicks his tongue annoyed while pointing his revolver toward the opponents trying to mess up his hunting plans. A virtual cooldown alert pops up in front of the rookie leader's face, making him even more impatient over the delay to fire again. Taking advantage of the cooldown window, Now leaps at light speed toward the villain to land a definitive surprise strike. Suddenly, Umaki bursts out of the chaos and grabs Kiriri from behind with all his strength, pinning the leader to help the Prota. Even heavily injured and exhausted, the masked youth uses his remaining strength to keep the boss pinned during Nao's attack. Using his ally's body as a launching pad, Now, triggering his 1000-step boots blue energy, jumps even higher into the air. He launches his body in a spectacular acrobatic move, stacking up all possible speed to ensure a clean impact. The Prota lands a devastating flying kick straight toward the enemy leader's face, who remains pinned by Umaki. However, a bald police officer with a facial scar pops up out of nowhere and points a revolver straight at Nao's forehead. Now reacts fast and lands a precise kick on the bald officer's gun, knocking the dangerous aim off target by a hair. The kick's impact shoves the shooter back and creates space for Umaki to break free from the enemy's grip. With nimble and balanced moves, the Prota touches down gently on the ground and assumes his default combat stance. He plants his feet firmly on the bridge, once again activating his 1000-step shoes bright blue power for the counterattack. The bald killer doesn't give up and aims the revolver back at the young man, firing without hesitation. Now leaps backward fast to dodge the bullet, keeping his eyes wide open and focused on his rival's moves. With an extremely dark gaze, the shooter commands the other officer to push forward at once to trap the Prota. Suddenly, Kano throws himself into the middle of the fight, using his own body body to shield the young man who helped him earlier. Face covered in sweat and fatigue, the blonde screams frantically for Now to get the hell out of there as fast as possible. The Proto is pretty surprised by the protective and unexpected move from the young blonde who used to be his enemy. Kano decides to stay behind and block the corrupt cop's path, buying time for Now to manage to escape. The blonde thinks of the Proto and silently wonders if the young man is just a complete idiot for trying to help them. He feels extremely guilty and remorseful for all the bad things his guild caused the young man recently. Kano reflects that they themselves were the true reason Kireri found and killed the Proto in the real world. He remembers being captured and held hostage at gunpoint by the Thousand Lanterns Guild. Under severe torture and death threats, the trio had no choice but to give up their exact meeting spot to the bosses. He wonders if the Proto really was waiting for them on the bridge just to help them get out of that cruel guild. Kano recalls seeing Now fighting bravely and risking his own life just to save Memori from the bald kidnapper's hands. The blonde admits Now had every right in the world to hate them and even kill them after they were so cowardly toward him. Even after the betrayal, the Proto preferred to use his agility to disarm the enemy and give the trio a new shot at salvation. Kano questions why Now still insisted on giving them the choice to pick a different, better path in the afterlife. He stares at the Proto, eyes filled with emotion and deep respect, feeling something he had never felt before in his life. The young blonde admits he never imagined there could be genuinely good and selfless people like the Proto. He remembers when they traveled together in the van and how his friends' jokes and banter helped him forget his troubles. Memori and Umaki used to laugh at their own past misfortunes, sharing the pain and hardships of their previous lives. The trio of friends always lived in absolute misery since childhood, having only each other to lean on through the suffering. In those cold times, they just wished they could be born into normal families and lead quiet, peaceful lives in their next incarnation. Back to the heat of current combat, Now keeps jumping around trying to find an opening in the opponent's solid defense. The bald killer cracks a wicked smile, predicting the exact spot the young man will land and prepping to fire the kill shot. Out of nowhere, a glowing blue chain shoots out and hits the officer's gun with massive force, disarming him instantly. Now widens his eyes as he sees the revolver ripped from the enemy's hand, realizing he just got unexpected outside help. On the bridge, Kano and Umaki quickly take positions alongside the Proto, showing they decided to fight together to the end. Umaki pulls his chain back with a serious and firm look, getting ready to back up their squad's combined assault. Memori takes advantage of the bald kidnapper's distraction to try and break free from the officer's grip once and for all. Kano charges with blind fury, gathering powerful blue energy in his glowing brass knuckles to strike the rival's face. The blonde lands a devastating punch clean against the bald kidnapper's cheek, tearing his mask with the impact. The hit leaves a deep mark of fury on the villain's face, but he refuses to drop even after taking the violent punch. The bald officer stays standing like a literal relentless giant, glaring at the youths with a look packed with pure hatred. Keeping his combat focus, Now takes advantage of the close distance to prepare another powerful kick against his opponent. The bald enemy notices the Proto's rapid approach and widens his eyes, realizing he won't have time to block the strike. With an acrobatic leap, Now lands an awesome flying kick straight to the bald cop's jaw, shattering his guard. The kick's violent impact sends the officer's helmet flying, spraying blood and completely breaking the enemy's defense. The villain is launched backward with extreme violence due to the crushing blow landed by the Proto mid-fight. The officer's skull slams hard into the bridge floor as he bleeds heavily from the severe damage caused by the kick's impact. Now touches down with his back to the fallen enemy and takes a deep breath, believing for a split second the battle finally ended there. However, a strange, bright purple light begins radiating from the fallen villain's body, leaving the Proto pretty confused. Extremely destructive purple lightning bolts start slicing through the air around them, forming literal electrical barriers of energy. The whole squad is struck by the overwhelming electrical discharge, letting out deep groans of pain as they are paralyzed by the attack. Kireri stands up from the middle of the lightning with a bloody, sadistic grin, mocking their nerve for trying to fight without having skills. Now is shocked to hear about the enemy's special skill and drops to his knees on the ground, unable to move due to the lightning paralysis. Kireri points his pistol straight at Nao's forehead, tauntingly asking if the young man remembers getting shot. With the revolver pressed against his face, the Proto breaks into a cold sweat, feeling absolute terror take over. Now desperately tries to force his own body to react and move under the painful paralysis of the enemy's purple lightning. He wills with all his strength to take at least one step, fighting against the paralyzing physical block. However, Kireri ruthlessly shoots Nao's thigh, violently striking his femoral artery. The young man lets out a bloody scream of pure agony and extreme pain as he feels the bullet's devastating impact in his leg. The villain laughs sadistically and explains the Proto will bleed out in minutes due to the fatal artery wound. Kireri turns his back laughing and tells the young man to enjoy the final minutes of the death survival game before dying for good. Down and bleeding heavily, Nao gnashes his teeth in pain while watching the giant water dragon approach in the sky. In that near-death moment, he remembers his little sister Natsu's sweet smile happily welcoming him back home. The Proto lets a heavy tear roll down his face, realizing he cannot afford the luxury of abandoning his sister again. He calls himself an idiot and remembers getting brutally stabbed and killed in the real world, knowing he can't accept dying again. He recalls leveling up in the system and letting himself get carried away by pride and the fake feeling that he was invincible. Just because he managed to survive the fight against Tateshi in the past, the young man ended up making a terrible error in judgment. He foolishly believed he could beat any opponent who was theoretically weaker than the powerful blonde. Suddenly, Kano leaps in with everything, swinging a punch packed with energy to clear the threats surrounding the Proto. The blonde shouts with determination and charges bravely to protect Nao's injured body against the dangers around. He uses his own body as a shield to cover the Proto on the ground while the heavy water torrent crashes down over them. Nao looks at his ally in shock, unable to believe the blonde is risking his own life to save him like that. Kano screams desperately for Memori to bring the healing potion quick and help save the wounded Proto. The girl in the trio sprints toward them and grabs Nao's suit to start emergency first aid. Memori forces the Proto to drink the healing soda while his severe leg wound begins glowing intensely. She warns panting that magical drink can't completely close up a wound that is truly fatal. Kano complains tiredly that the war of attrition is awful and that the water monster keeps multiplying endlessly. Meanwhile, Umaki uses all his skill to swing his chained scythe against the creatures that keep popping up. He manages to entangle his metal chains around one of the smaller water dragons to neutralize its movements. Umaki suggests they just pin the water creature so they can't attack, leaving Kano pretty surprised. Back on the ground, Nao asks what a special skill actually is, but the trio admits no one there has a single clue. The young man silently reflects that the terrible purple electricity attack the enemy used was something completely different from anything else. He knows that if he gets hit by that paralysis again, it will be his end, and starts searching for a clue to beat the villain. He remembers when the cooldown panel popped up in front of Kiriri's face while he tried to fire the revolver again. The young man pieces together all the clues from Kiriri's previous moves and suddenly starts understanding the secret behind his rival's power. He recalls how the enemy was vulnerable whenever he dodged a physical hit or tried to reload his gun. The virtual panel showing the weapon's cooldown timer was the biggest weak spot and soul opening in the rookie leader's solid defense. With eyes glowing with determination, Nao finally understands the enemy's weakness and alerts his squad mates that he cracked the plan. He stands up in the water while Umaki warns spooked that the water level on the avenue is rising fast from the ground up. Kano shouts surprised as he notices the small water dragon attacking them simply vanished in the middle of the sudden flood. The blonde looks around super confused and tense, feeling a way bigger danger is about to emerge beneath their feet. All of Dotonbori Avenue gets completely submerged under dark water, and everyone wonders where the giant dragon went. Suddenly, the water god's colossal silhouette appears right beneath them in the flooded water, setting up a terrifying surprise attack. The creature's massive jaws glow brightly under the water surface, about to swallow the whole squad in one bite. Kano and Umaki drop into absolute panic upon realizing the colossal size of the sea monster about to attack from below. The monster emerges violently like a giant geyser, launching all four youths at high speed straight into the sky. Kano lets out a scream of pure terror as he is dragged by the extreme force of the water, feeling his body yanked violently. The blonde complains the speed is too high and that his arm will tear, but Nao holds him firm and warns the system will heal it later. Nao warns determinedly that they are settling scores with Kiruri right now, but Memori screams in panic, suggesting they head for a safe zone. The Prota leaps carrying the girl and states the enemy is in the safest zone of all, making it the perfect time to strike. He explains Kiruri picked the safest spot precisely because he is the one most terrified of dying there. With a fierce and resolute battle roar, Nao charges through the sky toward the rookie leader to deliver the final blow. Meanwhile, in the background, other players scream in panic as they are devoured by the water dragon's monstrous jaws in the flood. While trying to reload his pistol as fast as possible, Kiruri runs up the stairs to escape the avenue's flood. Midway up, another survivor tries to attack him using an umbrella to clear a path on the staircase. The man gets outraged by the block and glares at the corrupt cop with an expression full of rage and impatience. Without any mercy, Kiruri lands a violent kick on the man and aggressively commands him to get out of his way. The survivor ends up tumbling down the staircase straight into the flood below, while Kiruri keeps rushing up. He runs as fast as his legs can carry him, making loud metallic footsteps echo across the stair structure. The rookie leader finally reaches a high building's safe rooftop and sighs relieved upon seeing the flood right below him. He reflects that the stage floods after a while and that the colossal dragon actively starts hunting players like in a shark movie. However, Kiruri feels a chill down his spine as he hears soft footsteps approaching right behind him on the building rooftop. Nao pops up right behind him, silently and sarcastically, thanks the enemy leader for guiding them to a safe spot. The entire squad lands on the rooftop after being launched by the giant geyser, leaving the villain completely in shock at their appearance. The Prota sports a defiant smile and sarcastically remarks that, since it was his first time there, his help was super valuable. Giving no time for reactions, Nao charges with extreme speed and sweeps Kiruri to the floor with a relentless trip. He lands a powerful kick to the enemy leader's jaw, making his opponent groan in extreme pain upon being hit flush. The young man keeps a serious and firm look, showing he is totally set on ending that conflict right there. Kano screams worriedly, warning that the wound on Nao's thigh is still bleeding heavily, even after using the magic drink. Kiruri gets back up furious, cussing out the young man as an immortal cockroach, but Nao just points at himself and challenges him to shoot if he has the guts. The enemy leader glares at the young man with bloodshot eyes of pure hatred, but can't fire due to a system restriction. With a confident smile on his face, Nao stares at his opponent up close and states with absolute certainty that he can't do a thing right now. He explains that, compared to a regular shot, the weapon's cooldown after using a special skill is way longer. The young man recalls when the enemy leader used the paralysis attack and how he was left vulnerable right after to reload the pistol. Nao exposes the enemy's secret, explaining in detail that the cooldown time after using an AoE skill is extremely long. The virtual cooldown bar keeps filling up slowly in front of Kiruri, confirming the Prota's brilliant theory. The villain gets visibly frustrated and tense as he realizes his biggest weak spot was completely exposed and figured out by his rival. Nao says his biggest mistake was being scared of the cooldown risk, and that cowardice was the real reason for his defeat in that fight. Kano and Umaki prepare to charge at the leader, suggesting they jump him in a group to make him pay for all the real-world deaths. However, Nao stops them by raising his hand and states it wouldn't be fair for 4 people to jump someone who is temporarily defenseless. The young man silently agrees with his own logic, keeping a calm and very focused expression on his goals. He steps up and announces he will fight the enemy leader solo in direct combat as a form of handicap. The absurd decision leaves Kano completely stunned and confused, unable to get the Prota's generous logic. Meanwhile, Kiruri nervously observes that his pistol's cooldown bar is almost full, about to unlock. Nao smiles confidently and proposes a deal, saying that if he wins the fight, the 3 youths must officially join his guild. The enemy leader gnashes his bloody teeth in deadly hatred upon hearing the bold terms proposed by the Prota on the bridge. Kiruri points the reloaded pistol and shouts furiously, asking what on earth that damn kid thinks he is saying. However, before even managing to pull the trigger, he realizes in horror that the Prota vanished from his direct line of sight. Nao pops up upside down, landing a devastating vertical kick that connects clean with Kiruri's jaw with massive power. The kick's brutal impact crumples the rookie leader's face and sprays blood in the air, completely shattering his rival's solid defense. The Prota touches down on the floor in a nimble stance and immediately prepares for the next combined move. He spins his body fast and lands a heavy punch to the side of Kiruri's face, launching his opponent violently onto the floor. Bleeding heavily, the villain widens his eyes in horror as he realizes the Prota's movements are way faster than before. Watching it all from afar, Kano finally gets the Prota's genius strategy and lets out a mutter of total surprise. The blonde realizes that while running from the giant dragon earlier, Nao was actually stacking experience to level up. Nao reflects that owning only a basic rank weapon, he learned early on to value every single level and stat gained. The Prota recalls his past fights and how every tiny increase in system strength was crucial for his daily survival. He lands another devastating blue energy kick that hits the enemy leader and blasts him with brutal force toward the ledge. The young man touches down clean on the rooftop, but right after widens his eyes in shock, looking toward the building's edge. He realizes in panic that Kiruri completely lost consciousness from the blow's impact and is about to plummet off the high rooftop. The enemy cop's foot slips slowly off the concrete edge, starting a dangerous free fall toward the flood. Nao sprints frantically toward the edge upon noticing his opponent fainted and will die from the fall's impact if he drops from there. He reaches out his arm with all his determination in an attempt to grab him, praying to make it in time to save his rival. Nao reaches out his hand desperately to try and snag Kiruri before he drops into the dark abyss of the flood. He manages to grab the villain's wrist firm, trying to stop him from plummeting straight to certain death. However, Kiruri reveals he is conscious and cracks a sadistic grin, grabbing the young man's arm to pull him along in the fall. The villain laughs, saying the Prota is going down with him, leaving Nao super tense over that suicidal move. Nao realizes that if he uses a kick to break free now, the force of the hit will end up killing Kiruri instantly in the fall. He hesitates for a second upon noticing that if he falls with his enemy, both will drop right into the sea monster's mouth. Seeing the water god's colossal jaws open right below, the young man needs to make a drastic call in fractions of a second. In the end, Nao chooses to let go of the villain and push himself back, while Kiruri drops helpless toward the water abyss. The giant water dragon snaps its colossal jaws shut and devours Kiruri once and for all in the middle of the heavy current. Nao drops into the water right after, exhausted and still bleeding heavily from the severe thigh wound he suffered during combat. A massive water splash rises on the flooded avenue as the young man falls, finally managing to survive the terrible event. Later, back on the guild's safe rooftop, Kano inspects his own body and celebrates relieved upon realizing he is still alive. Nao remains sitting in absolute silence on the stone floor, trying to recover his strength and process everything that went down there. Kano watches the Prota in silence for a few moments with a serious and thoughtful look on his face. The blonde walks over slowly and places his hand on the young man's shoulder, thanking him sincerely for saving their lives. The Prota stares at his ally surprised to hear the humble thanks coming from the youth who used to act so hostile. Kano remembers all of Nao's heroic actions and realizes he truly is a genuinely good person, worthy of complete trust. Nao cracks a gentle, comforting smile at his new guildmates, feeling he made the right call. He advises the trio to never do bad things again from here on out, while the system confirms the survival quest's success. Sometime later, back in the real world, Nao is standing in his boss's office at a Toku Pharmaceutical, listening to the man call his name. The company manager asks worriedly if the Prota holds any grudge or resentment toward him over recent decisions. Nao blinks his eyes confused and lets out a murmur of doubt as he is still trying to get his bearings after returning from the game. He analyzes the modern, quiet office, trying to mentally calculate how much time passed since he was killed in reality. The young man asks the exact date and time of that moment, and the boss replies it is already late on April 4th, intrigued by the question. Nao calculates he lost about 18 hours of real time between his physical passing and the end of the survival quest. He apologizes laughing to his boss and asks what they were talking about before he got distracted by his thoughts. The boss explains the sketchy vitamins they sold landed in court retort, justifying the young man's natural resentment. He reveals the sales department will be dissolved due to the scandal, and that now will be transferred or can resign. Suddenly, a virtual alert sound echoes in front of the Proto, bringing a new glowing blue alert from the game system. The panel indicates the bronze rank promo quest was unlocked successfully after he officially joined a guild. Now stares at the floating screen with a locked-in look, understanding he will have to face major challenges to rank up in the game. Set on training his physical strength in reality, now requests a transfer to the company warehouse's stock and shipping section. Later, back in the flashy player city, the Cherry Blossom Petal Hunt event remains active throughout the district. The Proto walks in his suit under the massive traditional red archway, complaining that place stays way too bright and flashy. He looks around calmly, trying to spot his guildmates to start their planned activities for the night. Now recognizes the street candy vendor and tries to greet him in a friendly way, waving cheerfully at the shopkeeper. However, the shopkeeper panics upon recognizing the young man and flees in a rush, dragging his cart far away from the Proto. Now gets bummed out being ignored like that, but remembers that as a door-to-door salesman, he is already used to rejection. Kagamina-sensei approaches in sandals and casually remarks that the candy vendor's reaction is perfectly normal there. She explains the Sotengoe Guild is seen as a bunch of dangerous rebels by the influential Lantern Merchant Union. As they walk, she reveals she bought a well-equipped and safe guild house to serve as the perfect hideout for the youth trio. Now is pretty impressed by the news and asks about the place while she gestures, pointing to a red wooden door. The artist brings a glowing gold key close to the stone floor, making small magical water ripples pop up on the surface. With the spell active, the red wooden door magically transforms into a large fabric curtain bearing the guild's emblem. She pulls back the fabric smiling and explains proudly that only official members registered in the guild have permission to pass through. Now peeks through the curtain opening with eyes wide, completely blown away by what he sees on the other side of the magical entry. The young man is dazzled to see the hideout is actually a massive, high-end traditional inn under a beautiful starry sky. Kagamini-sensei proudly explains she designed and decorated the whole luxury inn exactly how she wanted after buying the plot. Suddenly, a ghostly pet monster with a halo pops up floating and greets them happily, asking them to take off their shoes. Nao's mouth drops at the creature's colossal size, realizing surprise that pet monsters are way more than just mere mascots. The floating ghost gets extremely annoyed at being called a mascot and demands respect, making Nao pretty embarrassed. It threatens to scrub the young man till his skin comes off if he disrespects it again, making the Proto apologize spooked. Kagamina-sensei leads the young man down a long wooden hallway with sliding doors in the pretty traditional inn. She stops in front of one of the doors and alerts Nao that all new guild members are gathered inside that room. Upon opening the door, Nao is bewildered to see the troublemaker trio sitting at tables, drawing intently on tablets and laptops. Kano apologizes, sweating cold, and explains they are working hard to help finish the manuscript for Kagemina's new manga. Mimori also works non-stop on her own drawing tablet, looking super exhausted and under time pressure. Umaki focuses completely on his screen to help with production, showing the group became a true team of assistants. The artist happily explains they help with illustrations in exchange for shelter, and that she plans to recoup the guild house cost with the manga. Nao widens his eyes in total shock upon hearing the astronomical price tag of 100 million yen invested in the resting spot. The Proto stares at the rookie leader with a look of pure dread, sweating cold in the face of that multi-million sum of money. He notices awkwardly that the main character of her manga is a regular salaryman who looks crazy similar to his own appearance. Kagamina-sensei reassures him that the character already existed before they met, and now sighs defeated, saying she can use his likeness with zero problem. She lies down comfortably eating chips and alerts that her goal was already met upon securing that safe guild base. The artist warns that the dangerous Thousand Lanterns Merchant Union keeps actively hunting guildless rookie players. She recalls how rookies usually suffer and endure severe bullying from those influential spirit underworld criminals. She alerts she will stay at the base to protect the trio, and says that if Nao wants to rank up, he should recruit allies and set out on the quest. Nao stares at the girl lying around lazily from afar before shutting the door, processing all the important info she passed along. Sometime later, the young man decides to unwind in one of the luxury outdoor hot springs located inside the guild inn. He enjoys the hot bath under the full moon's glow, and ponders the rumor that ranking up grants a wish fulfilled by the system. To Nao, being able to relax every day in a luxury inn like that is already a way bigger reward than any other prize. The young man thinks it would be great to live and rest there forever, but is tormented again by the scary memory of Tateshi. The blonde villain's sinister promise that he would be the next target echoes in his mind, making the Proto tremble in dread in the hot water. He checks his friend list on the virtual hologram and confirms with anxiety that Tateshi is active participating in some game quest. The Proto exchanges texts with his sister Natsu to check if she is okay and wonders what he is actually so afraid of in the afterlife. Meanwhile, the special glowing cherry blossom petal harvest quest is officially restarted across the rookie district. In the middle of the event's pink scenery, a rookie player drops to the ground terrified upon spotting the powerful Tateshi in the beginner's room. With a sweet but extremely sadistic smile on his lips, the blonde villain calmly replies he is only there to find a disciple. The villain mockingly remarks that new apprentices usually take a ton of exhausting effort to be properly trained. A giant shadow creature rises roaring fiercely behind him, but Tateshi doesn't show the slightest hint of fear facing the danger. He calmly sparks his gold-winged lighter and states that new apprentices easily lose focus if he turns his eyes away for a single second. With a destructive burst of his golden flames, the villain incinerates the monster instantly and asks the fallen guy if he accepts the test. Crying in dread and fearing for his life, the rookie begs desperately and says he will do anything, pleading with the villain not to kill him. With a bright, disturbing smile, Tateshi alerts he will give the guy a golden chance to officially become his new apprentice.
The perfect domain tells your brand story. Grab it now on Wix Domains and go from what if to what's next. Turn your ideas into a living site with tools that move with you on a platform that brings it all together. Put your name on it. Go to Wix Domains.
At Chingtong Academy, a seemingly normal day at school already has trouble brewing behind classroom doors. Their Linyu requires that 2 seniors return the medicine meant for his sick sister. Yet the battered student's enraged warning only makes his smug bullies laugh even harder. Meanwhile, Zhang Yang mocks his pathetic .62 vitality score and brags that his own reaches 3.5. All the while, Zhao Lei insists Linyu gained admission to this elite academy only because his sister is gifted. Zhang Yang dangles the stolen nutrient solution before him, openly baiting the exhausted kid, then without concern tosses the valuable bottle away and dares him to chase after it, forcing Linyu to dive in desperation before the medicine hits the classroom floor, only for the glass bottle to explode into blue totally useless shards across the floor. Also, the loss makes him freeze, because replacing that solution will cost more than he has. Even so, Zhang Yang grabs his collar before the fury can turn into a confrontation, smashing him backward into a desk while everyone nearby watches in fearful silence, then pins him beneath one shoe and states that trash belongs inside a dumpster. A warning that the faculty member is approaching eventually interrupts Zhang Yang's bullying spectacle. Therefore, both bullies stroll away, leaving their injured victim beside the shattered medicine. All the while, he calculates the overtime needed to protect his sister's already fragile health. Humiliation becomes a promise. Zhang Yang and Zhao Lei will both pay for this, yet an unfamiliar hand stretches down before he can drag himself upright alone, belonging to senior schoolmate Lin Xin, who gently asks whether he is still okay. Also, although he insists everything is fine, she takes his hand and leads him back. Their moment ends when his crematorium foreman calls, enraged that the rookie is late again. Therefore, he offers an apology to Lin Xin and sprints toward another ferocious night shift, leaving the concerned senior watching silently as he disappears beyond the classroom door. This world changed in Old Century 4832, when a cataclysm unleashed corruption across civilization, forcing human bodies beyond their limits and awakening warriors with supernatural combat abilities. Yet death became equally unnatural, turning corrupted remains into bloodthirsty reanimated corpses. Also, humanity discovered only burning the body completely could permanently stop those monsters. That nightmare fuels Lin Yu's deadly evening job. Incinerating bodies returned from the battlefront. There, heavy armor and a respirator are mandatory before anyone enters the furnace chamber, as he frantically needs 200,000 before his sister's nutrient pod subscription expires this month. She once broke through the 10,000 vitality mark and awakened ultra-rare psychokinesis during her sophomore year, only to fall into an unexplained coma on their 17th birthday, keeping her suspended inside medical fluid with no sign of waking. All the while, the talentless brother she always protected now carries responsibility for keeping her alive. Every completed cremation pays 20,000, which means 10 more corpses can cover the pod after today's medicine. As a result, he ignites the newest body and watches the furnace erupt around it. Burning away the corpse's dark corruption twists with violent force through the flames, a lethal reaction making it clear why this high-paying job attracts so few workers. One minor slip can let corruption kill the operator or transform them into another creature. Meanwhile, tonight, an unprecedented black mass all at once coils around Lin Yu's burning chamber. He stares in confusion as the shadowy strands press through the sealed furnace window, spreading across the chamber floor like living smoke seeking a host before curling around his armor and cutting off every safe escape route. Instead of pain, however, the corruption sinks straight into his body, leaving him strangely comfortable as a blue glow floods his senses and triggers a vision. The shadows replay the dead warrior's memories, showing the life burned inside that furnace. There, a young Li Yong proudly announced his plan to join the army after graduation, then entered the 38th Army Special Operations Brigade under identification HX01861121. Merciless training forged his vitality through sweat, pain, and constant physical breakthroughs until the recruit could unleash disciplined martial strikes with enough force to crack stone. When alien beasts breached Hill 301, Li Yong charged forward to defend his homeland. Still, that final conflict left him dead, ending the memory in a violent blast. Lin Yu snaps back as an unknown soul-gazing system starts initializing inside his vision, proving he somehow witnessed the complete past of the deceased warrior before the soul-devouring system activates and the corpse bound in chains abruptly begins to move. The nearby alien beast opens 4 burning eyes, its body saturated with black corruption. All the while, a floating interface analyzes the beast and leaves Lin Yu scrambling for answers, since the supposedly dead creature tears against its restraints and lunges right at him. The system identifies a reanimated level 1 alien beast, turning confusion into a sudden rush of terror. At the same time, the snarling beast tears free and brings its claws down at lethal proximity. With nowhere to run, Lin Yu grits his teeth and braces for the collision. Still, the beast sends him stumbling backwards, snapping its jaws inches from his face, then pins him beneath its weight while corruption whips around them like black fire. The system offers one lifeline, allowing him to cultivate a gift from Li Yong's memory held within the soul. He promptly chooses basic military martial arts instead of immortal will or ambitious spirit, just as the creature's restraint at last gives way under the savage struggle. A prompt orders him to raise his new combat arts proficiency through real battle. Meanwhile, the jackal hound tears free, snapping the last chain between them. Yet he twists aside with footwork impossible for his untrained body, landing smoothly across the chamber before the beast can adjust its strike. Power floods his muscles, his vision sharpens, and every enemy motion becomes easy to read, enabling him to track the next claw swipe before it fully begins. Then slip past the strike while the beast gouges another trench through the floor. That narrow escape proves the upgrade is real, though one mistake could still end everything, as Li Yong's military training now guides his body with raw fighting instinct. When the incensed beast charges again, Lin Yu stops retreating and rushes straight forward, cutting inside its reach before those huge claws can close around him, then driving a ferocious punch into the monster's skull with his borrowed technique, sending the reanimated jackal hound crashing headfirst into the reinforced floor. There it lies shocked while the teenager cannot help wondering when he became this ridiculously strong. The system credits basic military martial arts with 10% progress, boosting stamina and vulnerability detection, although he still has a feeling that unusual blue light triggered this heaven-defying encounter. A notification detects another corpse close at hand and marks soul devouring as available again. As a result, the newly empowered employee resolves to test the gift on the dead jackal hound. First, he seals Li Yong's remains inside the incineration furnace for proper disposal, offers silent thanks to the deceased warrior for his memories, and hopes he can rest in peace, then heads toward the abomination's corpse, hoping the same enigmatic reaction will repeat. The instant his hand touches its fur, black corruption surges savagely into his arm, spreading through his body until blood reaches his mouth and strength leaves his legs. Meanwhile, golden light consumes his eyes and the beast's savage instincts overwhelm him. Excruciating pain tears a scream from Lin Yu as the foreign memory held within the soul forces itself open, exposing the jackal hound's life among innumerable monsters hunting across a burning battlefield. Hunger drove the beast to maul humans and gorge itself whenever prey appeared. Even so, no amount of violence satisfied it, only creating an endless demand for more flesh. The vision releases him coughing, shaken by the alien beast's ferocious memories. Meanwhile, at last grasping what border warriors endure against these monsters on a daily basis. After reading the level 1 soul, the system offers claw skill, devour technique, or chaos consciousness. All the while, he deduces that cremation's strange blue glow unlocks soul devouring for touching another corpse later. Devour technique gets rejected promptly because eating people is an upgrade nobody needs. As a result, Lin Yu selects the claw skill he previously witnessed working in real combat. Black-red energy promptly wraps his fingers, reshaping them into savage armored talons until both hands enter a full claw state built specifically for melee combat. Claw skill starts at level 1, boosting hand attacks 5% and causing laceration damage. Meanwhile, soul devour goes on a 12-hour cooldown before another corpse can be processed. Lin Yu dismisses the transformation, understanding this overpowered system needs careful testing, especially after the combat menu displays separate options to use or absorb the technique. He figures absorbing another copy might stack its power instead of replacing it. Yet without a duplicate available, that experiment will have to wait. Another screen confirms soul devour itself is only level 1, which means the system is probably capable of upgrading despite refusing to explain how that happens. Rather than chase mysteries, the practical kid focuses on abilities he can improve promptly, choosing to grind basic military martial arts while this private chamber remains available. Li Yong's physique tempering memories guide his opening stance and every transition between attacks, enabling him to drive a clean punch forward with disciplined speed and alignment, then chain together kicks, turns, and grounded movements far beyond routine school training. Though the sequence is difficult, inherited experience makes each motion feel practiced innumerable times. As a result, he controls his breathing and pushes through the strain without breaking rhythm. The protective coat is removed as repeated drills build heat and demand freer movement, exposing smoother, denser vitality circulation than the basic physique tempering technique taught at school. Also, that immediate difference has him grinning before launching straight into another repetition. By the next morning, his all-night training leaves him asleep at his classroom desk until the faculty member wakes him and warns that college admissions exams are only 2 months away. Lin Yu offers an apology without explaining the creature confrontation, the system, or his underground training session. Meanwhile, the disappointed instructor dismisses class while secretly regretting his wasted potential. Truthfully, excitement kept the worn-out teenager practicing military martial arts until sunrise. However, all that effort raised proficiency by only 1%, bringing it to 11. Live combat clearly works faster, making the unexplored absorb option even more tempting, when Zhao Lei interrupts by mocking his future and dragging his comatose sister into it. The thug sounds confident, though the once weak student's transformed physique and presence discreetly unsettle him. All the while, Lin Jin steps between them and calls Zhao Lei out for going too far. Lin Yu simply leaves without looking back, warning her not to catch stupidity by standing nearby. Also, Lin Jin spots that one night somehow made him handsomer and noticeably better built. Incensed at being ignored, Zhao Lei chases after him with another barrage of insults. Therefore, Lin Yu coolly invites the loudmouth into the martial training room for a real match. Students gather because Zhao Lei's 2.7 vitality renders him a quasi-warrior with specialized fighting instruction. Yet both fighters accept the academy's rule that free sparring happens at their own risk. Word spreads across campus, drawing a crowd eager to watch 2 seniors at last throw down. Meanwhile, Zhao Lei squares up with friends behind him, and his adversary enters alone. One supporter urges the stronger thug to finish everything with a single punch. Meanwhile, Zhao Lei plans to replace absent Zhang Yang by testing his training on today's victim. Lin Yu answers the posturing with one cold sentence, calling him Zhang Yang's obedient lapdog, which sends Zhao Lei charging forward with an incensed punch aimed straight at his face. Lin Jin shouts a warning, expecting the supposedly weak student to be flattened, yet he catches Zhao Lei's wrist one-handed and stops the assault totally. Golden eyes lock onto the thug as Lin Yu repeats his promise of making both tormentors regret everything, leaving Zhao Lei panic-stricken by strength that should be impossible for someone with 0.62 vitality. A sharp wrist turn drags the quasi-warrior off balance before he can pull away. Meanwhile, a compact counter-strike crashes into his face with military precision, followed by a punishing combination that demolishes Zhao Lei's defense and sprays blood through the air. The final blow launches him across the hall in front of all the speechless onlookers inside. He lands battered, clutching the empty space left by one missing tooth. He warns that another insult toward his sister will cost far more than dental work, then grabs his backpack and turns and departs without giving the humiliated bully another glance. Humiliation twists Zhao Lei's face as his hand finds a discarded combat knife nearby. Also, he charges from behind, abandoning sparring rules while screaming for Lin Yu to die. The system-enhanced combatant senses the killing intent, one eye flashing red over his shoulder, just before Zhao Lei swings the blade downward with both hands and no restraint. Claw scale erupts in black-red armor, intercepting the ambush and hurling its enemy aside, leaving Zhao Lei trapped on the floor beside talons capable of tearing through him. Meanwhile, Lin Yu coolly questions whether the panic-stricken thug still wants to continue. The crowd erupts over his transformed hand, debating whether it is a combat weapon, combat art, or corruption. Still, he retracts the claw, retrieves his bag, and leaves Zhao Lei stammering behind him. The humiliated bully can do nothing but threaten that Brother Zhang will get even. All the while, the once weak student walks through the gathered students and replies that he will be waiting. Night returns him to the crematorium beneath another quiet moon. Inside, Soul Devour's 12-hour cooldown has expired and new abilities are available again. He enters eager to discover today's gains, only to find his manager following close behind, demanding a respectful greeting before the laborer can even reach the furnace chamber. The older man asserts the rookie owes him gratitude for receiving this hazardous work, although the kid knows nobody else wanted it and only the high pay keeps him here. Another large shipment of bodies has arrived, so the manager orders him to stop slacking, then leaves him alone with the cold storage door open before him. Inside wait an alien beast and two dead servicemen, all prepared for cremation, adding to a troubling increase in military corpses arriving from the battlefront. The Jackal Hound's memories already show defensive positions being overwhelmed by monsters, raising the terrifying possibility that humanity's border is approaching a major collapse. Since official news reports nothing, Lin Yu cannot confirm whether that threat is real, yet uncertainty only strengthens his resolve to gain power as fast as he can. He says he is sorry to the first dead soldier before placing a hand upon the body. Also, Soul Devour pulls blue-black energy upward as another memory starts unfolding. Recognizing a uniform like Li Yong's, he hopes this soldier carried the same combat discipline. All the while, the absorbed soul settles and the system finishes processing its martial experience. The deceased is first-class soldier Wang Muyong, offering military combat art, a corrupted badge, or sacrificial courage. Meanwhile, Lin Yu chooses military combat art at once, aiming for a duplicate combat art. This time he selects absorb instead of use, testing whether matching abilities can combine, which upgrades beginner military combat art to level 2 with 10% progress and 20% physical enhancement. Better still, the combat art now reads exposed flaws and predicts an assault path half a second early, showing repeated absorption can directly power level abilities whenever matching souls become available. His celebration ends when Soul Devour instantly begins a new 12-hour cooldown, reminding him that this ultimate cheat code cannot be spammed through a whole morgue. The teenage furnace worker returns the body to its gurney, planning to finish work before training again. Far away on the frontier, fresh soldiers and alien beasts cover another devastated battlefield. At the same time, transport crews cautiously load a warrior whose shattered neck barely remains attached. Multiple trucks receive heaps of creature corpses while exhausted workers clear the destruction, until the first remains truck is declared full and ordered away from the front, carrying its deadly cargo into the darkness before anyone observes movement behind the tailgate. A purple limb slowly rises over the truck bed as the vehicle continues down the road, then one supposedly dead alien beast opens a glowing red eye beneath the pile, followed by another awakening head. Verifying corruption is reanimating the entire shipment. Back at Qingtung Academy, students gather in the hallway as another confrontation starts taking shape. Zhang Yang corners Lin Xin and announces that he will repeat his demand only once, ordering her to bring Lin Yu onto the sports field after school to kneel before Zhao Lei. If she refuses, the silver-haired senior warns that she may not leave this corridor walking. Still, Lin Xin defends her friend, insisting Zhao Lei attacked first and the group are bullies. The bandaged loser insists she conspired with his rival and laughed while he was beaten, an accusation she rejects instantly despite being surrounded by Zhang Yang's crew. One lackey snatches the blue notebook she has been clutching against her chest, taunting that her nervous reaction proves its contents were prepared for their target. Lin Jin lunges to recover it, only for another hand to restrain her arm. Meanwhile, the thief flips through meticulously highlighted concepts and detailed examples. He mocks all that effort as useless because helping trash cannot change what the boy is, then rips the notebook apart and scatters weeks of handwritten pages across the floor. Zhao Lei grabs the incensed girl's wrist, calling her punishment the cost of interfering, until Zhang Yang orders his subordinate to release her and steps across the ruined notes. He belittles her tears over a mere notebook, cowering behind the shaken senior, then grips her chin and asserts pleasing him matters more than spending time with trash. Lin Xin answers by biting his thumb hard enough to escape. As a result, the enraged thug strikes her across the face and calls her ungrateful. Zhao Lei applauds the strike, treating her resistance as disrespect toward Brother Zhang. Meanwhile, she mourns the study notes she spent half a month preparing for her junior. Refusing to lose every page, Lin Jin dives toward the last intact section. Still, Zhang Yang dismisses her resistance as ignorance of what is supposedly best for her. He slams the senior onto the corridor floor before she can recover the notes, boasting that superior vitality makes his strength and speed unbeatable anywhere in school. Since she dared make physical contact, Zhang Yang pledges a lesson she will remember, then orders 3 subordinates to strike together and offers responsibility if they break her. The first lackey enthusiastically winds up a punch, claiming this is punishment for opposing Brother Zhang Van, only for Lin Yu's hand to clamp around his wrist before the blow reaches her. He demands to know whether 4 guys attacking 1 girl possess any shame, even though the injured Lin Xin urges him to leave before this confrontation becomes worse. Instead, he twists the enemy's arm until the lackey collapses screaming beside him. Also, Zhang Yang welcomes his arrival, pleased that hunting for the target is unnecessary. Among the scraps, he finds her warrior assessment notes and handwritten encouragement addressed to him. As a result, he resolves these bullies are rabid dogs that need their teeth removed. Zhang Yang laughs at the supposedly weak student's confidence and steps forward to silence it. Yet a lightning-fast counter smashes the silver-haired senior across the face, followed by a compact body strike that folds him before his crew can react. Lin Yu completes the combination by launching Qingtung Academy's strongest senior across the corridor, then pledges to repay every humiliation inflicted on Lin Xin at twice the intensity, leaving surrounding classmates speechless that yesterday's victim challenged Zhao Lei and Zhang Yang back-to-back. Zhao Lei screams for Brother Zhang to beat the challenger to death. Meanwhile, the rising senior admits this former punching bag all at once developed an interesting backbone. Rather than finish things inwardly, Zhang Yang proposes a public duel 3 days later at Central Training Ground, promising an apology, compensation, and permanent peace if the supposed weakling somehow wins. The official Qingtung Academy application lands between them before the losing condition is revealed. Defeat means kneeling before the entire school, admitting he is trash and dropping out voluntarily. Students recognize a public duel as Zhang Yang's plan to destroy his rival totally. Meanwhile, Lin Xin begs him to remember that his comatose sister still needs him. Others compare Zhang Yang's 3.5 vitality against Lin Yu's score below 1 and call victory impossible. Meanwhile, Zhao Lei suggests kneeling 3 times now might earn a little mercy. Ignoring every warning, Lin Yu accepts the duel but adds one condition of his own, demanding the entire match be recorded and broadcast publicly instead of disappearing behind academy walls. He signs his name as challenger, making the agreement official before the assembled crowd, as Lin Yu wants everyone to remember the outcome long after those 3 days. Zhang Yang takes the completed form, amused by confidence he considers suicidal. Meanwhile, the challenger vows the broadcast will establish perfectly who belongs in the trash. That evening, returns him to the crematorium with a deadline hanging over every shift. There, he checks into the secure work area under the foreman's watch, planning to refine military combat art or absorb new abilities throughout the next 3 days, since losing this duel would cost his education, reputation, and only path forward. Tonight's batch was redirected because even crematorium 1 could not process everything alone, which worries Lin Yu since that facility normally handles the most formidable alien beasts. His manager abruptly praises the management, then flatters the laborer whose vitality now leads this facility, only to snap back into orders when the young employee pauses instead of entering his assigned hall. He heads inside without arguing, keeping his attention on the abilities needed for victory, all the while inwardly roasting the old man's attitude for changing faster than a flip page. In Incineration Chamber 7, a muscular laborer drags another huge beast toward the furnace, when a violent disturbance tears through the chamber before the body reaches its destination. Black corruption coils around the employee's throat, leaving him helpless and horrified. At the same time, the alien alien beast rises behind him with glowing eyes and jaws already open. A scream and burst of blood mark the reanimated monster's first assault, before the sealed chamber falls abruptly silent and hides whatever remains inside. Next door in Chamber 6, our crematorium rookie pauses after hearing what sounded like someone screaming, yet the returning silence causes him to doubt himself and resume the deadly night duty. Every corpse in his chamber belongs to an alien beast, eliminating any easy military technique duplicates, although fewer dead servicemen would at least mean better news for the front line. One tail abruptly catches his eye because its scales no longer match their earlier color. Meanwhile, the spreading change confirms corruption is actively transforming the supposedly dead body. Lin Yu watches the scales darken across the tail, recognizing the threat one moment too late. At the same time, the reanimated beast erupts upward and charges straight at him through black energy. Lin Yu steadies himself as the awakened beast barrels forward before he can reach the door, then dives beneath a crushing sweep that nearly removes his head along with the wall. Yet when the beast lands, its purple body folds against the tiles and begins fading, until the entire creature disappears from sight, leaving no obvious target anywhere in the chamber. The disguise exposes its trick. This monster entered camouflaged as rotting tissue on another corpse, indicating stealth beasts infiltrated the crematorium inside the supposedly secure battlefront shipment. If the rookie cannot stop this one quickly, every connected chamber could become a slaughterhouse. Therefore, he closes his eyes, amplifies every sense, and trusts military combat art to find a flaw. Breathing, floor pressure, and faint air movement map the invisible hunter's position across the hall until one golden eye opens and he eventually locks onto the hidden target. He slams the nearby control panel, sealing the chamber before the abomination can escape, then whips a metal restraint ring through the exact space where its head should be. Also, the impact reveals a purple skull, forcing the camouflaged beast back into view. Enraged, it abandons stealth and launches its full weight toward him with claws extended. Still, claw scale erupts in time, meeting the strike with armored talons in a violent collision. Corrupted blood sprays across him as he counters, raising the terrifying possibility of infection. However, level 2 combat art predicted the assault path, leaving only a shallow scratch across his neck. An emergency broadcast identifies phantom scale stealth beasts in rooms 3, 7, 14, and 15. All the while, a heavy silhouette appears beyond his doorway as the facility orders immediate evacuation. Still, sensing no supernatural fluctuations outside, he resolves the corridor is temporarily safe to enter. Lin Yu follows the silent presence and finds where that earlier scream truly originated, finding the Chamber 7 employee collapsed in blood before any rescue could reach him. That corpse proves multiple monsters entered undetected, leaving their total number entirely unknown. Also, several horrified employees all at once race past with a whole pack pursuing them. Lin Yu throws his metal restraint toward the nearest beast, choosing rescue before self-preservation. Meanwhile, the spinning armament smashes its skull sideways, buying the fleeing workers valuable distance. Someone ahead opens the central safe chamber and urgently waves every survivor inside. Meanwhile, the rookie and the others sprint down the corridor with several monsters closing fast. Knowing he cannot defeat that entire pack alone, the young combatant prioritizes reaching reinforced shelter. Then another employee grabs him and orders the supposedly disposable rookie to cover their retreat, openly calling the student trash while using his body as payment for everyone else's safety. The betrayal leaves the young employee directly beneath snapping jaws as a camouflaged beast attacks. However, his enhanced prediction catches the hidden movement, allowing one desperate rolling dodge. Instead of helping, the cowards race through safety and demand the door close behind them, compelling him to shout for another second as he struggles back toward the entrance. The reinforced barrier slams shut right before him, sealing every selfish survivor inside. Meanwhile, someone declares that his death means one less burden, while Lin Yu curses their abandonment. He pounds the locked door and requires they reopen it before the monsters arrive. Still, repeated blows earn absolutely no answer from those protected on the opposite side. Cornered between betrayal and an approaching pack, Lin Yu's expression hardens into lethal resolve. 4 phantom scale beasts emerge together, and their coordinated formation makes every escape route suicidal. As a result, he abandons the sealed door and accepts that fighting back is his only option. Battlefront warriors face worse terror daily, yet still overcome terror and meet their enemies head on. Also, inheriting their hard-earned skills means he declines to shame the courage behind them. More importantly, his sister is still waiting, giving Lin Yu an absolute reason to survive. As a result, he charges first and kicks the nearest beast before their formation can fully tighten. The monster barely registers that opening blow, but the brawler never expected brute force alone, since concentrated perception now exposes subtle energy fluctuations moving beneath its corrupted body. His improved military combat art can track those changes whenever he focuses totally, enabling him to slip past a coordinated counterattack while reading multiple beasts simultaneously. One concentrated fluctuation reveals a vulnerable point, and our brawler immediately commits everything there, driving his transformed claw through the beast's exposed center with a punishing spray of blood. Another abomination attacks before he can recover, turning each kill into the next opening, yet he keeps moving, tears through its abdomen, and declines to surrender momentum. The second monster crashes beside its partner as the remaining pair prepare another coordinated rush. All the while, claw skill spreads farther up his arm, sharpening into a huge armored armament. He buries those talons through another skull, dropping a third abomination at arm's reach, then counts 2 enemies remaining despite the bloody bodies already covering the corridor. Both survivors all at once vanish, hiding so totally that even their physical outlines disappear. Meanwhile, their stronger concealment erases every energy fluctuation he previously depended upon detecting. He knows both hunters remain nearby, so lowering his guard would invite an invisible execution. Still, panic cannot reveal them, forcing Lin Yu to quiet his breathing and wait patiently. With eyes closed, he separates every minuscule corridor sound from his own pounding heartbeat, until faint movement and dripping blood begin marking one concealed beast's approach behind him. A soft scrape eventually betrays its position, giving the cornered rookie the opening he needed. Meanwhile, his golden eye snaps open as he announces that the hiding game is finished. He lunges straight through the camouflage before the surprise beast can change direction, then punches his transformed claw into its face, drawing another heavy burst of blood. The second hunter strikes from behind during that commitment, perfectly as their coordination intended. Meanwhile, he sacrifices his raised left arm to stop its lethal ambush from landing. Talons rip the limb apart, leaving him crouched over a rapidly spreading pool of blood. Still, even with his left hand nearly ruined, that painful defense created a countermeasure. The wounded enemy retreats and disappears again, believing camouflage restores its advantage. Meanwhile, our survivor pledges this time the beast will never escape his watchful eyes. Fresh droplets descend from empty air, exposing movement that perfect invisibility cannot conceal. Meanwhile, he follows their trail upward to discover the abomination clinging above the corridor. Its red eye widens as the supposedly wounded human looks right at its hiding place, as he deliberately covered those claws with his own blood during the ambush. The exposed monster drops from the ceiling, committing its entire body to one finishing strike. All the while, the survivor charges beneath it with both monsters' claws ready for the collision. Their attacks cross in midair, but the brawler's blood-red talons carve totally through the beast. Meanwhile, he crashes down alive while its severed body scatters behind him across the floor. Exhaustion instantly overwhelms the battered rookie, yet he in desperation insists that falling here is impossible, as escape and his waiting sister still demand whatever strength remains inside him. Lin Yu manages one decisive crawl across the blood-soaked corridor before his body gives out. Meanwhile, a severed purple tail twitches among the remains, proving the massacre truly ended. His eyes close beside the creatures he defeated, leaving those corrupted claws fully exposed, just as an armed military rescue unit reaches the corridor 30 meters from safety. Their white-haired captain warns everyone about a suspected abomination and orders maximum combat readiness until a masked soldier spots something surprising beyond the scattered alien remains. One unconscious teenager lies among numerous mutilated beasts, making the entire scene difficult to believe. Meanwhile, the sheltered workers eventually emerge and keenly ask whether every abomination was eliminated. The captain confirms temporary safety, sends one team towards survivors and assigns another to investigate, then studies wounds too irregular and savage to have come from unremarkable military weapons. A soldier abruptly reports that the blood-covered teenager remains alive, drawing the captain closer, yet a horrified survivor points toward the rookie's visibly transformed hand instead of offering help. Black corruption still coils around orange talons, making his mutation resemble an infected creature. Also, armed soldiers argue they must execute him unconscious before any complete transformation occurs. The captain halts them, after noticing those monstrous fingers slowly returning to human form, even though the cowardly workers demand immediate death, claiming everyone will be doomed if Lin awakens. The loudest coward inwardly fears his victim will expose how deliberately he arranged that abandonment. Still, the captain silences him with a blade and vows a further word means death. Flesh and scales trapped between Lin Yu's fingers prove he personally killed 4 phantom scales, an achievement the masked soldier admits would challenge their entire military squad acting together. Still desperate, the guilty employee cites the student's measured .68 vitality and firmly requests precautionary execution. Meanwhile, the captain realizes that anyone so weak who defeated 4 beasts could be a legendary prodigy. He confirms true corruption never reverses, which means the restored human hand eliminates any infection concern. Also, the exposed coward instantly pretends his murderous pressure came from concern for everyone. The captain takes the injured survivor into military custody, orders formation, and assumes responsibility for cleanup before our wounded hero is transported from the crematorium to a modern hospital. He awaits awakens to steady dripping machinery, briefly disoriented by the unfamiliar medical chamber, then sits upright and understands someone brought him to safety after he lost consciousness. The white-haired captain stands nearby and assures Lin Yu that no peril remains, although the patient promptly requires an identity before trusting this imposing stranger. He introduces himself as Chen Zhen, captain of the district's corruption cleanup squad, then sincerely offers an apology because their delayed response left the rookie fighting alone overnight. Lin Yu accepts that the invasion happened too abruptly for perfect rescue timing. Meanwhile, Chen credits him with killing 4 phantom scales, including 1 elite-level monster. Impressed by both courage and potential, the captain offers the young survivor warrior status within their squad. Meanwhile, the young survivor can barely believe such an official invitation is truly meant for him. Chen observes that instant excitement and asks why becoming a warrior matters so deeply, prompting him to remember countless monsters and the brave fighters arriving dead at his workplace. With casualties rising, waiting helplessly for destruction now feels worse than risking himself against it, especially when warrior strength could let him protect his sister and remaining family personally. Chen approves that answer, but explains joining requires passing the official warrior selection trial first, all the while secretly recognizing rare strength, self-sacrifice, and massive potential inside this injured teenager. Participation normally requires vitality above 3, which our underdog cannot satisfy through standard qualification. As a result, Chen hands him a captain's recommendation that bypasses the entry requirement totally. The selection trial begins in 1 month, giving the future warrior limited time for serious preparation. Also, Chen leaves after ordering him to recover, train hard, and arrive ready. Warrior status offers elite medical resources, possibly showing an actual cure for his sister. Then the system presents memory held within the soul, harvested from yesterday's elite phantom scale. 3 cultivation rewards appear: scale armor defense, claw enhancement, or aura camouflage, forcing Lin Yu to compare survival, direct damage, and stealth before committing his only choice. Scale armor could withstand punishment, covering the deadly weakness exposed during that corridor clash. Meanwhile, claw enhancement would push his already terrifying close-range strike power even higher. Aura camouflage offers the near invisibility that made the elite beast almost impossible to track. Meanwhile, he recalls only spilled blood betrayed it, making this option nearly flawless. He chooses aura camouflage, prioritizing unpredictable movement over another straightforward offensive upgrade, then learns its active duration depends entirely upon the host's available physical stamina. The new technique hides Lin Yu's aura and blends his body straight into surrounding environments, though his shimmering outline proves this first attempt still needs considerable control and practice. Aura camouflage begins at level 1, rendering him translucent while stationary and blurry during movement. As a result, while Soul Devar remains unavailable, Lin Yu commits every recovery hour toward mastering current abilities. Proper concealment could become the decisive trump card in his upcoming duel against Zhang Yang. Still, outdoor practice reveals camouflage means becoming part of the environment, not merely turning invisible. His unstable aura cannot fool even a harmless bird, exposing how badly energy keeps leaking. As a result, the young man meditates beneath the mountain and compresses that power with abomination-like precision. Repetition steadily expands both concealment range and effectiveness, demonstrating the discipline method works, until only half his reflection remains visible when he raises one hand toward the mirror. That hand disappears entirely, demonstrating fine control has spread beyond simple full-body activation. Meanwhile, he pushes the remaining half toward invisibility without losing concentration or exhausting himself. Success raises level 1 aura camouflage proficiency by 5%, verifying measurable improvement. All the while, the teenager celebrates unlocking the complete concealment he frantically needed ahead of the duel. He grabs Chen's recommendation and vows Zhang Yang a painful lesson about who is truly trash. At the same time, Qingtong Academy's packed training ground gathers for the public match, choosing expulsion and humiliation. Lin Xin worries because her friend disappeared on leave for multiple days without explaining anything. Meanwhile, Zhang's grinning allies reveal secret stage traps designed to ensure their target never returns. Zhang Yang enters surrounded by blazing power, deliberately turning his arrival into pure intimidation, then mocks the absent challenger and cannot help wondering whether the supposed weakling became horrified enough to withdraw. Even school staff assume the reckless underdog has at last earned his inevitable expulsion, when a dark silhouette all at once fills the arena entrance and silences that premature judgment. Lin Yu walks onto the stage at once, carrying confidence nobody recalls him possessing, however, instantly observes suspicious discoloration along floorboards positioned around the platform's outer edge. Zhang welcomes his last-minute victim and sneers that dread nearly kept him away. All the while, the young fighter calmly suggests Zhang start planning how to kneel and apologize instead. Enraged at that confidence, the senior explodes forward and launches the opening punch all at once. Still, he slips aside so smoothly that Zhang's heavy fist strikes nothing. A rapid combination follows, and every blow misses as military combat art predicts each path. Though Zhang's allies keep cheering, convinced the huge vitality gap guarantees eventual destruction. Their hidden plan activates when Lin Yu deliberately steps onto one differently colored pressure tile, allowing Zhang to corner him above the trap and prepare what appears unavoidable punishment. Flame spirals around the senior's body, concentrating his full vitality into one descending fist. Meanwhile, he vows that empowered strike will at last launch his adversary straight from the arena. Instead, he smiles because this perfectly committed strike is precisely what he wanted. Then activates aura camouflage, disappears from under the punch, and passes behind Zhang unseen. Lin Xin and the entire audience erupt when the supposed weakling reveals supernatural concealment. All the while, Zhang angrily dismisses invisibility as a cheap trick incapable of changing their outcome. He swings wildly through empty space and commands the invisible challenger to reveal himself promptly, only for an invisible counterattack to smash his ribs and force out a shocked scream. That strike triggers blue crystal armor across Zhang's body, and his embarrassment becomes murderous fury. As a result, he orders an accomplice to activate every hidden mechanism and physically force his rival out. Electrified fencing rises around the platform, transforming an official school duel into a sealed cage. Meanwhile, flames ignite along its boundaries, removing every conventional escape route from Zhang. The senior announces there is nowhere left to hide as fire surrounds his trapped rival. Meanwhile, a supervising faculty member protests that these lethal modifications blatantly violate the clash rules. Zhang answers that inside this arena he personally resolves what rules exist, then forces him back through blazing heat with another armor-powered offensive rush. Believing he has located the concealed target, Zhang attacks with increasingly vicious confidence. Still, the challenger kicks from broken flooring and barely escapes the strike's explosive impact. A direct strength contest remains impossible, so Lin Yu must identify one weakness and exploit everything. All the while, Zhang charges again beneath complete crystal protection that seemingly leaves nothing exposed. He sees energy circulating through the entire armor and searches frantically for its origin, until enhanced perception identifies a concentrated blue core shining beneath Zhang's chest. The source sits inside his dantian, providing one vulnerable target capable of collapsing everything. Therefore, the once weak student activates camouflage again and slips beyond the senior's rushing fist. Zhang spins in alarm when his adversary disappears for the second time mid-assault, then shouts that only worthless trash depends upon such supposedly underhanded tricks. He braces inside the cage, unaware his invisible adversary is by now approaching from the blind side. Meanwhile, Lin Yu drives a corruption-wrapped strike right toward the armor's hidden energy source. Even claw skill cannot pierce that brilliant crystal shell, stopping his best cutting assault totally. Meanwhile, Zhang boasts this A-rank defense will remain untouchable until the challenger's next life. He retreats before the senior can retaliate, recognizing another opening requires a different method, since visible marks prove limited damage absorption, making repeated blunt combat art strikes his answer. Zhang watches meticulously now, convinced calm observation will expose the camouflage trick's fatal weakness. Meanwhile, Lin Yu attacks from above with a spinning kick aimed toward that central protection. The impact drives Zhang backward, but still leaves his glowing armor by all appearances intact, encouraging another smug taunt about whether the invisible underdog has eventually exhausted every option. He instantly circles into another heavy punch before the senior can fully reset. However, Zhang spots the approaching energy fluctuation and at last senses where camouflage is moving. Believing that subtle disturbance exposes everything, he announces that he has discovered the troublesome skill's flaw. Still, he lands another concentrated strike directly over the dantian core. Zhang laughs that even perfect targeting cannot overcome an A-rank defense through raw force. Also, Lin Yu answers that challenge by rushing forward to hit precisely the same point again. A second focused blow slams into the blue chest plate before Zhang's counter can intercept, producing the armor's first spreading crack and demonstrating merciless repetition can break its protection. Shock replaces arrogance when Zhang sees routine fists damaging his supposedly invincible crystal shell. Therefore, he catches his rival's wrist and raises one knee for a ferocious close-range punishment. The senior insists every little trick is finished while maintaining an unbreakable grip. Still, our brawler predicts the incoming strike and prepares to endure it for his own counterattack. Zhang's knee slams into his stomach, delivering precisely the ferocious punishment everyone expected. Even so, our brawler absorbs that pain because the perfect counterattack must happen right now. His free fist crashes into the weakened dantian plate, deepening every crack across Zhang's armor. Meanwhile, the senior staggers as blue protection begins failing around his chest and shoulders. Still arrogant, Zhang calls invisibility cowardice and insists his challenger lacks any warrior's worth. Therefore, Lin Yu pledges the conflict will end without another disappearance or sneak assault. assault. Both hands transform into blazing red claws as Lin Yu announces one decisive final exchange, all the while Zhang mocks the same talents that previously failed to scratch his defense. They charge straight toward each other, at last abandoning every feint and evasive option. Meanwhile, Zhang launches a full power kick intended to remove the once weak student from school permanently. His leg swings down with overwhelming force, by all appearances catching the once weak student entirely exposed. Still, level 2 combat art predicted this killing path before Zhang even began moving. Lin Yu slips inside its arc and drives both claws into the already fractured Dantian plate, leaving Zhang frozen in disbelief as his invincible protection at last gives way. Cracks race across every crystal segment, severing the energy circulation holding them together until the entire A-rank armor explodes outward in a spectacular storm of blue shards. Zhang collapses beside the flames, unable to understand how someone he called trash defeated him. All the while, Lin Yu stands above his fallen thug and coolly says neither combatant was special. The senior can merely glare upward, humiliated before the packed academy audience he invited. Also, a last strike plants him face first into the stage beneath the victor's triumphant stance. The audience erupts over a 0.68 vitality student defeating Zhang Yang despite every rigged advantage. Also, Lin Jin smiles through relief, proudly insisting she always knew her junior would win. From the private stands, Zhang's father and academy board director Zhang Zhongguo watch furiously. Meanwhile, academic affairs dean Li Minyu accepts responsibility and pledges investigation during next week's examination. Zhang Zhongguo requires punishment for every rule violation, clearly targeting the student who humiliated his son. Also, the nervous dean assures his mighty superior that a satisfying outcome will be delivered. Their conversation leaves an unmistakable warning that the young soul devourer offended people capable of crushing students. Still, outside the arena, a sudden communicator alert redirects the young brawler toward his next opportunity. Chen Zhen assigns him part-time work at Crematorium 1, where higher risk remains require serious caution. Meanwhile, Lin Yu accepts because better pay comes with stronger souls and potentially stronger abilities. Since the shift begins later, he heads toward the hospital to visit his sister first, arriving at City Central Hospital where her specialized life support treatment continues. Behind sealed glass, he heads toward the nutrient pod containing his motionless last family member. Meanwhile, watches his bandaged sister breathe through tubes while machinery keeps her suspended. He raises one hand toward the glass and softly tells her that he made it back at last, remembering childhood bullies who mocked his pathetic vitality and predicted lifelong failure. Back then, his fearless sister charged those boys and threatened to beat every tormentor apart, then warned anyone touching her little brother again would answer directly to her. She always restored his confidence, telling him he remained the best regardless of insults. As a result, he pledges to cure her before hospital staff request a serious conversation about her condition. Lin Yu turns from the nutrient pod, promptly recognizing that the approaching footsteps carry terrible news, also gives the attending doctor permission to explain everything without softening the truth. Corruption-tainted food originally caused her illness, while current support maintains only basic vital signs, yet the infection recently invaded internal organs so aggressively that 6 months may remain. He reels because medication controlled everything until this sudden catastrophic deterioration. Also, the doctor clarifies prolonged treatment probably allowed her corruption to develop resistance. Desperate, the worried brother demands another option and vows to attempt absolutely everything for her survival. As a result, the physician admits one possible method exists, although obtaining it appears entirely unrealistic. A national treasure called the Sunstone could suppress corruption and halt further deterioration. Even so, the government refused it even when his prodigy sister first collapsed, making approval impossible now. Lin Yu silently questions why the state abandoned someone whose talent once outshone a whole generation, then vows neither government refusal nor impossible odds will stop him from securing a cure. That evening brings him to towering Crematorium 1 for his hazardous new assignment. Inside, the teenage furnace worker reports directly to Chamber 3 and enters its unusually quiet processing chamber. Since the Sunstone belongs to the state, becoming a warrior now represents his fastest route, even though 3 human bodies including medical personnel make this batch stranger than expected. He respectfully addresses the deceased seniors before beginning, unaware one corpse is by now moving. Also, black corruption raises the nearest body behind him while his attention remains forward. The transformed corpse rises with red eyes, torn flesh, and a terrifying skeletal grin, compelling him to spin around as that fresh reanimation fills the hall. The young fighter promptly recognizes another reanimated corpse, but this human rival feels unusually deadly. Meanwhile, the corrupted giant lunges with far greater speed and discipline than mindless beasts. One huge fist crashes downward, compelling him to evade before the tiles shatter. Meanwhile, the follow-up swing nearly catches him while he scrambles beyond its immense reach. He understands this body belonged to a warrior whose trained strength survived death, though corruption erased speech and consciousness, leaving only hungry growls behind its assault. The fallen battlefront warrior has become precisely the abomination he once fought to destroy. Meanwhile, that final sacrifice makes Lin Yu determined to end his desecration with respect. The corpse charges again, combining monstrous power with aggressive movement learned through combat, then slams a practiced blow into the employee's raised defense and forces him back. Military combat art remains inside its muscle memory even without conscious thought or judgment, yet fixed training patterns also reveal the next straight punch through stance and balance. Lin Yu slips outside that predicted line as the corpse commits its entire weight forward, blocks another heavy strike at the final instant, and keeps reading the sequence, then punches through its unstable lower stance, disrupting the foundation beneath those formidable attacks. With the pattern broken, the combatant recognizes the one moment when a finishing counter becomes possible. Meanwhile, drives a crushing hook into the warrior's exposed head before recovery can begin. The impact whips the corrupted body around and slams it savagely into the floor. There, he silently asks forgiveness from the deceased senior he was forced to strike. All the while, the defeated corpse lies motionless again, its remaining corruption hissing into the chamber. Instead of fading, corruption twists the fallen body again and swells every exposed muscle grotesquely, making him retreat as the supposedly finished clash enters an unforeseen second phase. The former warrior rises totally transformed, towering like a purple-skinned creature rather than any corpse. Also, the young man recognizes almost nothing human remains inside that mutated shell. Its first punch crashes against his guard with enough force to shake the entire chamber, demonstrating both strength and speed have multiplied far beyond the disciplined corpse he fought earlier. The creature follows relentlessly, abandoning martial rhythm for unpredictable swipes and crushing body blows. All the while, he slips beneath one towering arm and searches for any reliable target. Its chest abruptly opens into a second fanged mouth, turning even close-range counters suicidal. Still, he still drives a fast strike upward before those ribs can close around him. One sweeping counter launches the young brawler sideways, smashing his armored shoulder toward the chamber wall. Meanwhile, broken debris scatters across the floor beneath the creature's overwhelming pressure. Its entire appearance and strike pattern now belong to a beast, leaving no warrior discipline behind. Even so, Lin Yu recalls soldier defending home and country against impossible alien attacks. Those inherited memories taught him precisely what a warrior should represent when facing terror. Meanwhile, he understands subconscious respect kept him from using full strength against the stolen body. Becoming a creature was never the deceased senior's intention, so hesitation only prolongs that disgrace, prompting him to promise he will eventually help the warrior rest with dignity. The mutation opens its chest maw again and gets ready for another savage frontal rush. Still, enhanced perception marks the heart as its weakness, sending him charging straight underneath. Lin Yu slips beneath the abomination's swing and transforms one arm into a towering claw, then respectfully tells the deceased senior to rest before committing everything to that heart. Red talons punch through the chest maw and tear directly across the glowing exposed flaw, leaving the mutation convulsing as corrupted tendrils burst from its collapsing body. A last slam drives the immense monster into shattered tiles and ends its movement totally. Meanwhile, the exhausted combatant reflects that any surviving human consciousness would have made victory far harder. The conflict upgrades military combat art to level 3, officially advancing it into intermediate mastery. Still, the corpse all at once releases a thick wave of purple corruption throughout the sealed chamber. He covers his mouth and retreats, instantly recognizing the lethal contamination surrounding him. Even so, Hall 3's safety door requires simultaneous confirmation from both sides and cannot open. Human corruption and decay are normally irreversible, making every additional breath potentially fatal. Also, the trapped employee fears remaining inside will infect him until he becomes another creature. Dense black tendrils wrap around his entire body while every escape attempt fails, yet Lin Yu closes his eyes and will not accept corruption as his ending. Several tense moments pass before he observes no mutation, pain, or mental collapse beginning, exposing that somehow the concentrated corruption failed to infect him at all. A new disturbance interrupts that discovery and turns his attention toward the remaining tables. There, black energy now coils around the untouched medical employee's motionless body. The brawler raises his guard, expecting another reanimation to begin inside the locked chamber, then waits uneasily as the corpse remains silent beneath an expanding ring of corruption. A cautious inspection confirms no movement, making the corruption's focus on this corpse especially unusual, until he sees that its glowing pendant actively pulling every black tendril inward. The small golden object can devour corruption without becoming contaminated, mirroring technology considered impossible nationwide. Meanwhile, his thoughts promptly return to the poison steadily consuming his sister's organs. The doctor said only a sunstone could suppress suppress that infection before her remaining months disappear. As a result, the young soul devourer questions whether this abandoned pendant might contain the same life-saving material. He meticulously removes it from the medical employee's chest after verifying the corpse remains still, then grips this unforeseen hope and is convinced his sister may at last have a real chance. Chamber 3's sealed door opens once the hazardous corruption concentration falls to acceptable levels, yet he stays long enough to thank the deceased doctor and apologize for taking his pendant. He respectfully sends the body into the furnace while flames consume its remaining human form. Also, lingering black energy separates from the cremation, activating another readable soul-bound memory. Lin Yu enters the doctor's past as unfamiliar medical knowledge begins unfolding around him. Inside, young Jinlong celebrates admission into prestigious Huaxia Central Medical University. He dedicates his research towards stronger battlefield potions capable of keeping warriors alive. Meanwhile, later becomes his master's final disciple, promised a medical legacy and future deanship. Instead, young Jinlong chooses the front line and develops treatment around actual warrior conditions, eventually creating Overwatch, a potion capable of restoring any exhausted brawler to peak condition. Yet his expression darkens because that miraculous recovery carries one horrifying unfinished consequence, namely absolute death 10 minutes after consumption, regardless of the warrior's restored strength. Surrounded soldiers willingly drink Overwatch, trading 10 remaining minutes for their country's survival, then charge an overwhelming alien horde with restored power and absolutely no intention of retreating. Watching their response, young Jinlong spends his remaining research time trying to perfect the formula. Also, eventually develops Life Enchantress, another potion centered upon overwhelming restoration. Drinking it injects immense life energy into a person, offering extraordinary medical potential beyond combat. Before the system offers potion mastery, broken pen, or healer's benevolence from Yang's soul, Lin Yu chooses potion mastery, betting pharmaceutical knowledge provides his sister's strongest rescue path. Also gains expert proficiency plus ascending dragon, Overwatch, and Life Enchantress recipes. Combined with the corruption devouring pendant, that knowledge makes curing his sister eventually seem achievable. Therefore, the teenager returns to City Central Hospital at the fastest possible pace. Hidden beneath the hood, he enters her treatment area while the monitor shows 75% corruption. Meanwhile, understands the infection has by now reached a level leaving almost no safe time. His sister still hangs unconscious inside the pod as respirators sustain her failing body. As a result, he brings the golden pendant forward, unwilling to waste another second. He places it squarely against her chest where its corruption-absorbing surface begins glowing, then forces himself to wait, hoping the unknown material simply needs time to activate. 10, 20, and 30 minutes pass while the monitor remains fixed at 75%, making the young soul devourer dread the pendant cannot suppress his sister's corruption after all. The nutrient pod slowly closes again as the attempted treatment produces no visible improvement. Meanwhile, he cannot help wondering whether activation is delayed or her deeply rooted infection overwhelms the pendant. Whatever caused the failure, Lin Yu concludes that developing Life Enchantress as quickly as possible is now essential. Meanwhile, the following morning returns him to Qingtang Academy with pharmaceutical research replacing normal concerns. All the while, classmates socialize, the young fighter fills his desk with reference books and studies every inherited recipe, first eliminating Overwatch because its guaranteed 10-minute death makes practical testing totally unacceptable. Life Enchantress ingredients exist only inside severe disaster zones, while Ascending Dragon requires elusive crimson crystal grass. Meanwhile, military restrictions around corrupted territory make simply gathering those materials nearly impossible. Lin Jin interrupts his research, asking why he has seemed distracted for 2 straight days, then invites him to a newly opened Caf G near their bus stop after school. He declines because tonight already carries urgent work, although he meticulously avoids explaining what. Rather than pressing, Lin Shin pledges to help whenever his hidden difficulties become too heavy, as he previously saved her from Zhang's group, and she undeniably wants to repay that kindness. Surrounding classmates mention military vehicles entering their neighborhood overnight, suggesting something major happened with no warning. Meanwhile, Lin Yu knows routine residential areas never receive deployments unless a new threat appears. Lin Zin discreetly agrees the truth cannot remain hidden for much longer. Therefore, he leans closer and wants to know if her family provided any reliable inside information. After brief hesitation, the pink-haired senior resolves this warning matters more than secrecy, exposing her father's patrol squad was summoned overnight to reinforce military security. The abandoned district north of school may soon receive official classification as a corrupted zone, since a crystal-armored python nested there while local corruption concentration surged uncontrollably overnight. That creature's name promptly catches the teenager's attention, connecting the threat to his desperate ingredient search. Crimson crystal grass grows after python venom corrupts perfectly matched soil, making this nest an ideal source, though Lin Shin urgently warns him to keep everything she revealed entirely secret. He coolly vows silence while already grasping this opportunity may never appear again, also chooses to enter tonight before authorities fully seal the northern district. Moonlight reveals fortified fencing, sweeping searchlights, and armed patrols guarding every obvious entrance. Even so, the hidden intruder observes from nearby cover instead of recklessly challenging trained soldiers. He calculates each searchlight has a half-second blind spot every 14 seconds, while patrols circle half-hourly, then activates aura camouflage and bursts from the bushes during precisely that narrow opening. He races between crossing beams, remaining translucent as his practice timing prevents exposure, before vaulting over razor wire and dropping silently beyond the guarded perimeter. One soldier all at once turns, sensing someone behind him despite seeing absolutely nothing. Yet the searchlights reveal only empty fencing and dark ruins under the moon. His partner dismisses the alarm as nervousness, allowing the invisible intruder to continue undetected. Meanwhile, Lin Yu lands inside the abandoned district, proving his infiltration succeeded. He searches devastated streets alone, moving deeper between collapsed buildings toward the abomination's nesting ground, until spotting a promising glow hidden beyond another shattered structure. There, an immense crystal-armored python sleeps coiled above multiple glowing red plants, making him climb cautiously and harvest everything while the monster remains unconscious. He reaches the ledge beside its huge body, where Venom has cultivated abundant crimson crystal grass, then grins and extends one hand toward the perfect ingredient without disturbing the sleeping beast. Unfortunately, the python awakens at that exact instant and towers above Lin Yu with glowing eyes, causing him to recognize the trap before its colossal head can complete the opening strike. Military combat art predicts the strike, enabling him to dive aside as armored jaws demolish the ledge. All the while, the enraged python crashes downward and buries the surrounding ruins beneath shattered concrete. He launches himself toward the grass during the collapse, instead of retreating empty-handed, successfully ripping one complete crimson plant from the ground as debris explodes around him. The python lunges again, but he twists beneath its jaws while protecting his prize, leaving the abomination biting empty air and growing even angrier at its evasive intruder. It rears up within the ruined courtyard, showing a gigantic body covered in crystalline blue armor. Meanwhile, our young brawler faces the towering alien beast alone with nowhere safe nearby. He sees that its reactions are far slower than expected, suggesting some temporary weakness limits the beast, then spots uneven scales separating across the python's massive neck. Understanding the creature is molting clarifies its sluggish responses and offers one narrow survival advantage, though its sweeping body still pulverizes vehicles and masonry while nearly crushing him. The
The year is 2026, and if you're a console manufacturer, then you are not in the happiest of place. Tech prices across the board have risen precipitously in just a few short months on account of the so-called RAM-pocalypse. Of course, spurred on by Silicon Valley's seemingly voracious freaking hunger for memory required for AI data centers and all this nonsense across the globe. It doesn't matter whether you think AI is on the rise or it's a bubble that's going to burst any day now, because either way, right now, all silicon is earmarked for this stuff. It is sold. So if you are a console maker, then You're low priority at best for these chip makers. They want them for the AI data centers and all that stuff. Enterprise and business hardware pay a premium, and the RAM gold rush is on. So I guess that leaves little room for the consumer market here. When you have Valve, one of the more profitable tech companies in the world, getting big leagued by RAM companies, then what hope does anyone have? Seriously, this is a direct quote from a Valve employee here. Quote, look, there's no contract. There's nothing. Like, those guys, they give us a price every month or something, and they say you can buy that many, and it's yes or no. And if we say no, then they never talk to us again. This is the tech world we're living in right now, man. Times seem to be tough for the games business, seemingly, despite all the money that has been made. So we're looking at new upcoming consoles like Xbox's Project Helix, and more specifically for this video, the PS6. And we're asking the question, is this thing doomed from the start? Is it DOA? It's me, Jake, so let's just talk about this stuff. It is possible, even likely, that companies like Sony have more of a working relationship with memory companies, but I gotta imagine that their situation is still precarious here. I mean, just look at how much the PS5 has increased in price in the last 2 years alone. The Pro released in 2024 for $700 US dollars, and it's now sitting at $900. That is $200 more. And the standard PS5 prices have jumped by a lot too. Xbox as well, Nintendo as well. No one is safe from this. Price increases are pretty uniform across the whole console industry. These are massive jumps in costs that are already having a pretty devastating effect on console sales. Both Sony and Xbox recorded their lowest ever sales for the month of May. PlayStation was hit hard here, according to Circana. PS5 spending fell significantly this year. And just announced, pissing off a section of gamers, PlayStation announced physical games will no longer be a thing starting in 2028. PlayStation games for the entire platform will not be printed on discs. Obviously, players are buying more games digitally. The math is there, but a section of gamers still prefer physical. They want the choice, as was their right. Now, the shift to the all-digital future spells a lot for the next console. At the very least, I think it's safe to assume the PS6 is not going to come with a disc drive, but who knows? We'll probably tackle the whole physical media thing more in another video soon. But all of this spells trouble for the as-of-yet unannounced next-gen consoles, and again, specifically here, PS6. It really is like this perfect storm of problems if you're looking to launch hardware. And at least according to many analysts, these issues are likely to continue at least up through 2027, definitely probably longer than that, which is kind of a problem because we are now 6 years into this particular console generation. The PS4 ran for 7 years, 2013 to 2020, if you remember. Then the PS3's generation was 6 years, and the PS2's was also just 6 years. So, you know, because like these things do take a few years to make behind the scenes and, you know, conceptualize, and Sony is definitely thinking about or somewhat working on PS6 already. If the rumors are to be believed, then they're definitely more than just thinking about this thing. It seems like the specs are certainly already figured out. So therein lies the problem, and potentially the reason why the PS6 could have a pretty rough launch. Sony only really has two options here. They either push forward with their current plan, stick to the plan, you know, cost be damned, or delay and see if hardware prices go down before the end of the decade. And it feels like either choice could be pretty dangerous. Here's the thing with making consoles, right? Like there's a reason why only some of the biggest tech companies in the world can do a full court press release of these things, because the logistics of building tens of hundreds of thousands of custom build complex pieces of tech and then release them on a global scale is possible only for like the biggest players in the game. Look, I know there are all these like cool boutique console makers who make mini consoles and emulation machines and stuff like that, but their production runs are microscopic compared to the scale of companies like Xbox, Sony, Nintendo operating at. Like just compare the sale of Valve's Steam Deck to the PlayStation Vita. The deck is considered by most to be a success and has so far sold between 6 to 8 million units, and it's been influential. The PlayStation Vita, in comparison, is estimated to have sold between 15 to 16 million units, and it's generally regarded by some as a failure. Obviously not to players. I still use my PlayStation Vita sometimes, but to Sony, the money men, yeah. And speaking of Valve, like not trying to trash talk them here, they intentionally released a limited run of systems. It's not like they were expecting to sell Steam Decks in Walmart or something. It didn't seem like that was the goal. But the difference here is that Sony are selling their products in the mass market. If a PlayStation 6 launches, it has to be everywhere. And that means a lot of planning and a lot of deals made with factories and hardware manufacturers and retail stores to get the necessary parts in the system and on store shelves. That takes a lot, and there needs to be a lot of runway for that. That means if Sony is planning to launch the PS6 for, say, holiday season 2027, right, then it really is too late for them here. The cost of production is going to be massive to getting that machine moving. Now, according to a particular leaker, whether this is true or not, just for conversation's sake, the BOM, or quote-unquote bill of materials, for the PS6 has gone up a whopping $200 just since March of this year. It's been 3 months, and that's how much prices have spiked. That doesn't even cover all the expenses that go into making a PlayStation console. That's just the cost of materials, if actually true. It doesn't include like the labor costs, testing, and marketing, any of that other stuff. There's a reason why so many are afraid that we may be looking at a $1,000 PS6, or possibly even more. That's double the cost of the PS5 in 2020. I don't think I need to say how bad that would look for Sony if they launched at that price point. Anyone but the most hardcore console owners will immediately balk at that price. It's a frankly absurd amount to pay for a Sony console. Even if you look at the reality of where things are right now, it still just doesn't feel right. Consumers are trained to expect vastly different prices. We've been trained for decades. Now, the best case scenario in this situation is that Sony would heavily subsidize the cost of the console, which could drop it down to a slightly more acceptable price, maybe $800, $900. Look, Sony is one of the few console makers that were actually capable of subsidizing costs and engage in the loss leader strategy. The PS5, even back in 2020, was being made at an estimated $200 loss when it launched. And even with rising costs, I'm pretty sure they're still eating a lot of the expenses on consoles even now. But it seems like that is going to end this strategy, because Sony just announced publicly that they will not be significantly subsidizing upcoming hardware like they have in the past. Things are changing all around. They've cited market conditions and stuff that we've talked about, and stating, quote, not realistic to absorb these extra costs. So expect the next console to, probably cost as much as a high-end smartphone. The bigger thing, like, I question how many people want a PS6 in 2027. I think a lot of players are happy to stick with the current generation for a few more years. Remember the price and scalping situation when the PS5 launched? Like, a lot of people didn't even get started with PS5 on day one. Some only got their hands on one a few years ago. Hell, we're 6 years in, and it kind of feels like the PS5 has barely got off the runway. The system has, pretty sorely lacked some exclusives. Naughty Dog, Sony's biggest studio, hasn't put out a new game this generation. The Sony live service push has been mostly a failure. So much time wasted. It feels like for every massive amount amount of money they dump into a failed live service game, we could have had like 2 cool traditional regular PlayStation games. So much time and money wasted and not enough games to really show for it. And we've got a PS5 Pro now, and that's still pretty generally solid in terms of hardware, especially as developers embrace it. I think most PlayStation fans would be fine with a slightly extended console generation if that meant that the PS6 could launch in a slightly more financially solid state. But, you know, that's wishful thinking at this point. Many are suggesting to delay this thing to 2030 when, hopefully, fingers crossed, the RAM shortage and overall hardware scarcity maybe starts to cool down. It could lead to a cheaper console, but there are problems with this scenario as well, even if you're assuming that the prices do start going down again. We know that PCs are a growing market and consoles are, in some ways, especially with the hardcore crowd, struggling to keep up. Certain analysts are predicting that the PC market is primed to surpass the console market by 2028. I don't know for sure, but a lot of people are being pushed in this direction. In 2025, PC-centric gaming revenue grew by 6.6%, while consoles only grew by 4.4%. There are a lot of reasons why this is happening, but like one of the biggest is that emerging markets like China are actually primarily PC players for many reasons. Consoles just aren't as, I guess, readily acceptable or accessible in some of these places, and with the way things are going, it's going to be very difficult for consoles to catch up in those large markets unless they devote a lot of time and energy trying to win over those markets. Xbox, you know, for all the things they say, the back and forth, it seems like their next console, the Project Helix, is also going to embrace Windows and PC gaming in some way, but on the Sony side, if they don't want to get surpassed by PC, then it feels like they need to act now, not later. But if they do act now, then again, the cost of their consoles will be prohibitively high for the consumer base that's actually growing instead of shrinking. It's a catch-22. Like, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. And at least from our perspective here on the Game Ranks team, it's hard to picture like a way out of this that's clean. Maybe they need to pivot to something like the new long-rumored PlayStation handheld device that they're potentially working on. Making a handheld isn't exactly some like mind-blowing paradigm shift anymore. They'd essentially just be playing Me Too with Nintendo Switch and Steam Deck, but at least it's a possible direction that they could pursue for now. We know that PlayStation is pivoting back to console exclusives and giving up those PC ports, I guess in an attempt to draw people back into the Sony ecosystem and this walled garden, especially now when it doesn't have discs. But it's unclear how effective this move will be. To us, it kind of feels like they're trying to put the genie back in the bottle here. At least they're in a better position than Xbox, you know, with whatever studios getting closed and games getting canceled. But who knows what the correct move is, considering the current hardware situation we're in. Along with that, we also know that Sony's digging their heels in and they're sticking to that live service strategy, despite, again, those multiple high-profile failures and the recently underperforming Marathon from the studio that was meant to be the crown jewel of Sony's live service empire, Bungie, which is now in 2026 a shadow of its former self. They're sticking to the plan despite the entire universe and a significant portion of their customer base telling them not to, which may be a big preview for how the PS6 launch might go. Now look, it might sound gloom and doom and disastrous, but at this point, it just seems like Sony's only option is to not delay and to push forward with the PS6 launch. At least if the rumors are true and the plan is to release for the 2027 holiday season. If that was the initial plan, then delaying will probably only make things worse, eating up tons of costs on their back end with no promise that hardware prices will actually go down. I mean, what happens if Sony did decide to wait until 2029 or 2030 for the PS6 and prices only get worse? Then they'd be double screwed. And again, some of these RAM makers have signed at least 5-year agreements to keep prices where they are. I don't actually think Sony is going to wait that far down the line, but you know, it's not impossible. It also makes sense for them to launch in 2027 just in terms of value, I guess, right? Nvidia isn't putting out new consumer cards in 2026, but technology continues to march forward. So the longer Sony waits to release, the worse the specs on the PS6 look. Launching in 2026 offers the best quote value proposition, according to a certain insider, and if the plan is to release in 2027, then it's hard to argue with that. If console production is already in the pipe, then the longer they wait to release, the more outdated that console is going to look. If the SKUs are set and the manufacturing orders are already in place, I feel like Sony at this point is going to go through with this launch despite everything. Yes, the console will be too expensive and probably won't launch with a disc drive, so that's another expense on top of everything else, but like, it's probably better for them to have a console out and remain competitive in the market rather than just give up and let prices rise and let PC take over. I don't know. We personally don't have any skin in the game here. We play on all consoles, but we're just saying this from like Sony's perspective. We're looking at it from like what they could be thinking. Of course, just hardware isn't the only factor here. If they are going to launch in 2027, then there needs to be like this killer launch lineup to actually get people excited about the thing. And that's the hardest part. It seems like Sony hasn't really been living up to that in recent years with the PS5. So will they be able to do that with a PS6 to get people to play? I don't know. Is there a path forward for the PlayStation 6 to find success? Probably. I mean, like if the initial launch is poor, then they might be able to get things back on track in the long run. Like suffer up front, have the hardcore people buy this thing for $1,000 and then just hope things get better. But I don't know, man. The PS3 was completely eclipsed by the Xbox 360 in the first years of that generation, but it was able to slowly crawl its way back up to being a sales success. Even if, like hypothetically, if the PC does eventually surpass consoles, I think there will still be room for PlayStation in some capacity, of course. Ultimately, I think they need to play their unique strengths. They need to bring back that sense of fun, that unique PlayStation vision that made the PS1 and PS2, and even PS3 to a point, feel like this like revelation. If that means focusing on a slightly less powerful console, then so be it. Finding any way to cut costs has got to be a priority for them. It probably is. The PS6 is in a very difficult situation right now, and honestly, do not see an easy way out for them. For now, at least, I don't foresee the PS6 being the end of Sony in the console business. I think we'll have to wait probably for like the PS7 and see how things shake out then to know for sure. Ultimately, I just want more games, man. Just make good games. Don't bungle this and just give us good things to play at the end of the day. Look, in conclusion, I don't know if the PS6 is already doomed, but I think the reality is that the PS6 is definitely doomed to our wallets. It's going to cost a lot more than people expect. Kind of downer ending, I know, but like that's just where we're at right now. This is where I hope different innovation comes in. Creative ways to maximize and pull the most out of what people already have. If people are priced out of high-end PCs and new consoles, there needs to be innovation with current technology. Be it services, upgrades, but also the games themselves. I just hope that as the future of hardware looks sketchy and uncertain and maybe even potentially stagnating, that maybe it'll give more times for games themselves to innovate and grow. You know, the whole theory of scarcity or desperation breeding ingenuity and creativity? I think gaming could use some of that right now. And I hope that's a positive thing that can come from this whole mess. I don't know, that's wishful thinking. I'm a glass half full type guy, but that's where we're at for now. We just wanted to yap about the PlayStation 6, so let us know in the comments what you think. Do you think this thing is doomed, dead on arrival because of the current market situations? Let's talk. If you like this video, clicking the like button helps us. We really appreciate it. We'll put out videos every single day, so buckle up. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
You're one sentence away from launching your website with Base 44. Since the beginning of the internet, there's never been such a fun, fast, and intelligent way to launch online. Landing pages, content hubs, e-commerce sites, you describe it and it's built in minutes. It's kind of wild how far a short prompt can get you. Right away, it generates a full site. Pages, structure, layout, design, it's all there. Next, styling. I shape it around my
Towards the end of our relationship, we both did things to each other that made each other hurt.
I've been addicted to that for a long time. I promise you, majority of the reason why the relationship didn't work was because of me.
Jinxie has broken up with the same girl 3 separate times, and the real reason behind those breakups is what actually ended up turning his own fans against him. Now, it's no secret that their entire relationship was just a big mess, but to actually understand why, we have to go back to the beginning because the signs were there from day one. Jinxie was pulling in over 100,000 live viewers a day playing Rainbow Six Siege when he brought Brecky Hill onto his stream for a collab. Now, for those of you who are actually employed, she's a hugely popular adult content creator with a track record of dating other streamers, which should have been a red flag on its own.
Hey, chunky boy, did you tell her you have a 1mm defeat?
1 millimeter?
No, come on. There's no way you believe that. No, goddamn. My penis is very average, if you want to be honest. It's not like...
What's average to you?
So, I would say an absolute third leg would be anything above like 8 inches.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm rocking like 6.3 erect.
That's impressive, actually.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And that stream should have been another warning sign of what's to come, given how far the content went and who Brecky already had a reputation for being. But within days, Jinxie was streaming from her house, and not long after that, they confirmed they were actually dating. And for a while, it actually looked like a genuine relationship, right up until May of 2024, when Jinxie posted a photo of himself crying with the caption, "I don't even know anymore."
Hey, I wasn't really gonna make a video on this, but I feel like I have to. The first thing I want to say is I did not get cheated on. I did not get lied to. I did not get taken advantage of. I know that's a lot of people's immediate perception, and that's the first thing people think of, but none of that happened. When I tell you that she's a good girl and she's a good person, I'm not just saying that. I promise you I wouldn't tell you guys that if I didn't mean it. If I felt like I got screwed over, I would tell you I didn't get screwed over. The main reason why the relationship didn't work was simply because at first I didn't put in as much effort as she put in. It's not her fault at all. It's majority my fault. At the end of the day, if you guys do seriously love me and care about me, just leave her alone and leave her out of this, because I promise you, majority of the reason why the relationship didn't work was because of me, okay? I genuinely mean that from the bottom of my heart.
He went out of his way to say he wasn't cheated on, wasn't lied to, and wasn't taken advantage of, insisting the breakup was almost entirely his own fault, and asking fans to leave Brecky alone. That's a genuinely generous way to handle a breakup, no matter what was actually going on behind it. And Brecky's response came out right after Jinxie's.
Nick, the person I was with, I loved him more than I knew I could love someone. He is such an amazing person, and I think towards the end of our relationship, we both did things to each other that made each other hurt, and at the end of the day, just want to see each other happy. I will be doing nothing but cheering him on from the side, and I will always have love for him.
And in that same stretch, she also announced she was quitting OnlyFans entirely.
I have decided to stop OnlyFans. It's something that I definitely should have stopped the second I got into a relationship. Also, knowing that relationship was public, that's something I won't forgive myself for. OnlyFans is something that has taken a really big toll on my mental health, and I do think a lot of the problems in our relationship were caused by that.
But she didn't actually quit, because almost immediately after posting that, she went right back to promoting the exact same content, which made the whole announcement look a lot more like a headline than an actual decision. And despite all of that, Jinxie still had real feelings for her.
But we ended up getting back together, and I'm very, very, very happy about that. And all I wish, bro, all I ask, I know a lot of you guys like troll and shit, and that's fine if you guys troll me, but to the people that are like just harassing her on the comments and stuff, if you guys could not do that, like, and if you do that, I know like you don't fuck with me and that you're just like bored or whatever, but if you cannot do that, bro, I appreciate that, because like she genuinely does make me happy, and she genuinely is not like a bad person.
Getting back together that fast after a breakup he took full blame for says a lot about how much he actually wanted this to work. Some of his own friends had already tried warning him months earlier in a way that was easy to miss at the time.
Wait, you need a favor? Yeah, I put these quick pixels to your heads. You can put it right here. Do I have permission to sweat it? Yeah. Alright, you need to run your click. Okay. Are you positive? Yeah, go.
Fix's own cameraman had dated Brecky only weeks before Jinxie did, so that joke was really him telling Jinxie exactly what he thought was coming. Jinxie didn't take it that way in the moment, and what followed turned into a long, chaotic back and forth about the tweet and how to make it right.
It's just a troll, by the way. Like, I swear it's actually a troll. I deleted it. It's like full troll. It was full troll.
It's a year and a half ago.
If you're actually mad, I'll delete it. If you're actually mad, I'll delete it. It was just troll. I can't lie.
If I'm mad, you'll delete it. Wait,
if you're actually mad,
wait, Flex, if it was a year and a half ago, wait, why tweet it? Why tweet it 3 minutes ago?
It's not weird. You're making it weird.
You know it's weird. You know it's weird. You know it's weird.
It's a full troll.
Flex, you know it's weird. It's good though. No. You know you're being weird. You know you're being weird. It's good though. It's good. Can I talk? Can I talk? Okay, so here's what you're gonna do. No. You're gonna delete the tweet, and then you're gonna apologize, and then you'll get paid. If you don't do that, I'm just sending Ron 2.5K. This is a business, because I'll pay Ron, bro. You can stay on business, but Flex, here's how you get paid, bro. You delete the tweet. Flex. Oh my god. It's a troll tweet, so delete it. It's a troll tweet, so delete it.
Oh my god, that's what she's thinking on you right.
Flex, you're gonna, Flex, what you're gonna do. I wanna see the 2.5K.
I'm gonna be honest, Jinxie. I'd rather burn 2.5.
Alright, that's fair. Ron, text me now. That's fair. Oh god, that's fair. You're alright, bro.
That entire exchange is a genuinely strange way to settle a joke. Money changing hands, a dare thrown out, and somewhere in the middle of it, an actual fight got proposed. Jinxie followed through on that publicly, announcing a real date.
It's finally time. September 14th, 100% down. Gives me 60 days to train, gives you 60 days to train. I don't know why the date keeps changing and the excuses keep piling on, because you called Ron's phone and said that you would destroy me and you're confused as to why I even want to do this. But then the next day you wanted headgear, so I don't really know where your head's at right now. I know exactly where my head's at. So as long as you're in the ring September 14th, we can do pretty much almost any rule you want to do. Just be there, okay?
He set a real date for it, trained for it publicly, treated it like it was actually happening, but clicks backed out shortly after.
This is the issue, bro. If I had the time and this was my full focus, I'd win. I'd have my mother's life. If I put my full focus, bro. My mindset is unstoppable when it comes to my full focus. But why am I gonna throw my FNCS, my FNCS Globals, which is the main stage? After FNCS Globals, we have OG season, I'm leaking. We have OG season FNCS, which is gonna be the most viewership. It's gonna be just like
like that's one, especially with FNCS. Venom has to go to EU. I have some plays in the making. I'm not gonna say anything. We have a busy year. Why am I fighting? I'm fighting over. The thing is, it's not even boxing. Boxing is a sport. It's like a good sportsmanship. This is fighting with two streamers who have egos going at it over a girl that's not my girl. So that being said, I'm not doing it within the next couple months.
Whether that was really about scheduling or just Clicks never wanting to fight over this in the first place, the fight never happened, and neither did anyone address why the warning was there to begin with. Meanwhile, Jinxie and Brecky were still making content together like nothing was wrong. That didn't last either.
Chat, this is probably not going to be like a long stream, but I just wanted to tell you guys that we did break up, like for real this time. I don't know if I'm gonna like stream that long tonight, and I don't know if I'm gonna be streaming tomorrow. Maybe, I don't know. But we basically like just broke up, and you know, it just didn't work out. And I think you guys deserve to know that we did break up. Just so like, you guys deserve to know that at least.
Only a couple of weeks back together, and it fell apart again. And once again, Jinxie made sure to take the blame himself.
Nothing she did was wrong. She didn't do anything wrong. The reason why we broke up was 100% my fault. I didn't care as much about the relationship as she did, and she also felt that I cared more about like my job than the relationship. And she just didn't feel that I prioritized her as much as she prioritized me. I did think it was going to work out, but it just didn't. And I have really nobody to blame but myself. And the last thing I want you guys to do is like go harass her or anything, because she's was genuinely good to me the whole time I was with her, and I didn't even really know that I could be cared about as much as she made me feel, and I didn't even know that I could be loved as much as she loved me.
Saying the exact same thing twice after two separate breakups starts to look less like honesty and more like a pattern he can't break out of. But Brecky's response to this one told a slightly different story.
I was supposed to fly out to see him on Friday in Florida, but he blew me off, which isn't the first time it's happened. So it was kind of just like, I care too much about this person and I'm not getting the same in return. But he really is an amazing person. We had a really, really good relationship. I think we both made each other super happy.
People noticed she didn't sound nearly as upset as Jinxie did, which made it look a lot more like she was managing how the breakup looked than actually mourning it. And at this point, people started calling the whole thing a middle school relationship, breaking up and getting back together on repeat. And right on cue, it happened again, until September, when Jinxie went live one more time.
The first reason why we broke up was because I literally told her, like I told her on the phone, like I said, I don't care as much as you care, and that like broke her heart because she cares about me, and it also like, you know, broke my heart to see that a girl that I, like a girl that actually does love me unconditionally, like I was able to, I like hurt her, which knowing that like a girl loves you unconditionally and then you hurt them, it's like makes you feel like shit. And the first thing I want to say is like, cheating is a very like wide thing, like cheating is a lot of different things. I never like slept with another girl, I never kissed another girl, none of that, like I didn't do that. I know a lot of people like jumped to that conclusion. She didn't say that, she never said that, but like a lot of people jumped to the conclusion that like I slept with another girl and I had like sex with other girls. Like no, I never did that, I never kissed another girl, but like, so basically I told her like that I don't care as much as she cares, and then like that fucked up her like head a lot, and there's like a lot of things, but I think cheating and disloyalty would be like watching, you know, videos that you shouldn't watch like while you're in a relationship.
This time he was more specific about what actually went wrong, telling her directly that he didn't care as much as she did, which he said broke both of their hearts. He was also clear that nothing physical happened with anyone else. But he did point to one specific habit as part of what he called disloyalty.
I've been watching porn since I was like 13 years old, and that's like a sick, disgusting addiction. I've been addicted to that for a long time, and I don't watch those videos anymore, and I'm like proud of that, because I think it's disgusting anyways, and I don't think it's like healthy. There was also like other things that I put her through, so yeah, I watched corn videos, but like not only that, like I would watch like specific videos. There was like screenshots of videos that I watched, and like she eventually like would like found out about that. Like she didn't want to, but she did. And then I like it broke my heart to see that I hurt her. That's like something where like I'll probably never. I'll probably never forgive myself for that.
He described it as something he'd struggled with since he was young, said he doesn't do it anymore, and clearly felt real shame bringing it up at all. But the thing that made this land so strangely with viewers is the obvious contradiction sitting right next to it, which is the fact that his girlfriend makes adult content professionally, and he's the one publicly apologizing for watching it. Even his own friends couldn't make sense of that one.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm about to give a take real quick, and I already know I'm about to get hate for it, so everyone put up pre-hate. Number one, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here on both sides. It's not my relationship, so I don't really care. If you got broken up with because you jerk off, when you don't break up with her when she has an OnlyFans, I don't understand. Is it not even fair ground? All you're doing is spanking your worm, bro. I'm confused. I spank my worm sometimes. I just spank it to my girlfriend. Bro, in the most respectful, I'm on Jinxie's side here. I don't know. Obviously, he doesn't want, like, his ex, I guess you could say now, to get hate. But I'm gonna be real when I say this. I didn't even know they broken up. But the way I found out was her posting fucking, like, 10 TikToks talking about, like, your relationship. Like, I thought if you want it private, why is she doing that type of thing? You know what I'm saying? Like, but she seems all giddy about it. Like, what? Well, you're over here sad. I've been in this position before, Jinxie. I'm not here to hate on you. I'm here to fucking... Bro, I've been in this position before. In the most honest way possible. Like, this is a fucked up situation.
Calling out an inconsistency like that, while still clearly trying to stay supportive, is a pretty fair way to handle an awkward situation. But years later, this relationship still hasn't actually gone away.
Tricky, get this. Yo, alright, Mods, get this guy out of the chat! Yo, to the guy that keeps gifting, I'm not reading your name, dude. How about this, bro? Get a gum! I'm not reading your name! Alright, Mods, please, Mods. I'm on my hands and knees begging! Somebody ban this guy! Holy shit!
Jinxie, what you're doing isn't okay. Like, you're not the victim here.
Jinxie, what am I getting tagged in, bro?
He has turned to the dark side.
You're wrong, High Vice. How could you even think that?
Oh
High
my
Vice
god.
was right. You gooned.
Yo. You spelling out Chopper, bro?
People are still gifting subs under her name and making AI videos putting them back together, and Jinxie's reaction makes it pretty clear he's still not over having to deal with it. However many times the cycle repeats, it's never really over for him, even years out. So here's the real question. Was Jinxie actually the problem in this relationship, or was he just the only one of the two of them who ever seemed to genuinely care how it ended? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, smack the like and subscribe buttons, and I'll see you in the next one.
This isn't just any chat, it's ClickUp chat. Sure, you can tag your team, ask questions, and even drop an emoji. But the real magic is how it connects to the rest of my work. I can tag a task, a doc, or a whiteboard, everything I need in one place.
This goes both ways. Chats can also be referenced inside tasks to let people join in on the fun. A chat might be connected to a project, so I can see my lists, dashboards, and docs side by side, making it effortless to reference what I need. If my boss has an ask, I can turn his message into a task instantly. This will automatically include
This young man looks almost exactly like Kaito Kid, but he is actually the most powerful S-rank villain in the world. Despite that terrifying title, he rarely harms innocent people. Whenever one of his operations accidentally causes a death, he pays the victim's family tens of millions in compensation. He never became a supervillain for fame, wealth, or power. He did it all for the beautiful heroine standing before him, Stardust. Yet, when he finally meets the woman he has longed to see, he chooses to disappear without a trace. The story begins several years earlier. His real name is Kim.In, and after a freak accident, he transmigrated into a comic called Stardust. The city inside this comic is overrun with lawless villains. They cause chaos every day, purely for amusement. Kim.In, however, has one simple goal: protecting his favorite heroine, Stardust. To do that, he vows to become her one and only arch-villain. The next second, Kim.In vanishes into thin air. He instantly reappears on the rooftop of a skyscraper. His earpiece crackles with the familiar voice of his younger sister, So-woon. What are you doing? Sitting calmly on the rooftop railing, Kim.In replies, I just teleported. He came here to carry out his first plan, hunting down villains. Using his knowledge of the comic, he intends to eliminate every villain destined to grow stronger and wreak havoc in the future. He refuses to let any of them hurt Stardust. Through an infrared camera, he spots the A-rank villain Rhino studying blueprints on a sofa. Kim.In immediately chambers around and presses the muzzle against Rhino's forehead. Rhino jerks his head up in panic, but sees no attacker. Only a pitch-black gun barrel floating before him. Kim.In has already slipped behind him like a shadow. The gunshot rings out and Rhino drops dead. Kim.In then picks up the department store blueprints Rhino left behind. In the original comic, Rhino eventually became an S-rank villain who wore a rhinoceros mask and slaughtered hundreds. These blueprints prove that his terrorist attack had been planned long ago. Just then, Seo-Win's voice comes through the earpiece again. The gunshot has alerted the Hero Association and the police, so she urges Kim.In to leave immediately. Kim.In ends the call and dips his index finger into Rhino's blood. He then writes a message across the glass. Moments later, the police arrive at the scene. Stardust sees the blood-red words and clenches her fists in anger. What a psychopath. He wrote in blood just to taunt the police. I swear I'll catch him. Soon, news of the A-rank villain Rhino's death dominates the headlines. Kim.In is now sitting in front of his computer, on the verge of losing his mind, because the police completely misunderstood his intentions. His younger sister, Han Seo-In, hears the commotion and walks over. Leaning against the doorway, she asks why he is so furious. Kim.In glares at the screen. Why are they thanking me for killing a villain? At this rate, the public will keep seeing me as a good guy. How am I supposed to become Stardust's personal villain? I need to convince everyone that I'm a truly ruthless criminal. Meanwhile, several miles away, at Seoul Tower, tourists continue wandering around, completely unaware that something enormous is about to happen. Moments later, Kim.In's face appears across the nearby screens. Hello everyone, I'm the villain Egostic. I know you're all wondering who I am, but before we get to that, there's something I need to tell you. The tower you can see in the distance, and the observation deck beside it, have both been rigged with explosives. With a wave of his hand, countless airborne cameras turn toward him. Kim.In is waiting for Stardust to appear. As he stands there, he repeatedly adjusts his clothes. Even he cannot understand why he is so nervous when he is supposed to be playing the villain. Suddenly, a chain of sonic booms tears through the air. Stardust arrives right on cue and lands before Kim.In. But the moment he sees his idol in person, his face turns bright red. Her dazzling blonde hair and crimson combat suit make his heart race uncontrollably. The two of them are finally standing face to face. Yet Kim.In can only close his eyes and struggle to calm himself. His mind drifts back to the day he first transmigrated into the world of Stardust. Back then, he happened to glance upward and saw a picture of Stardust. That single image inspired him to become a hero, so he could fight beside the woman he loved. However, as someone who had read the entire comic, Kim.In knew that even becoming a hero would not let him change Stardust's tragic fate. If he truly wanted to protect her, his only choice was to become a villain. Back in the present, the furious Stardust starts walking toward him. Kim.In immediately raises the detonator. Take one more step, and you know what happens. He then forces out an exaggerated villainous laugh, making Stardust's face turn red with rage. The two face each other on the rooftop, while the screens behind them display the terrified faces of countless innocent civilians. Seeing Stardust's tightly clenched fists, Kim.In suddenly freezes. Kim.In immediately says, I know what you're thinking. My people control the broadcast and hold the detonator, so don't even think about solving this by taking me down. Stardust stops in her tracks as Kim.In spreads his arms, causing countless floating cameras to appear around him. You, lunatic, release these innocent people immediately, or you'll regret it. Kim.In turns toward the cameras. Since Stardust asked so nicely, I'll unlock the elevators in both buildings. With that, he snaps his fingers. The elevators inside both buildings roar to life, and their sealed doors slowly open. However, Stardust frowns, knowing it cannot possibly be that simple. The trapped civilians can no longer contain themselves and immediately rush toward the elevators. Kim.In suddenly stops them over the speakers. If I simply let you leave, wouldn't that be boring? Do you see the illuminated down button? The moment you press it, the bombs inside the other building will explode. Starting now, you have exactly 30 minutes before the bombs detonate. Go ahead and press it. The people in the other building are complete strangers, aren't they? You bastard. Stardust shouts furiously. Kim.In seemingly wants to expose humanity at its most selfish by turning the people in both buildings against one another. The civilians soon begin arguing, since pressing the button would be the same as personally killing everyone in the other building. However, if they do nothing, their own building will be destroyed in 30 minutes. Before long, everyone turns towards Stardust, desperately hoping the heroine will find a solution. Stardust also falls deep into thought, knowing that defeating Kim.In now may not change anything. She finally asks coldly, is playing with people's lives fun? Kim Da-in merely gazes back at her. He then presses a button on his remote, and his body gradually becomes transparent, staring at Stardust from a distance. Kim Da-in says, if you can persuade them, and no one in either building presses the button within 30 minutes, none of the bombs will explode. Now then, let the game begin. At his command, every camera begins recording. Stardust's face appears on the screens inside both buildings, and every civilian looks up at her. With determination burning in her eyes, she begins addressing the crowd. On the stage, Kim Da-in created for her, Stardust delivers a speech that moves not only the trapped civilians, but countless viewers watching the broadcast. The countdown eventually reaches 0, yet not a single person presses the button. Seeing his plan fail, Kim Da-in pretends to fly into a rage. Impossible. Are you telling me those selfish humans didn't scramble to save themselves? At least one person should have pressed the button. How could humanity possibly be this selfless? Stardust calmly replies, not everyone in this world is selfish. There are far more kind people than you think. Kim Da-in's body then begins fading away. He completely disappears before Stardust can grab him. The next second, Kim Da-in reappears inside another room, where he collapses weakly onto the floor. Long-distance teleportation places an enormous strain on his body, leaving him barely able to stand. His younger sister, Han So-eun, stands nearby and silently watches her brother lying on the floor, back at the tower. Stardust feels no joy as she looks at the civilians she saved. Instead, she clenches her fists and whispers, next time, I'll catch you. Meanwhile, an emergency meeting is underway at the headquarters of the Korean Hero Association. The villain known as Egostic has already taken over the national headlines. Every piece of information gathered about him is projected onto the conference room wall. Association Chairman Park Jun-ho speaks first. Everyone, begin your reports. There were no casualties, and we've reviewed the footage multiple times. Egostic teleported the bombs inside the buildings, then moved them to a safe location before detonating them. But it's unlikely that he accomplished all of this alone. Had he discovered any other leads? Another staff member immediately stands and adds, he most likely has an accomplice who also manufactures his explosives, based on the message he left at the murder scene, and how frequently he mentioned Stardust during the recent attack. We suspect that this villain has a particular obsession with her. Hearing this, Park Jun-ho turns towards Stardust. Stardust calmly replies, he's just scum, a vicious bastard who enjoys manipulating people. Meanwhile, Kim Da-in is rummaging through the refrigerator inside his base. He steals one of Han So-eun's drinks, only to be caught red-handed by his younger sister. In the original comic, Han So-eun is a brilliant hacker destined to become an S-rank villain. The two of them now live inside an underground base they built together. Se-eun is furious because she has repeatedly warned her brother to stop stealing her drinks. Kim Da-in merely gives her a relaxed smile and gently pats her on the head. To his surprise, Se-eun suddenly grabs him and pulls him away. Moments later, they enter a room packed with computers. Se-eun points toward one of the screens. Kim Da-in looks closer and sees a group dressed just like him, live streaming a hostage situation. The copycats have even planted a bomb inside the building. A timid, masked woman is hiding in the corner. She's one of Se-eun's followers and a hacker active on the dark web. To prevent these so-called followers from harming innocent people, Kim Da-in decides to deal with them personally. The smoke pouring from the building also catches Stardust's attention. She swallows nervously and requests permission to engage, but headquarters insists on attempting another negotiation. The decision immediately infuriates Stardust. Most villains have always relied on superpowers to cause chaos. However, Kim Da-in threatened heroes with ordinary explosives, unintentionally inspiring regular people to imitate him the very next day. Just then, a signal comes through Stardust's earpiece. To her surprise, Kim Da-in has started a live stream. On the screen, he walks into the occupied building completely unarmed. The moment he appears, every terrorist raises a gun and aims at him. One of the criminals recognizes him and freezes. Isn't that our hero, Egostic? He actually came to us. The other criminals immediately erupt in cheers. Kim Da-in has become their symbol, and his arrival only convinces them that everything they are doing is justified. However, Kim Da-in responds to the cheering criminals with an icy glare. His reaction immediately leaves them confused. The moment he notices the criminal behind him gripping the bomb's detonator, Kim Da-in's body suddenly blurs. With a single motion, he blasts a massive hole through the man's chest. The others stare in shock before raising their guns and aiming at Kim Da-in, but the next second, every weapon flies uncontrollably into the air. In the blink of an eye, the barrels turn toward their own masters. An eerie blue light glows around Kim Da-in's hand. A barrage of gunfire echoes through the building as every criminal is killed by their own weapon. The entire massacre is broadcast live, leaving viewers wondering why a villain would slaughter his own followers. Outside the building, Stardust receives permission to engage and immediately leaps down to rescue the hostages. Meanwhile, Kim Da-in points a gun at the last remaining masked woman. Han Se-eun quickly warns him through his earpiece. Don't shoot. She's innocent. Kim Da-in slowly approaches the woman cowering in the corner and pulls off her mask. The mask flies past Kim Da-in, revealing a tearful young woman named Lee Soo-bin. Lee Soo-bin immediately bursts into tears and admits her mistake, leaving everyone watching the live stream completely confused. Kim Da-in shows no sympathy. Save the crocodile tears. Cry again, and I'll shoot. Lee Soo-bin instantly closes her mouth. Kim Da-in then turns toward the hostages. I sincerely apologize. I wasn't responsible for this attack, but these people were clearly inspired by my actions. I'll make sure every one of you receives compensation. With that, Kim Da-in picks up Lee Soo-bin in his arms. However, the side effects of repeated teleportation are making his body increasingly weaker. Suddenly, a thunderous crash erupts inside the building. Kim Da-in looks up in surprise and finds Stardust standing beside him, glaring at him with fury. She immediately reaches out to grab him, but Kim Da-in's weakened legs suddenly give out, causing him to accidentally duck beneath her hand. Stardust instantly realizes something is wrong. By the time she turns around, Kim Da-in and Lee Soo-bin have already disappeared. Later, after failing to catch them, Stardust sits dejectedly at a desk on campus. Kim Chae-hun pulls out the chair beside her and asks, Haru, what's wrong? Stardust silently flips through her notebook without answering. Korea's #1 hero, Stardust, is actually a university student named Shin Haru. Whenever she operates as a hero, she uses a perception blocking filter. Because of this, no one knows that the famous Stardust is really Shin Haru. Although her civilian appearance is hardly ordinary, Shin Haru is currently frowning deeply, repeatedly sketching Kim Da-in's face in her notebook. She cannot understand why a villain would rescue hostages. While she is lost in thought, someone suddenly pinches her cheek. Her upperclassmen noticed her spacing out and assumed she was struggling with a difficult assignment. So Kim Chae-hyun suggests putting the work aside and getting some mango shaved ice together. The mention of mango shaved ice instantly lifts Shin Haru's spirits, and she shoots out of her seat. But the moment she remembers Kim Da-in laughing maniacally, her anger comes rushing back. She even snaps the pencil in her hand. Her notebook, meanwhile, remains filled with sketches of the mysterious villain. At the same time, a young woman stands outside an ordinary house in a residential neighborhood in Seoul. After stepping inside, she discovers a hidden elevator. She enters a combination code, and the elevator carries her dozens of floors underground. This is a secret base belonging to Kim Da-in and Han So-eun. Kim Da-in is currently resting inside a recovery pod while chatting with his younger sister. He shifts slightly and accidentally slams his left knee against the wall of the pod, causing him to cry out in pain. Just then, Lee Soo-bin knocks and enters the room. She is carrying a small bag of snacks, looking surprisingly sweet and innocent. Han So-eun immediately jumps off the bed and runs over to greet her. Kim Da-in cannot understand why So-in chose this seemingly ordinary girl out of all the hostages. He teleports beside them and asks why she brought Lee Soo-bin into their underground base. In response, Se-eun calmly reveals Lee Soo-bin's background. Both of her parents once worked as researchers for the Hanan group. Lee Soo-bin covers her mouth in shock, unable to believe that this young girl knows so much about her. Se-eun even knows that Lee Soo-bin wants revenge against the Hanan group. Since Se-eun is pursuing the same revenge, she desperately wants Lee Soo-bin to join them. Kim Da-in finally understands Se-eun's intentions. Like his younger sister, Lee Soo-bin is another victim of the Hanan group. When Kim Da-in originally recruited Se-eun, he promised to help her take revenge, while also trying to prevent her from becoming an S-rank villain. However, he cannot remember Lee Soo-bin ever appearing in the original story. Could she have been an irrelevant background character? While Kim Da-in is lost in thought, the two girls suddenly embrace. They cling to each other, as if they are the only family either of them has left. Seeing the heartwarming moment, Kim Da-in decides not to object. The next second, he teleports back into his recovery pod. At the same time, inside a restaurant in Seoul, a man and woman are eating together. The woman is emotionally shattered, sobbing as she cuts the steak on her plate. The man sitting across from her stares back with a vicious expression. Just then, a police officer approaches him. You're suspected of involvement in an assault. Come with me. The man continues eating as though nothing happened. But the instant the officer touches his shoulder, an eerie red light erupts from his body. The next second, the officer is teleported onto the restaurant's rooftop. When he turns around in panic, the man appears behind him and kicks him off the building. This arrogant villain is Kim Hak-chul, a man who works publicly as a television reporter. Meanwhile, Han So-in confronts Kim Da-in while holding an empty bottle of orange juice. As the siblings argue, Lee Soo-bin suddenly claims that she drank it. So-in immediately hugs her like a real sister. It's okay, you can drink it whenever you want. Kim Da-in stares at them speechlessly. That's more like it. You finally stopped acting like a total tomboy. Se-eun's face immediately turns bright red. The three of them continue bickering playfully inside the cramped space. A short while later, they enter So-in's hacking room. As Kim Da-in looks at his younger sister, he remembers the day they first met. Han So-eun was the only survivor of a secret Hanan group project, in which hundreds of children were subjected to illegal experiments. One day, one of the test subjects developed a devastating side effect and released a terrifying surge of light and energy. The resulting beam tore through the facility and pierced the sky, while the shockwave brought down the surrounding buildings. After the incident, everyone connected to the project was eliminated, leaving So-eun as the only survivor. Covered in wounds, she barely managed to escape the research facility. She then hid underground, built the base they now use, and lived there alone for years. That lonely existence continued until Kim Da-in found her. During their first meeting, his sudden appearance frightened So-eun so badly that she knocked over her chair. She could only point a fruit fork at him in anger. Kim Da-in calmly asked, "Don't you want revenge? I need your help." So-eun's hand trembled uncontrollably around the fork, leaving her unable to form a complete sentence. Kim Da-in extended his hand. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to save you." In the original story, So-eun became an S-rank villain before her twisted desire for revenge eventually led to her death. Kim Da-in vowed to prevent that fate. Although now that Se-eun was his accomplice, had she technically already become a villain? Back in the present, Se-eun notices her brother spacing out and waves a hand in front of his face. Although Lee Soo-bin suffered a similar tragedy, she grew into a remarkably strong and determined woman. She taught herself enough to enter a prestigious university, where she majored in computer science. From now on, she will assist Se-eun with hacking operations. Kim Da-in remains cautious, however, because he knows far too little about someone who never appeared in the original story. Se-eun then hands him a tiny beetle-shaped device. It is an adhesive tracking sensor, leaving Kim Da-in confused. "Why do I need a tracker?" Se-eun explains. "Your next opponent is Kim Hak-chul, a villain who can teleport. This device is specifically designed to counter him. He can perform unlimited short-range teleports without suffering any side effects. Even your telekinesis will struggle to restrain him." Se-eun raises her fist encouragingly. "Go get him, the legendary Agostic." Before long, Kim Da-in arrives near Kim Hak-chul's home. He crouches on a nearby rooftop while speaking with Se-eun through his earpiece. Se-eun sighs. "Just go inside, big brother. Fire the tracker at the same time as the bullet. Even if he teleports, he won't escape." Kim Da-in looks down at the pistols in his hands. "Then why do I need to assassinate him inside his home? Wouldn't attacking him on the street be much easier?" So-eun and Lee Soo-bin respond very differently. Soo-bin's voice seems to carry a special kind of affection. Her encouragement sounds unusually tender, almost romantic. Se-eun can only add her own quiet words of support. Once everything is ready, Kim Da-in thanks them and prepares to move. In the blink of an eye, he teleports into Kim Hak-chul's home. His target has just finished showering and is drying his hair with a towel. The sound of teleportation immediately catches Kim Hak-chul's attention. Kim Da-in quickly draws both pistols and fires twice. One weapon launches a golden bullet, while the other fires the beetle-shaped tracker. But the next second, Kim Hak-chul vanishes. Kim Da-in immediately realizes something is wrong. So-eun, I don't think the tracker landed properly. Can you still locate him? Yes. Se-eun shouts as Lee Soo-bin sends Kim Hak-chul's new location. After receiving the coordinates, Kim Da-in immediately teleports. But the next second, he appears in the middle of a crowded street surrounded by civilians with no superpowers. Some pedestrians even recognize him. Kim Da-in immediately realizes something is wrong because this was never part of the plan. News that Agostic has appeared downtown quickly spreads across the internet. Meanwhile, Shin Haru is attending class at Yonhee University like an ordinary student. Suddenly, a message comes through her earpiece. An attack is underway downtown. Report to the scene immediately. Shin Haru instantly leaps out of her seat. When she notices the entire class staring at her, she remembers that she is still at school and hurriedly apologizes. She quickly gathers her belongings, then launches herself from the roof of the university building and flies toward downtown. Meanwhile, Kim Da-in continues searching